Chapter 1181. I'll kill you. Boom. Song Qianzong's face contorted. His saber unleashed a ferocious saber aura. This time, it was a completely different concept compared to the last time in Xianying. The saber aura was unstoppable. Rumble. Song Qianzong slashed at Black God King without any regard for his life. Bastard. Black God King's face sank. He brandished his sword and attacked. In an instant, the entire south was engulfed by saber and sword aura. The other God Kings' faces changed. Some of them wanted to rush over. Something's wrong. Don't move. A white-clothed God King suddenly shouted. White God King, what's wrong? The other God Kings were confused. Something's wrong. We're here to destroy Xianyang. We're here to destroy Xianyang. White God King shouted. When White God King shouted, everyone reacted. Something's wrong. It's as if there's a mysterious force that's pulling our actions? Is it Yan Chuan? Everyone looked at Yan Chuan. However, they saw Yan Chuan looking at them indifferently. He was not worried at all. The faces of the God Kings immediately sank as they looked at the ambitious and ruthless people hidden in the surroundings. Song Qianzong had already escaped his control and was blocking the Black God King. Moreover, was the scene just now deliberately arranged by Yan Chuan? So, this Yan Chuan was too terrifying. He could make an ancestral immortal willingly die? Would Yan Chuan have other plans? Were there any other ambitious and ruthless people who had been bewitched by Yan Chuan? In the distance, Yan Chuan sat on the dragon throne. Bai Qi stood beside him. Bai Qi, what do you think of this Song Qianzong? Yan Chuan asked indifferently. He's loyal. Although he has changed his mind, it's all for his younger brother. Moreover, he doesn't have much of a relationship with Dajin. It's not considered treachery. My saber heart is slowly forming. Furthermore, after this incident, my saber heart will evolve and my saber Dao will improve even more. Bai Qi said in a deep voice. Since that is the case, I will leave this Song Qianzong to you. As for Song Tianren, leave it to Yin Hentian to search for him. Soon there should be news of Song Tianren's soul in the netherworld, Yan Chuan said. Don't worry, Holy King. Bai Qi nodded. Bai Qi looked into the distance with satisfaction. Hatred sharpened Song Tianzong's saber, making it sharper and sharper. Under the immense hatred, Song Tianzong's saber techniques seemed to be undergoing an intense breakthrough. In the distance, the 9 great divine kings were slightly anxious. Black Divine King, how is it? White Divine King called out. Haha, don't worry. Song Tianzong is just crazy. His cultivation base is inferior to mine. Don't worry. Destroy Xianying first. Everything can wait until we take revenge for the Purple God King and Azure God King. Amidst the storm of saber energy and sword energy, the Black God King said in a clear voice. The remaining experts nodded in agreement. The White Divine King looked at the Immortal Slaying Sword formation. Humph. Yan Chuan, no matter how many schemes you have, they are useless today. Immortal Slaying Sword formation? So what? White Divine King shouted. Roar. A loud roar came from the 300-odd heavenly Dao. The roar was so loud that it instantly spread out in all directions. The surrounding ambitious and ruthless people all focused their attention. Suddenly, the 350 heavenly Dao burst out with dazzling light and crashed into the Immortal Slaying Sword formation. Boom. The 350 heavenly Dao burst out with great force at the same time. The sky had already turned dark, and it seemed like the entire sky was collapsing inwards. The ground shook violently and countless rocks flew into the air, shooting in all directions. The group of ambitious and ruthless people quickly retreated. The 350 heavenly Dao crashed into the Immortal Slaying Sword formation. Suddenly, the Immortal Slaying Sword formation shook violently. The expression of Sun Wukong, who was controlling the Immortal Slaying Sword formation, changed. Rumble. The Immortal Slaying Sword formation shook violently. Under the pressure of the 350 heavenly Dao, it seemed like it would instantly collapse. However, despite the shaking, it did not collapse. The surrounding experts narrowed their eyes. What a powerful Immortal Slaying Sword formation! Holy King Barbarian Dragon exclaimed. The Dragon Emperor also narrowed his eyes. That's not right. Even the 350 heavenly Dao can't break this formation? White Divine King's face darkened when he realized that the Immortal Slaying Sword formation could not be broken after one collision. Everyone use more force. The Immortal Slaying Sword formation is already shaking in the wind and rain. It no longer has the strength to resist. Just use a little more force and the Immortal Slaying Sword formation will be completely broken. White Divine King roared. Roar. The group of experts roared. Sun Wukong was slightly anxious. He turned to look at Yan Chuan and said, Yen-di, the immortal slaying sword formation has reached its limit. It might not be able to hold on any longer. In the distance, Yen Chuan was not anxious. Instead, he suddenly laughed. You can write Prime of Tong Tian? Yen Chuan's eyes glinted as he said. Huh. Sun Wukong raised an eyebrow, revealing a look of surprise. Prime Tong Tian? Yen Chuan looked at the 4 immortal slaying swords and said again, the immortal slaying sword formation was only broken by the Grand Supreme, Primeval, Zhuanti, and Jane. It was broken by the 4 sages. It's fine if it was broken by the 4 sages. But Prime Tong Tian, do you think that this group of people is qualified to break your immortal slaying sword formation? After Yen Chuan finished speaking, Sun Wukong in the distance revealed a look of surprise. Prime Tong Tian? Suddenly, a burst of laughter came from the immortal slaying sword formation. Ha 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 ha. The loud laughter spread in all directions. Outside Xianying and Xianying, there was this grand laughter everywhere. The aura of the immortal slaying sword formation suddenly erupted. The sword chi instantly condensed several times. For a moment, the sword chi seemed to have turned into a real sword. It was extremely sharp and the sword chi exploded in all directions. Inside, countless sword chi gathered towards the center. Not far from Sun Wukong, the sword chi condensed and slowly condensed into a blurry figure. It was a man in a black robe. The man's face was filled with arrogance. His long hair was draped behind his back and fluttered slightly. He looked extremely wild and unruly. The body that was completely condensed by sword chi slowly solidified. An extremely domineering aura rushed out. A projection? A physical projection. The Dragon Emperor in the distance changed his expression. What a terrifying aura. Dragon Emperor, why do I have a feeling of fear when I look at him? The Dragon King at the side said in surprise. The immortal slaying sword formation gradually stabilized. The surrounding disciples of Zhu Gong had a drastic change in expression. Break the formation, quickly break the formation. This projection is condensed by the sword chi of the immortal slaying sword formation. Once the immortal slaying sword formation is broken, this projection will collapse. Quick, everyone, use your full strength. The White Divine King exclaimed. Brr. The group of experts immediately roared. The 350 heavenly Daos suddenly burst out with dazzling brilliance. All the ancestral immortals and Dao gods almost burst out with all their strength at the same time and violently charged towards the immortal slaying sword formation. The sword chi projection of Prime Tong Tian gradually condensed. Seeing the 300 heavenly Daos charging towards him, Prime Tong Tian revealed a cold smile. You overestimate yourselves. Prime Tong Tian snorted coldly. With a snort, the immortal slaying sword formation suddenly expanded outwards. In an instant, billions of sword energy shot out in all directions and charged towards the 350 heavenly Daos. 350 heavenly Daos versus the immortal slaying sword formation presided by Prime Tong Tian. Hong. The space between heaven and earth surged and distorted, forming a huge spatial vortex that seemed to swallow everything in all directions. Under the huge impact, 100 heavenly Daos suddenly collapsed. The remaining heavenly Daos even retreated. All the Dao gods were sent flying. In midair, they vomited blood and were shocked. Although the ancestral immortals were not that miserable, they did not have it easy either. Their respective heavenly Daos were knocked back by the impact. Outside the immortal slaying sword formation, the wind raged. Sand and stones flew everywhere. Space and earth were in chaos. In the distance, the Dragon Emperor revealed a look of shock. Who is Prime Tong Tian? How can a sword chi projection be so ferocious? The Dragon Emperor said in surprise. Standing in the void of the immortal slaying sword formation, Prime Tong Tian looked coldly at the ancestral immortals around him. Sword chi surrounded him, making him look like an undefeatable god. Domineering. Greetings, Prime Tong Tian. Sun Wukong immediately said respectfully. Not far away in Xianying, Yen Chuan looked at Prime Tong Tian in the sky and smiled. Prime Tong Tian's style is not inferior to back then. Aha, Bai knows me best. Prime Tong Tian looked at Yen Chuan and laughed heartily. Outside the immortal slaying sword formation, the god kings were shocked. Prime Tong Tian? This is the person our palace master did not want us to provoke? This is him? White God King looked at sect leader Tong Tian with an ugly expression. His eyes were filled with uncertainty as he said, Heroes of the 4 territories, although this projection is strong, it relies on the fairy slaying sword formation. Everyone follow me to break the fairy slaying sword formation. I will not take the 4 fairy slaying swords. I will let you divide them among yourselves. Follow me to break the fairy slaying sword formation. White God King shouted with an unyielding tone. The disciples of Zhu Gong naturally supported him. However, the heroes of the four territories frowned. Some of them were afraid. However, more people were eager to give it a try. That was because the Immortal Slaying Sword formation had revealed its strength. It was an ancestral immortal artifact and a top-tier one at that. Many people were envious. Roar. Suddenly, 6 ancestral immortals stepped out, as if they were going to break the Immortal Slaying Sword formation with the experts of Zhu Gong. Within the Immortal Slaying Sword formation, Prime Tongtian's eyes turned cold. He turned to look at White God King. With a glance, a ferocious will flashed in his eyes. The impact of the will shook White God King's soul. He was in a daze. How is this possible? White God King exclaimed. However, Prime Tongtian snorted coldly. Prime Tongtian reached out his hand and grabbed the Immortal Ending Sword. Bang! The Immortal Slaying Sword formation was instantly broken. However, Prime Tongtian's projection did not disperse. What? Impossible! White God King exclaimed. If the projection only relied on the Immortal Slaying Sword formation, it would be fine. But now, it did not rely on the Immortal Slaying Sword formation. What should they do? Noisy guy. Holding the Immortal Ending Sword, Prime Tongtian slashed down from the sky. With a slash, the black Immortal Ending Sword seemed to have dyed the whole world black. It brought with it a huge sharpness and an unstoppable force. It slashed down from the sky towards the White Divine King. As it slashed down, there seemed to be a huge force that sealed the void, causing the White Divine King to be unable to move. No, no! White God King exclaimed. Senior, please show mercy. Suddenly, a Jiaohu sound came from the void. However, how could Prime Tongtian allow others to stop him? Boom! The heavenly sword instantly cleaved the sky into 2 halves. A huge spatial crack appeared in the void from above, cleaving White Divine King into 2 halves. The aftermath of the attack rushed to the ground. Boom! On the ground, a huge trench that was 30,000 miles long appeared. The mountains on both sides of the trench exploded. The surrounding experts, including the Tao gods and ancestral immortals, were blown away by the aftermath of the sword. Ah! The sky was filled with people. The power of the sword was unparalleled. Countless heroes in the surroundings were almost all shocked. The ancestral immortals who had just appeared to attack the Immortal Slaying Sword formation fled into the forest below in fear. The Immortal Slaying Sword formation was withdrawn, but no one dared to take a step forward. With the sword in hand, Prime Tongtian looked around coldly. The heroes in the surroundings were all speechless at this moment. No one dared to say a word. Damn it, how could a person be so strong to such a monstrous extent? White God King was slashed in half and fell from the sky. The absolute power of the Immortal Slaying Sword could even slash the soul. No one could save those who were killed by Prime Tongtian. At this moment, the faces of the heroes in Zhu Palace twitched. Revenge? Whoosh! Suddenly, a figure shot over from afar and instantly appeared in front of everyone. The remaining disciples of Zhu Palace were all ecstatic. Palace Master. The Divine Kings were overjoyed. The Palace Master of Zhu Palace had come personally. The Palace Master had come. The fear from before had dissipated by more than half. All the disciples of Zhu Palace quickly flew towards the Palace Master. They all stood behind him. Even Black God King, who was fighting with Song Tianzong in the distance, did not dare to continue fighting. He quickly flew behind the Palace Master. Where do you think you're going? Song Tianzong's eyes were bloodshot. At this moment he was only staring at Black God King. How could he care about Prime Tongtian? Clang! Suddenly, a blade blocked in front of Song Tianzong. It was Bai Qi who had appeared on the battlefield. Get out of the way! Song Tianzong roared. If you want to save Song Tianren, shut up! Bai Qi shouted coldly. Buzz. Song Tianzong quivered. Say, could his brother still be saved? Could he still be saved? Song Tianzong seemed to have grabbed onto a life-saving straw. His eyes were filled with eagerness. Bai Qi turned around and left. Song Tianzong looked at Black God King with hatred. Without hesitation he followed Bai Qi down. The one who had shouted, Senior, please show mercy, was the Palace Master of Zhu Palace. The Palace Master of Zhu Palace wore a sinister mask and looked at Prime Tongtian. Senior, I did not discipline them well. Please be magnanimous. The Palace Master of Zhu Palace said extremely politely. Prime Tongtian's expression changed slightly as he looked at the Palace Master of Zhu Palace. So it's you? Discipline your people well. Prime Tongtian said in a deep voice. Yes, I will teach them well when I return. Thank you for your magnanimity. The palace master of Ju Palace said respectfully. Go. Prime Tong Tian said. The palace master of Ju Palace bowed respectfully to Prime Tong Tian. Let's go. The palace master of Ju Palace said. Although the divine kings were unwilling, no one dared to say anything at this time. Ancestral immortal? They were all ancestral immortals. Why was the difference so great? The ambitious and ruthless people also did not dare to say anything. Prime Tongtian's sword had proven everything. Even the powerful palace master of Ju Palace of the Outer East continent could only bow to him as a junior. Who would dare to be impudent in front of Prime Tongtian? Chapter 1182. The Prime of Tongtian swept his gaze across all the ambitious and ruthless people. None of them dared to stand out. After looking around, Tongtian suddenly looked in the direction of Xianyang. Looking over, many of the officials in Xianyang narrowed their eyes. Yan Xuan, however, smiled. When Tongtian looked at Yan Xuan, there was a black light in his eyes. In the black light, the world Tongtian saw was different from others. Yan Xuan was still the same Yan Xuan sitting on the dragon throne. Tongtian could vaguely see an emerald green color. Behind Yan Xuan, there seemed to be a giant tree full of vitality. The tree was like a canopy covering Yan Xuan. Cypress tree heavenly scripture? No, the heavenly scripture was born from the Great Thousand World. It's useless outside the Great Thousand World. But Tongtian revealed a look of surprise. Whoosh! Tongtian appeared in front of Yan Xuan. Yan Xuan stood up slowly. Yan Xuan stood up. Tongtian saw that the giant tree behind Yan Xuan suddenly disappeared. Tongtian looked at Yan Xuan with a complicated expression. It's been a long time. Congratulations. Yan Xuan said with a smile. Bai Yi no Yan Xuan and Gui Guzi. It's been a long time. Tongtian nodded. This is not the place to talk. Let's go in. Yan Xuan said with a smile. Tongtian nodded. Yan Xuan waved his hand and countless stars suddenly flew out of his palm and danced in the air of the examination hall. Tongtian, this way please. Gui Guzi said with a smile. Tongtian nodded and followed Gui Guzi to the palace. Many of the great Jin candidates looked at the sect leader in bewilderment. Tongtian's shocking sword strike shocked everyone. It seemed that such a peerless figure was good friends with the Holy King. Good friends? What was there to worry about? The group of heroes outside? Didn't they see that they didn't even dare to fart in front of Tongtian? All of a sudden, the fear that they had felt earlier vanished without a trace. Instead, they looked at the test paper excitedly. Desolation Flower looked at Tongtian, who was standing in a hall, and took a deep breath. Surprise flashed in his eyes. Tongtian's sword strike was too terrifying. Could the Holy King do it? Yes. Holy King. Holy King. Holy King. And Holy King. Kuhua looked at sect leader Tongtian in dismay, feeling uneasy. Of course no one else, the Holy King. Previously, when the Immortal slaying sword formation was laid out, there were still people who dared to take the risk. Although all the warlords were domineering in their own territories, they were not on the same level in front of the prime of Tongtian. Great Jin? Yan Xuan was close to Tongtian? How could a person like Tongtian, who could be friends with him, be a person that could be easily bullied? Bastard. Which spy collected the information on Great Jin? Is Great Jin just a weak country? Bastard. The angry rebukes of the ambitious and ruthless characters could be heard from all directions. The Dragon Emperor looked at Tongtian with a complicated expression. Great Jin Holy Dynasty? Who are they? The Dragon Emperor was confused. Yan Xuan looked around. Then he looked at a valley in the distance. Bai Qi. Yan Xuan said in a deep voice. Here. Bai Qi flew over. Not far away, Song Tianzong was waiting with a frown. Song Tianzong clenched his fists. Bai Qi had said that his brother could be saved. He had to wait. He had to wait patiently. Yan Xuan looked at the Barbarian Dragon Holy King and said to Bai Qi, Barbarian Dragon Holy King, take him down. Yes, sir. Bai Qi replied. The Barbarian Dragon Holy King glared at Bai Qi. Sending an official to take me down? Yan Xuan doesn't care about me at all? Bastard. The Barbarian Dragon Holy King said angrily. Kill anyone who dares to stop me. Yan Xuan shouted coldly. Yes. Bai Qi replied. Bai Qi took a step forward and soared into the sky. He held a saber in his hand and dragged it through the air. As he dragged it through the air, the saber turned blood-red and blood-colored lotuses bloomed from it. Evil Qi soared into the sky. Are you trying to make an example out of him? Zizi asked, puzzled. Yan Xuan nodded and said, That's right. Naturally, no one will help the barbarian dragon Holy King now. He was the first to come and destroy Xianyang. Since he dared to come out, he should have known that he would be captured. Now that Bai Qi is making a move, he won't be able to escape. Capture? Not kill? How are you going to deal with him? Zizi asked curiously. Killing might not be the best way to deal with him. Just like last time, use the Book of Life and Death and turn him into the beast path. Barbarian Dragon Holy King. Since he's called the Barbarian Dragon Holy King, I'll grant him his wish. Turn him into a dragon and let him pull my chariot. Yin Chuan said. Pfft. Zizi suddenly laughed. What's wrong? Yin Chuan asked, puzzled. Nothing. I'm just laughing at the Barbarian Dragon Holy King. If he knew that a Holy King would be captured to pull my chariot, he wouldn't have dared to come to Xianyang. Zizi laughed. Ha 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 ha. Yin Chuan laughed as well. After giving Zizi some instructions, Yin Chuan left the venue and followed Gui Guzi and the sect leader into a palace not far away. Sun Wukong looked around with a solemn expression before he waited outside the palace. Inside the palace, the doors were tightly shut. Yin Chuan, the sect leader, and Gui Guzi sat at a jade table. Gui Guzi poured 3 cups of tea for them. The sect leader looked curiously at Gui Guzi and then at Yin Chuan. It seems like too many things have happened in the Great Thousand World, the sect leader said with melancholy. Gui Guzi and Yin Chuan were on equal footing in the past. Now they were one king and one minister. Indeed. In the end, the Great Thousand World is safe and a person who has transcended was born. Yin Chuan nodded. It's a pity that it's not Pangu, Hongjun, Fushi, or Mingyi. The sect leader nodded. Who can guarantee that it's fated? The last period of the Great Thousand World was the most glorious era. The heroes of the world fought for the heaven's will, and tens of thousands of heroes climbed to the peak. That was the peak era of the Great Thousand World, and it will never be replicated. It seems like I missed that era. The sect leader laughed. Why did you miss that era? There are 4 worlds in the nothingness. We were originally from the Great Thousand World. The 4 worlds competed with each other. We fought for the Great Thousand World together. Why did you stay in the weakest world? Yin Chuan asked in confusion. In the void there are indeed only these 4 worlds and nothing else. However, do you know that our weakest world has another name? It's just that this world is too weak and has been forgotten by everyone. The sect leader took a deep breath and said. Yin Chuan showed a trace of doubt. This world has another name. It's called the First World. The sect leader took a deep breath and said. The First World? Gui Guzi raised his eyebrows. Infinity gives birth to Tai Chi. Infinity is nothingness. It means nothing. The Tai Chi that is born in nothing is something. That is to say, there are 4 of our current tangible worlds. This world was the first to be born, and our Great Thousand World was actually the 4th to be born. The sect leader said. 4 worlds. This world is the first world. Our Great Thousand World is the 4th world? Yin Chuan's expression changed slightly. Yes, Hongjun found it. Later he told me and I faked my death to enter this world. Over the years, I also found out that this world was actually not the weakest at the beginning. When the 4 worlds were just formed, this world looked down on the 4 worlds. However, later on, something happened and it became the weakest world. The sect leader took a deep breath and said. What happened? Yin Chuan asked curiously. I don't know. The sect leader shook his head. Even you didn't manage to find anything. It seems like when you said that this world was at its peak, the experts of this world did indeed have monstrous means to erase all traces of the past. Yin Chuan said solemnly. Yes, but there are still some loopholes. But you will find out in the future. The sect leader shook his head and didn't want to say more. Yin Chuan nodded. Then he thought for a while and said, in the void only 4 worlds were born. Only 4. Why are there only 4? I came to this world not long ago, so I haven't done much research. You have been here for more than 1,000,000 years. You should know something about it, right? After saying that, Yin Chuan stared at the sect leader. The sect leader frowned and suddenly fell silent. It seemed that he didn't want to say anything. After a long silence, the sect leader looked at Yin Chuan seriously and took a deep breath. I have a guess, but it's too unbelievable. I'm not sure. Are the 4 worlds really related? Yin Chuan's expression changed. The sect leader looked serious for a while and then said, kill the 3 corpses. Whoosh. The teacup in Guiguzi's hand suddenly shook. His eyes widened in surprise. What? Yin Chuan's pupils suddenly shrank. Shock flashed through his eyes. The hall instantly fell into silence. Kill the 3 corpses? The 3 of them seemed to have realized something. Suddenly no one talked about it anymore. I'm leaving too. I saw your great heaven avoid arcane art last time. The sect leader said. After this battle we don't owe each other anything. Yin Chuan said with a smile. No, I still owe you something. The sect leader said. Oh. The sect leader stretched out his hand, and 3 sword-shaped light balls appeared in his palm. This is the killing sword intent of the 4 immortal slaying swords. Is to make up for what I owe you. Now we don't owe each other anything. The sect leader said solemnly. Seeing the sect leader's insistence, Yin Chuan nodded. He stretched out his hand and took the 3 sword-shaped light balls. They were prepared for God, Jade Emperor, and the Grand Emperor. Quang. The door of the hall suddenly opened. In the outside world the battle was still going on. The sect leader took a glance and stopped paying attention. Instead he looked at Sun Wukong, who was not far away. Take the 4 immortal slaying swords and go. The Great Jin doesn't need protection anymore. The sect leader said. Yes. Sun Wukong replied. Quang. The sect leader's projected body suddenly collapsed, leaving behind the 4 immortal slaying swords. Goodbye, Emperor Yin. Sun Wukong said directly. Okay. Yin Chuan nodded. Whoosh. Sun Wukong took the 4 immortal slaying swords and quickly flew out of Xianyang City. In an instant, dust rose everywhere and strong winds blew. Sand and stones flew everywhere and the sky darkened. The barbarian dragon Holy King was not used to his dragon form. It was simply Bai Qi beating the barbarian dragon Holy King one-sidedly. Roar! Roar! Bai Qi beat the Torvosaurus to his heart's content. The surrounding experts were speechless because they all knew that Yin Chuan was killing the chicken to warn the monkey. Bai Qi beating the barbarian dragon Holy King was actually a warning to them. Whoever dared to offend Xianyang would be the next barbarian dragon Holy King. How many more unknowns did the Great Jin Empire have? No one knew. However, the current situation had left every single individual force speechless. Yin Chuan had not even personally made a move, yet the situation was already like this. Would their own individual forces be able to withstand it? Group attack? At the beginning there was still the atmosphere of a group attack. Now everyone's morale was gone. How could they form an alliance? Moreover, each of them had their own thoughts. There was no way they could form an alliance. They could only watch as Bai Qi beat the barbarian dragon Holy King as if he was slapping his own face. The experts were speechless. Not far from Skyward Palace, Yin Chuan's dragon carriage. The 7 fiends and Dragon Fifth stared. Ancestral Immortal? General Bai is beating an Ancestral Immortal. The 7 fiends exclaimed. Roar! Dragon Fifth was also at a loss as he coughed. The 7 fiends looked at Dragon Fifth and said, Do you see that? Now you know how wise I am. You wanted to resist back then, but look at that Ancestral Immortal. Why did you resist? This time Dragon Fifth did not refute. Tell me, what is the background of our Saint King? Also, if we follow him, will we have a chance of becoming Ancestral Immortals in the future? The 7 fiends' eyes lit up. Roar! That's right. So what if he's an Ancestral Immortal? He's still pulling the Holy King's carriage. The 7 fiends nodded with a strange expression. Far away in a valley, the Dragon Emperor watched Bai Qi beating the barbarian dragon Holy King and was speechless. Let's go back. Okay. The Dragon Kings no longer had any sense of superiority. Looking at the barbarian dragon Holy King in the distance, they felt very upset. The Dragon Emperor left. Some of the experts also left. Staying here would only bring shame to themselves. They all left. The barbarian dragon Holy King, who was beaten up by Bai Qi, felt extremely sullen. What a bunch of disloyal fellows. The experts outside all left. In Xianyang, the Great World Examination was also coming to an end. The theory examinees put down their brushes. The countless stars that Yin Chuan placed in the sky returned to Yin Chuan's palm. Looking at the universe in his palm, Yin Chuan took a deep breath and said, Wang Jian is about to end. In the examination hall, the papers shone brightly, showing the excellence of this batch of examinees. After waiting for a while, in the south, Bai Qi's battle was also coming to an end. The barbarian dragon Holy King seemed to have lost its bones. Bai Qi sealed its cultivation and twisted it over. Boom! Holy King, I did not let you down, Bai Qi said happily. Yin Chuan smiled and nodded. Lu Gang. Yin Chuan shouted. Here. Lu Gang immediately went forward. Take him away, Yin Chuan said. Lu Gang immediately understood what he meant. Take him away and torture him? Yes. In the distance, the barbarian dragon Holy King's subordinates were all captured. Boom. Suddenly Wang Jian brought 2 million examinees and flew out of the universe in his palm. Holy King, the combat examination examinees have finished. We are waiting for the final ranking. Wang Jian said. Get someone to sort out the results. Yin Chuan said. Yes. Desolation Hua quickly went forward and said, Holy King, all theory examinees stop writing. Sort out the results. Yin Chuan ordered. Yes. Yin Chuan looked at the 5 million examinees and said, the 5th Great World Examination has ended. All examinees wait in Xianyang. Yes. Long live the Holy King. The 5 million examinees said respectfully. At the same time there was also a kind of worship. After the battle just now, everyone's hearts calmed down. Rumble. In the distance, dark clouds suddenly appeared. Yin Chuan frowned and looked over. Dog God? Gui Guzi said in surprise. Dog God is going through the ancestral immortal tribulation? The white deity king who was killed by Tong Tian was lucky enough to be an ancestral immortal. Lu Buwei said in surprise. So it's because of heavenly kindness and great merit. Yin Chuan said thoughtfully. Gui Guzi nodded and said, indeed. Goddess Jichen was kind to heaven and earth in the past. Dog God followed Goddess Jichen and naturally received a large amount of heavenly kindness and great merit. The ancestral immortal position will be given to people with heavenly kindness and great merit. He couldn't become an ancestral immortal for a long time because of the spiritual perception realm. Yin Chuan nodded. Bai Ditian, go and keep an eye on him. Just in case. Yin Chuan shouted. Yes. Bai Ditian, who was not far away, replied. At this moment, Song Tianzong, who was not far away, could no longer endure and quickly flew over. Yeah. Yendi. Song Tianzong said with a complicated expression. Sect Master Song, have I Dezhen done you wrong? Yin Chuan said coldly. Yendi, I was possessed. All my mistakes were caused by me. As long as Yendi can save my younger brother, I can give up everything as long as my younger brother can live. Song Tianzong said sorrowfully. Sect Master, you can't do that. The nearby disciples immediately exclaimed. Yin Chuan looked at Song Tianzong and sighed softly. It's not impossible for him to live. However, if he lives, he has to be reincarnated. Song Tianren can still cultivate the ghost Dao. The ghost Dao? My younger brother's soul didn't scatter? He really turned into a ghost? Song Tianzong said in pleasant surprise. A beam of light quickly flew over from the distance. It was Dezhen's 5th Legion's commander Yin Hentian. Sage King, I did not let you down. Yin Hentian said with a smile. He waved his hand and a green soul suddenly appeared in front of him. Big brother, have you condensed your saber heart? The green soul rushed over anxiously. Tunren. Song Tianzong felt a lump in his throat. Did you condense it? Song Tianren's soul asked anxiously. Yes. Song Tianzong nodded with bloodshot eyes. That's great. Big brother, my death was worth it. Song Tianren said happily. Song Tianzong looked at his younger brother. He wanted to scold him for being brainless. However, when he saw his younger brother's happy expression, he could not bear to scold him. Tianren, don't worry. No matter what form you take, Big brother will always protect you. I will never let you get hurt again. Song Tianzong swore. Song Tianzong, from today on you will be under Bai Qi's command. Listen to Bai Qi's orders. Yin Chuan directly ordered, not giving Song Tianzong any chance to object. At the side, Song Tianren frowned. He wanted to say something, but Song Tianzong immediately bowed respectfully and said, Yes, Sage King. With this bow, the heavenly saber dojo's sea of beneficence suddenly crumbled. Boom. Surging beneficence quickly gathered in Dezhen's Xianyang domain. The heavenly saber weave's disciples all looked at the sky in horror. What's going on? Did something happen to the sect master? Countless disciples panicked. Chapter 1184. True Dragon Weave, Skyward Palace. Wang Jian will be the commander-in-chief of the expedition to the Purple-Green Weave. Li Si will be the deputy commander. You will lead the 6th Legion and subdue the Purple-Green Weave. Yin Chuan said as he sat on the dragon throne. We obey. Wang Jian and Li Si answered. The Azure God King and the Violet God King had already been massacred. There were no powerful experts defending the weave. One was a martial artist while the other was a scholar. These two were enough to subdue the barren lands. Meng Tian will be the commander-in-chief of the expedition to the Barbarian Dragon Weave. Zhang Yi will be the deputy commander. You will lead the 1st Legion and the 7th Legion. Quickly subdue the Barbarian Dragon Weave. Yin Chuan said. We obey. The two answered. The barbarian dragon Holy King was currently imprisoned in the Great Zhen. Although it would take some time to subdue a leaderless weave, it would be extremely easy for Meng Tian. Bai Qi will be the commander-in-chief of the expedition to the Heavenly Saber Weave. Yi Feng will be the deputy commander. You will lead the 2nd Legion and the 9th Legion. Quickly subdue the Heavenly Saber Weave. Yin Chuan said. We obey. The two answered. Song Qianzong was already under Bai Qi's command. Subduing the Heavenly Saber Weave would be easy. The most important thing was internal governance. Listen to Lu Buwei's arrangements for the newly promoted officials of the 5th examination. Head to the 3 borders and work with the 3 commanders-in-chief to open up new territories and govern the area. Yin Chuan said. Yes. Some of the officials at the end of the hall immediately answered. After the battle of the 5th examination, Yin Chuan's fame and the Great Zhen's ferocious might would sweep through the entire outer eastern continent in an extremely short time. If nothing unexpected happened, no one would fight with the Great Zhen for the 3 large weaves. Subduing the 3 large weaves might not take long. The most important thing was to merge the 3 weaves. Soon, the Great Zhen would be able to occupy the 4 borders in the world of the living. Everything returned to normal. Yin Chuan brought ZZ to the north of Xianyang City. This was a newly opened quiet place. When Yin Chuan's group arrived, guards immediately came forward to welcome them. Greetings, Holy King. The group of guards greeted respectfully. Yin Chuan nodded. He walked toward the center. In the center was a huge statue of Goddess Jichen. She was holding her hands together as if she was praying for something. Looking at Goddess Jichen's statue, Yin Chuan took a deep breath. For a moment he didn't know what to say. Greetings, Yama Emperor. Dog God, who had just arrived, said solemnly. From the first time he was saved by Yin Chuan until now, Yin Chuan had given Dog God too many surprises. Yin Chuan's strength was like a mystery in Dog God's eyes, which made Dog God take him seriously. There's a vein of the primordial dragon here. It's not a disgrace for Goddess Jichen to be buried here. Yin Chuan said. Yes, but unfortunately the goddess will never come back. Sigh. Dog God sighed. Dog God, what are your plans? Now that you have broken through to the ancestral immortal realm, there will be a wider world waiting for you. Are you going to stay here forever? Yin Chuan looked at Go Shen. Dog God's loyalty would not change even after 1,000,000 years. Yin Chuan still had a lot of respect for such a person. Dog God frowned and sighed. I haven't decided yet, but I would rather stay by Goddess Jichen's side. Yin Chuan nodded and said, sitting here makes your cultivation speed extremely slow. I'm here today because I hope that you can form an alliance with the Great Zhen Empire and become the national beast of the Great Zhen Empire. You can share the boundless fortune of the Great Zhen Empire with me. Yin Chuan looked at Dog God with sincerity. Dog God was taken aback and looked at Yin Chuan in surprise. After a moment of silence, he said, Thank you for your kindness, Yama Emperor. Ah, good. It's Great Zhen's honor that you are willing to choose. Yin Chuan said solemnly. Dog God nodded gratefully. Over the past few days, Dog God had seen how powerful Great Zhen was. Although he had just broken through to the ancestral immortal realm, there were still many people in Great Zhen who were stronger than him. Still, Dog God was touched that Yin Chuan valued him so highly. Since you have become Great Zhen's national beast, I'll give you this fate. Stay here and accompany Goddess Jichen. It will help you break through continuously. Yin Chuan handed over a jade box. This is? Dog God's expression changed. The moment he touched the jade box, Dog God felt a surge of energy of the same origin. Good use? Yin Chuan smiled. With that, Yin Chuan took ZZ and flew toward the palace. You're giving it to him just like that? ZZ asked worriedly. I believe in the character of a person who can persevere for 1,000,000 years just by guarding the tomb. Yin Chuan said with certainty. All right, as you wish. You're always right. ZZ smiled. How's Meow recently? Yin Chuan asked. It only knows how to sleep. It hasn't woken up yet. ZZ said. It's not that easy to comprehend hundreds of heavenly Tao. However, it's Meow, so it's a different story. Prepare more arowana. When it wakes up, it'll definitely want to eat it. Yin Chuan smiled. Got it? ZZ smiled. The two of them flew into the palace. Underworld, Myriad Ghost Domain. Outside the Great Qin City. At the peak of a mountain. At this moment, a purple-robed man was standing there. His face was fair and his eyes were filled with arrogance. Behind him stood 10 gray-robed subordinates, who were staring at the Yellow Springs Road in the distance. The Yellow Springs Road that connected heaven and earth. Great Zhen Holy Court? Yellow Springs Road? The purple-robed man narrowed his eyes. After a moment of silence, the purple-robed man shot toward the Yellow Springs Road. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, he was not far away from the Yellow Springs Road. Stop right there. A sudden shout came from the Yellow Springs Road. The sound wave carried a scorching aura as it charged toward the purple-robed man. Boom. The void shook slightly, and the purple-robed man's expression changed as he stopped. Whoosh! The golden-robed Jin Dayu suddenly stood in front of the purple-robed man. You're the great Jin Holy Court's Third Army Commander, Jin Dayu? The purple-robed man sized Jin Dayu up. Jin Dayu's expression was cold as he said, I don't care who you are. If you want to enter the Yellow Springs Road, you have to get the Sage Ruler's permission. Ah, Yanchuan's permission? The purple-robed man showed a trace of disdain. Jin Dayu narrowed his eyes and said, Step back or I won't hold back. Ah, won't hold back? I'd like to see how you're going to hold back. Yellow Springs Road? I'll force my way through the Yellow Springs Road today. What can you do to me? The purple-robed man said arrogantly. As he spoke, the purple-robed man took a step forward. Clang. Suddenly, a loud bell rang. In the sky above Jin Dayu's head, a huge bell rang. The sound wave of the bell rushed toward the purple-robed man. Originally, the purple-robed man was rather disdainful. However, when the sound wave spread, there was an unstoppable aura. The purple-robed man's expression changed. He quickly took a step forward and merged with the heavenly Tao. Boom. Even though he merged with the heavenly Tao, the huge force of the sound wave still pushed the heavenly Tao back by more than 100 feet. The purple-robed man's subordinates cried out in pain. The gray-robed subordinates covered their ears and rolled in pain. Bastard, do you know who I am? The purple-robed man glared and roared. Jin Dayu said coldly, I don't care who you are. The two of them instantly confronted each other. The bell also notified the experts of the Great Qin City. In the Great Qin City, zombie Yan Chuan was in the middle of a court meeting. Suddenly the bell rang. He immediately knew that something had happened. His face was gloomy as he led the officials out of the central palace. In the plaza in front of the central palace, zombie Yan Chuan coldly looked at the Yellow Springs Road. Jin Dayu was blocking a purple-robed ancestral immortal. Where did this guy come from? Just as Yan Chuan was puzzled among the officials, Qiliang Hua's expression changed. Reporting to the Holy King, this person is called Heavenly Lord Huatian. He's from the same clan as me. Qiliang Hua immediately said respectfully. Yan Chuan's expression softened. I came to contact him? Qiliang Hua said. Yan Chuan nodded. Qiliang Hua immediately looked at Director Yuan and shouted, Heavenly Lord Huatian. In the distance, Heavenly Lord Huatian, who was confronting Jin Dayu, raised his eyebrows and looked at Qiliang Hua in front of the central palace. He then looked at Yan Chuan. Qiliang Hua, you are indeed here. Heavenly Lord Huatian revealed a trace of mockery. Qiliang Hua raised his eyebrows and said, Heavenly Lord Huatian, the old ancestor said that each of us has our own fate. No one can interfere with each other. You want to destroy my fate? Your fate? Qiliang Hua, your fate? What a fate. In front of the old ancestor, you are so arrogant because of the old ancestor's favor. We have always been wondering what your fate will be. Will you be a subject of the heavenly court? Will you open your own heavenly court? Or will you open your own dojo? We have thought a lot, but we never thought that you would actually become a subject of the holy court. A subject of the holy court, Qiliang Hua, so your ambition is only this little? Heavenly Lord Huatian laughed. Qiliang Hua's face was cold. My matters are not for you to care. Heavenly Lord Huatian, if there is nothing else, please leave. Heavenly Lord Huatian revealed a trace of a sneer. I didn't want to come here, but the old ancestor said that I had no choice but to come. It's just that when I see your appearance it really hurts my heart, Heavenly Lord Huatian said with a relieved smile. Qiliang Hua looked at him coldly and said, The old ancestor said? What did he say? The old ancestor's birthday is coming soon. He asked me to call you back. At the same time he asked me to give you, the master, an invitation. Heavenly Lord Huatian said with a smile. As he spoke, he threw out a green invitation. The invitation flew straight at Yan Chuan. Yan Chuan reached out and caught it. The invitation fell into his hand. Yan Chuan coldly looked at Heavenly Lord Huatian, then gently opened it. When he opened it, a vast aura suddenly rushed out. Great Sage King Yan Chuan, I am indebted to you for taking care of my Hui son Qiliang. Living together in the eastern continent of the underworld, I have been friends with Yan Di for a long time. Next year, on the 5th of May, my 1,500,000th birthday, I specially invite Yen Di to come to my border for a meeting. Hua Mao welcomed it with open arms. Heavenly Lord Huatian. Pa? Yen Chuan closed the invitation. Sage Heavenly Lord Huatian? Zombie Yen Chuan raised his eyebrows and thought for a moment. Chiliang Hua respectfully said, Sage King, this is my old ancestor. He wants to invite you to a banquet. What does the Sage King think? With a slight smile, Yen Chuan said, Since the sage invited me, I will naturally take a look at the sage of this world. After speaking, Yen Chuan looked at Heavenly Lord Huatian in the distance and said, Go back and tell him that I will go. To Heavenly Lord Huatian, Yen Chuan was not polite. With one sentence, Heavenly Lord Huatian was annoyed. Go back and tell him? What kind of tone is this? Am I your servant? Chapter 1185. Go back and pass on the message? Am I your servant? Huatian Lord's eyes widened, then he sneered, Good. Dezhen Yen Chuan? Other than the old ancestor, you are the first one who dares to talk to me like this. Little Dezhen, who do you think you are? Lord Huatian angrily vented his strong dissatisfaction. However, Yen Chuan didn't listen to his complaints. He turned around and led the officials back to the central hall. Huatian Jun, who was halfway through his scolding, suddenly stopped and his face stiffened. Was he completely ignored? Completely. After Yen Chuan gave his orders, he ignored him? Left. Do you have any manners? Huatian Lord roared in his heart. Huatian Lord's face flushed red. Yen Chuan is humiliating me, he is humiliating me. This was the first time Huatian Lord was ignored like this. Although Yen Chuan didn't say a word, it was more ruthless than anything. I don't even want to talk to you. Huatian Lord, that little bitch, how did she find such a strange and arrogant master? Doesn't she know that I am an ancestor immortal? Roar. Huatian Lord panicked. Yen Chuan stepped into the main hall. Huatian Lord entered after Huatian Lord, who was in the distance. Huatian Lord, you should go back and report to the old ancestor. Huatian Lord said indifferently. After speaking, Huatian Lord also stepped into the main hall. After going through the world's examination, Huatian Lord's understanding of Dezhen increased by another level. However, this level was enough for Yen Chuan to put on airs. Moreover, Desolation Hua also understood that the reason why Yen Chuan ignored Lord Huatian was to vent his anger for him. Huatian Lord, you bastard, you dare to humiliate me. Huatian Lord said hatefully. However, everyone had already returned to the central hall. Only Jin Dayu coldly looked at Huatian Lord. All right, stop shouting. You should leave. Jin Dayu said in a low voice. After being angered by Yen Chuan and Hua Wuliang, Lord Huatian had nowhere to vent his anger. At this moment, Jin Dayu's cold shout was like tar on fire. Bastard, today I want to enter the Yellow Springs Road. What can you do about it? Lord Huatian was immediately enraged. Jin Dayu suddenly smiled faintly and said, If you can defeat me, I naturally have nothing to say. Lord Huatian narrowed his eyes. Since you're willing, please. This place is close to the Great Qin City, so don't disturb the Holy King. Come with me. Jin Dayu said as he stepped forward. Huatian Jun had a belly full of anger. Entering the Yellow Springs Road was secondary, but what he wanted the most right now was to beat someone up. There was no need to provoke him at all. He stepped forward and followed Jin Dayu to the south, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Naturally, his subordinates quickly followed. South of the myriad ghost weave above a vast sea. As the heavenly Tao was established, an intense battle swept up torrential storms and tsunamis. Bell tolled everywhere, and only after 10 hours did everything stop. A golden light flew back to the myriad ghost weave. Not long after, they arrived at the Yellow Springs Road. At the Yellow Springs Road, Su Fu saw Jin Dayu return. General Jin, how was it? Su Fu asked with a smile. His ancestral immortal position must have been obtained because he had a good ancestor. His ancestral immortal position is definitely not empty. Jin Dayu said with a smile. No wonder the Holy King favored Hua Wuliang. He has pride but no pride. How can he be respected? Su Fu nodded and smiled. At this moment, above the myriad ghost weave's southern sea. Brr. Jin Dayu Yen Chuan roar. Angry roars swept up torrential waves. 10 subordinates stood not far away, trembling in fear. Lord Huatian's hair was disheveled and his face was bruised. Most of his clothes were tattered, and he looked battered and exhausted. Clearly Jin Dayu had taught him a lesson. Sullen. Lord Huatian's eyes were filled with sullenness and anger. Hua Wuliang, you bitch, just you wait. The old ancestor doesn't allow people of the same race to kill each other, but I can find someone. I'll go find the Zhou family. Yes, the Zhou family has always valued me. I want the Zhou family to avenge me. Roar. Lord Huatian roared. Let's go. Lord Huatian roared. A group of 11 people walked towards the west. Myriad Ghost Weave, Great Qin City, Central Palace. Hua Wuliang stepped out and said, Holy King, although this subject's old ancestor's birthday celebration will not be too high profile, the major forces around the Outer East continent may attend. Oh. The Netherworld has 6 continents, divided into the Outer East continent, Outer South continent, Outer West continent, and Outer North continent. There are also 2 continents that face each other, called the Inner North continent and the Inner South continent. The Zhou family of the Inner South continent should be invited, because the old ancestor and the Zhou family are quite close, Hua Wuliang explained. Among the officials, Yin Henshin's lips curled into a trace of hatred. Zhou family. Secondly, the Kong family of the Outer South continent may also be invited, Hua Wuliang explained. Kong family? Yen Chuan narrowed his eyes. Yes, the demon King Kong that Holy King faced in the sealed realm is from the Kong family. Hua Wuliang nodded. Yen Chuan nodded. As for the others, I'm not sure, Hua Wuliang said. After Hua Wuliang finished speaking, Yin Hentian suddenly stepped out from among the officials. Holy King. Yin Hentian shouted. Yen Chuan looked at Yin Hentian. The Holy King's territory, the revered heaven territory, is close to another territory, the Azure Heaven territory. I humbly request Holy King to accompany me and stay in the Azure Heaven territory for a while. Yin Hentian said with melancholy. The Azure Heaven territory? Yen Chuan's expression changed slightly. The Azure Heaven is already dead. Holy King's guess was right. The Azure Heaven of the past was called Mysterious. He was a powerful cultivator in this world and coincidentally obtained the recognition of the Heavenly Tao. He was promoted to the Heavenly Tao and controlled everything in this world. He was the Azure Heaven. The Azure Heaven territory was his training ground in the past. I would like to pay my respects to him and fulfill my wish, Yin Hentian said. Mysterious? Yen Chuan's expression changed. In the past, in the Inspiration territory, when old demon Baixia escaped, he had cursed the person who killed him. He seemed to be called Mysterious. Was it the Azure Heaven who killed old demon Baixia? Yin Hentian looked at Yen Chuan and thought for a while. He did not hide anything and said, Holy King, I am going to the Azure Heaven territory for a personal matter. It was something that the Azure Heaven asked my Yin family's ancestor to do. Yen Chuan nodded and said, Since that is the case, follow me. Yes. Thank you, Holy King. Yin Hentian said gratefully. Hua Wuliang looked at Yin Hentian with a slightly changed expression. Every time he mentioned his ancestor, Yin Hentian did not seem to have a good impression of him. Could it be because of the Zhou family? Hua Wuliang did not say anything and returned to the officials. Yen Chuan also gave some instructions on the matters of Great Shen. Then he left the Great Qin city. The dragon carriage pulled Yen Chuan, Gigu Zi, Hua Wuliang, and Yin Hentian towards the south. They were going to attend Sage Hua Zuentian's birthday celebration. At this moment, the only difference was that there were no longer 2 dragons pulling the dragon carriage. Instead, there were 3 dragons pulling the dragon carriage towards the south. Chapter 1186. Netherworld, Eastern Continent. Firmament Territory. Although heaven was already dead, heaven was still very important in the hearts of the people in the world. It controlled everything in the world. It represented everything in the world. It had protected the world for countless years. Thus, even though the worship of the heavens had been going on for 1,000,000 years, it had never stopped. After a few months, Yen Chuan's dragon carriage finally arrived at the border of Firmament Territory. Roar, roar, roar. 3 dragon roars were heard, and countless cultivators at the border of Firmament Territory looked over in shock. The 3,000-meter-long dragons charged over with an incomparably majestic aura. Dragon carriage? Where did that come from? Thousands of feet-long dragons? That's at least the level of an ancient immortal. 3 ancient immortals pulling a carriage? Are they from the Eastern Continent? Yen Chuan's dragon carriage drove into the Firmament Territory amidst countless discussions. On the balcony of the dragon carriage, Yen Chuan, Gui Guzi, Hua Qiliang, and Yin Hentian looked into the distance. Let's go to Heavenly Palace, Yin Hentian said. I know it. The 7 demons shouted immediately. The 7 demons knew it, so Yin Hentian did not need to say much. The dragon carriage was driving inside. At the same time, in a palace in firmament territory. Inside the palace there were two men standing there. One of them was covered in blood, and his face was as red as a sheet. Beneath his feet was a pool of blood. Wherever he went, this pool of blood followed, looking incomparably malevolent. The other man, if Yen Chuan was here, he would recognize him. He was the one who had targeted Yen Chuan twice and ended in tragedy. Elder, there are more and more experts gathering in Venerable Heaven territory. Also, I saw people from the Dugu family. Gong Yang Ben Lei said respectfully. The blood-faced man squinted his eyes and said, Dugu family? Haha, this birthday celebration is going to be exciting. Wasn't the Dugu family invited by Venerable Heaven? Gong Yang Ben Lei said in surprise. Of course not. The relationship between the Dugu family and the Huazuan Heaven is not good at all. Although the Dugu family is in the Yang realm's southern outer continent, the southern outer continent has the road to the Yellow Springs. Just you wait, there will be a good show when the time comes. The blood-faced man sneered. Since Elder has said so, then it must be so. Elder, this time, the punishment of the clan was averted because of Elder's intercession. Ben Lei thanks Elder. Gong Yang Ben Lei said respectfully. Punishment? You do need to punish me. Those two disciples of mine, Gong Yang Ben Hong and Gong Yang Ben Tian, were killed by me. In the end, they both died together with you. The blood-faced man said coldly. Gong Yang Ben Lei panicked and immediately shouted, Elder, it has nothing to do with me. It was Dongfang Bubi and Yen Chuan who killed them. I want to save them, but I'm not strong enough. The blood-faced man coldly looked at Gong Yang Ben Lei. He took a deep breath and said, Dongfang Bubi? You were lucky to be able to escape from him. As for Yen Chuan? Because I left in a hurry, I didn't take a look. How is his strength? Peak Ancient Immortal and has Qing Tian Dao. He is the one who fixed Qing Tian Dao. Gong Yang Ben Lei immediately said. Peak Ancient Immortal? Since that is the case, there is nothing to worry about. Qing Tian Dao? So what if it is? The blood-faced man said arrogantly. Of course, Elder is an ancestral immortal. Dealing with ancient immortals isn't easy? Gong Yang Ben Lei immediately smiled apologetically. Go back and find Yen Chuan. Right now, the most important thing is to find the Emperor, for me. We chased him all the way here, the Emperor is near these territories. Hua Wuli took out some fresh flowers and placed them outside the sacrificial altar. Then he bowed respectfully. As for Yin Hentian, he knelt down, a melancholy look flashing in his eyes. Heavens, the descendants of the Yin clan are here to pay respects again. Yin Hentian's eyes moistened. As Yin Hentian spoke, he knelt before the sacrificial altar. Countless people were paying respects in all directions. However, very few were kneeling. The two's worship did not cause much of a commotion. After all, there were too many people paying respects here. In the distance, Yen Chuan and Gui Guzi stood on the chariot. It has been 1,000,000 years, but there are still so many people paying respects. In the end, there are still many people in this world who are grateful. Yen Chuan said after taking a deep breath. Gui Guzi raised his eyebrows. What's wrong? Holy King, the surrounding mountains and rivers seem to have been moved by someone. Gui Guzi said doubtfully as he looked at the countless mountains and rivers outside the valley. The dragon vein there should have been moved less than 100 years ago. The dragon vein here should have been moved within 1,000 years. And there. Gui Guzi continued to count. This should be an empty training ground. Did someone pay a huge price to set up a feng shui array here? Yen Chuan said in a low voice. Holy King, I'm afraid it's not a feng shui array. Some feng shui masters have been moving the dragon vein here. Perhaps they are looking for something. Gui Guzi said after taking a deep breath. Moreover, this technique is from the Zhou clan. Gui Guzi added. The Zhou clan? What are they looking for? Yen Chuan's eyes narrowed. I'm not sure. Gui Guzi shook his head. Yen Chuan looked around, then turned to look at the Deva Palace in midair. As he looked at it, Yen Chuan raised his eyebrows, a look of surprise flashing in his eyes. What? Did you find what the Zhou clan is looking for? Gui Guzi asked in surprise. That's too fast. No, it shouldn't be what the Zhou clan is looking for, but it is what I am looking for. Yen Chuan said in surprise. Without waiting for Gui Guzi's reply, Yen Chuan extended his palm and struck the Deva Palace. A cyan energy palm struck the Deva Palace. The experts in the surroundings all had their mouths wide open. What's going on? Who has the guts to do that? Who dares to attack the object of worship? Boom. The door of the Deva Palace was slammed open by Yen Chuan's palm. The experts who were originally reciting their respective eulogies all stopped abruptly. Countless experts who were silently mourning and kneeling on the ground stiffened. Even Yin Hentian and Hua Qiliang were stunned. The Deva Palace floating on the altar was the former Dao Palace of Firmament. In everyone's eyes, the Deva Palace was Firmament's tomb. Did he just dig up Firmament's tomb in front of everyone? The 7 demons, Dragon Fifth, and Torvosaurus also looked into the distance with their mouths agape. What is Yen Chuan doing? Bastard, what are you doing? Destroying the Deva Palace and insulting Firmament. Are you trying to make the whole world your enemy? Kill him and pay tribute to Firmament. Countless experts cried out in surprise. Yen Chuan ignored them and looked at the door of the Deva Palace that he had opened. Inside the Celestial Palace it was empty. There was nothing, but there was a huge coffin. My world-suppressing coffin. Yen Chuan's eyes lit up. Oh, it's the sky-burying coffin. The 7 demons exclaimed. The 7 demons knew that Yen Chuan had the same coffin. There's one here too? News of this place quickly spread in all directions. In a valley not far from the Deva Palace. There were many palaces in the valley. Not good, ancestor. Someone broke into the Deva Palace. A cultivator rushed into the valley and shouted. What? Who dares to do that? Are they trying to steal the sky-burying coffin that the Zhou family put in? Haha, from the moment the Zhou family put it in, the sky-burying coffin represented Firmament's corpse coffin. Who dares to touch it? Even a sage wouldn't dare to touch it. Countless men in green robes walked out of the palaces. In the largest palace, 2 people walked out. One of them was a green-haired man with a cold face. Beside him was Lord Huatian, who had been beaten up by Jin Diyu not long ago. Brother Zhou, the Zhou family has been guarding this place for 1,000,000 years. Who dares to destroy it today? Haha, let's go and see who dares to do that. Lord Huatian laughed. Chapter 1187. The gates of the heavenly human palace opened wide. The experts around the altar were furious as they glared at the dragon chariot. Bastards, do you think you can blaspheme the heavens? A white-robed old man's eyes flashed with anger. He threw a punch at the dragon chariot. Gui Guzi waved his hand. A yellow dragon-shaped energy emerged from the ground and collided with the energy fist. Boom. The yellow dragon shattered the energy fist. Roar. The yellow dragon roared. The dragon vein? The white-robed old man raised his eyebrows. The white-robed old man was not the only one. Many experts surrounded the chariot. A large number of energy fists, energy swords and energy sabers shot toward the dragon chariot. Gui Guzi waved his hand again. The ground churned again. Roar. 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 For a time, hundreds of dragon-shaped energy beams shot out from the ground and bombarded the chariot. Gui Guzi controlled the dragon vein to defend against the attacks. Yen Chuan looked at the heaven-burying coffin in the heavenly human palace. He waved his hand and the heaven-burying coffin slowly flew up. Bastard. The experts around him were furious. However, none of them were peerless experts. Under Gui Guzi's defense, there was no way he could stop Yen Chuan's movements. The heaven-burying coffin flew out of the heavenly human palace and toward Yen Chuan. The experts were anxious. The 7 Banes, Dragon Fifth, and Torvosaurus did not know what to say. Yin Hentian and Qiliang Hua also looked at this scene in confusion, but they did not stop him. Stop. Suddenly a loud shout rang out. Boom. A powerful aura pressed down on the dragon chariot. Yen Chuan raised his eyebrows, but he ignored it and continued to grab. Boom. Yen Chuan grabbed the heaven-burying coffin. I told you to stop. Didn't you hear me? The angry shout rang out again. Streaks of sword chi charged towards the earth dragon vein. Rumble. A strong wind blew around the dragon chariot, sending sand and rocks flying. This was the aura of an ancestral immortal. It was extremely violent. Countless experts immediately looked over. Hundreds of azure-robed men stood in midair. Of the 2 people in the lead, one had green hair, the other wore purple robes. The person who shouted was the green-haired man. The green-haired man looked coldly at the dragon carriage. Haha, so it's you guys. Wah desolation, you've got guts. I wonder what the old ancestor will say after you report this to him. Rob the heavenly corpse coffin? The purple-robed heaven-transforming monarch sneered. Brother Hua, do you know them? The blue-haired man frowned. Brother Zhui, this daring person who stole the sky corpse coffin is the Yen Chuan I told you about. Lord Huatian said in a deep voice. Yen Chuan? Are you Yen Chuan? My nephew Zhui Tianhun died at your hands in the myriad ghost weave? The green-haired man asked with a glare. And who are you? Yen Chuan asked indifferently. At this moment, Yan Chuan did not panic in the slightest. He was still as calm as ever. This is the Zhua clan's ancestral immortal, Zhua Qing. Yan Chuan, you've got guts. You even dare to steal the Sky Corp's coffin? Do you want to become enemies with the entire world? Lord Huatian sneered. The Sky Corp's coffin? What a big hat. Who said it was the Sky Corp's coffin? What proof do you have? Yan Chuan smiled. I am the proof. Zhua Qing angrily rebuked. Oh. Yan Chuan narrowed his eyes. My Zhua clan found this coffin 10,000 years ago and placed it inside. It's called the Sky Burying Coffin. Zhua Qing said coldly. Haha, the Sky Corp's coffin fell 1,000,000 years ago. You placed it 10,000 years ago, yet you say it's the Sky Corp's coffin? Are you stupid, or do you think everyone in the world is stupid? Yan Chuan said coldly. After Yan Chuan finished speaking, the people who had been targeting Yan Chuan fell into deep thought. But even more people were glaring at Yan Chuan. Haha, if I say it's the Sky Corp's coffin, then it is. During the ancient calamity, the Sky Corp's coffin fell and was buried in the Sky Burying Coffin. That's why this coffin is called the Sky Burying Coffin. Zhua Qing said coldly. What else? Yan Chuan said indifferently. What else? Zhua Qing asked. Not far away, Desolation Flower immediately said, Zhua Qing, are you trying to change the topic? The Sky Burying Coffin from back then was not this one. Desolation Flower's words caused more people to frown. So what? The Sky Burying Coffin turned into 9 and this is one of them. That's enough. The Sky Corp's coffin disappeared, but it must be inside. The Zhua clan has already tried their best to find one. This is the Sky Corp's coffin. Zhua Qing shouted. Are you there? Yan Chuan said indifferently. Bang. The lid of the Sky Burying Coffin suddenly opened. How dare you? Shocked and angry voices came from all around. However, after opening the coffin lid, everyone was slightly stunned because the coffin was empty. Zhua clan, haha, an empty coffin and you call it the Sky Corp's coffin. How shameless are you? I think the coffin here is fake. Doing unrighteous things is the real thing. Yan Chuan shouted coldly. Unrighteous things? The expressions of countless cultivators changed. What was going on? The Zhua clan had been guarding the tomb conscientiously and even found the Sky Corp's coffin 10,000 years ago. How did it become unrighteous things? Many people did not believe Yan Chuan, but some people kept quiet. They waited and watched. Unrighteous things? My Zhua clan has guarded the tomb for 1,000,000 years. Everything we have done here is worthy of heaven and earth, worthy of the people, worthy of the dead sky. How can we tolerate slander? Zhua Qing glared. Most of the surrounding people stood on the Zhua clan's side. Anxiety flashed in Hua Wuling's eyes. Digging up Sky's tomb was challenging the bottom line of all the experts in the world. If they were not careful, they would become enemies with the entire world. Hua Wuling was anxious. However, Zhua Qing was not in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he wanted to force Yan Chuan to death on the basis of righteousness. There was no need for him to do anything. At that time, the entire world would find trouble with Yan Chuan. Just at this moment, Yin Hentian, who was kneeling on the ground, stood up. He smiled coldly and said, Slander, you are the one slandering. Yin Hentian shouted coldly, and the surrounding people immediately revealed curious expressions. Who are you? Zhua Qing asked coldly. Who am I? Who am I? 1,000,000 years ago, when Sky was still here, no one dared to ask my clan members such a question. Today, 1,000,000 years later, no one knows me. Zhua Qing, I am Yin Hentian. Yin Hentian said coldly. Yin Hentian? Zhua Qing and Lord Huatian were confused. The surrounding cultivators also looked at Yin Hentian in confusion. Yin Hentian smiled coldly and said, You have chased after my Yin clan for 1,000,000 years. Zhua Qing, do you really not know? Yin clan? Zhua Qing's pupils suddenly constricted. The expressions of the surrounding experts changed. Yin clan's remnant evil? The main culprit that caused Sky to fall? Zhua Qing suddenly shouted. Shut up. My Yin clan is indebted to Sky. We speak for Sky, organize the world and issue orders to the world. We have never betrayed Sky. When Sky fell, the servants betrayed us, causing the Yin clan to be chased by the world. You are a group of vile people who betray their masters. Yin Hentian suddenly said hatefully. Who is a vile person? You are not allowed to speak nonsense. Thinking about it, my nephew died because of you. Today I will represent Sky and destroy you, Yin clan's remnant evil. Zhua Qing shouted. Zhua Qing stretched out his hand and attacked Yin Hentian. Gui Guzi's figure flashed, and he suddenly appeared before Yin Hentian. Then he raised his palm to meet the sky. Boom. The fist and palm collided, and the void trembled violently. A storm raged, and many cultivators were immediately thrown to the ground. Why are you in such a hurry to make a move when you haven't said anything clearly? Could it be that your Zhou clan is really guilty? You want to silence us? Gui Guzi laughed. Not far away, Hua Qiliang revealed a trace of surprise. He had never seen Gui Guzi fight before, but he was actually able to casually block Zhou Qing's punch. Beside him, Lord Huatian narrowed his eyes. Great Jin? This was the second ancestral immortal that Lord Huatian had seen. Why was there no description of this in the previous information? Lord Huatian looked at Hua Qiliang strangely. What did this little bitch know that made her join Great Zhen? The restlessness of the surrounding experts suddenly calmed down. Although many people were still glaring at Yan Chuan, more people wanted to see what was going on. Perhaps the cultivation of the surrounding experts was not high. Of course, there might be experts with high cultivation who did not make a move. However, the surrounding experts came from all over the world, at least from all over the outer eastern continent. The matter today would definitely spread throughout the entire outer eastern continent. Guilty? It's impossible for you to protect the remnants of the Yin clan. No one in the world can tolerate them. Zhou Qing said coldly. Gui Guzi was not angry. Instead, he said indifferently, the Zhou clan's heaven-burying coffin attracted the attention of others, making them think that your Zhou clan is a clan that respects the heavens the most. Therefore, the Zhou clan will not be criticized by others for moving the mountains, rivers, and lands. Now, you can avoid the gazes of others and search for what you want, right? What? There were already Xiuzha in the surroundings who were shocked. Indeed, the Zhou clan had moved the dragon veins around these years. However, no one paid much attention to it, thinking that the Zhou clan might have done it out of respect for the heavens. But, what a joke. Zhou Qing's eyes shrunk, but she still scolded Gui Guzi. Behind Gui Guzi, Yin Hentian laughed coldly. Is it a joke? It's not a joke at all. Back then, the Zhou clan was only a servant of my Yin clan. Although they heard some words, they were just words. How can you find what is hidden here? Other than the heavens and my Yin clan, no one knows. Know what? What are we looking for? Zhou Qing was still stubborn. As for Huatian Lord and Hua Qiliang, they were confused. What was it? Was there something here? Yin Hentian laughed coldly. Keep pretending. My Yin clan was deceived by your face back then. This is also the reason why I am here today. Entrusted by the heavens, I have waited 1,000,000 years for the disciples of my Yin clan to return to the Heaven Human Palace. I'm going to expose your hypocrisy in front of everyone. Yin Hentian scolded. Those who were originally on Zhou Qing's side started to waver. I don't know what you are talking about, Zhou Qing said in a low voice. Yin Hentian smiled. It's okay. You will see it soon. However, you might be disappointed. The thing that your Zhou clan has been waiting for 1,000,000 years for is not what you think it is. Zhou Qing squinted her eyes. Countless experts in the surroundings revealed curious looks. As for Yin Hentian, he flung his robe and stepped onto the altar. Some of the cultivators wanted to stop him, but after thinking about it, they held themselves back. The Yin clan, the Zhou clan? Many people had heard of them, but they knew too little. 1,000,000 years had passed. Who knew what had happened back then? The powerful Zhou clan was originally a servant of the Yin clan? This news was enough to shock many people. Hua Qiliang and Huatian Lord were curious. At this moment, Zhou Qing did not stop them. The Zhou clan had heard that there was something extremely important left behind by the heavens. However, they had searched for 1,000,000 years and found nothing. 10,000 years ago, they had paid a huge price and used the sky-burying coffin to stir up the sorrow of the world's experts. They had secretly moved mountains and dug tens of thousands of miles to search, but they still found nothing. The Yin clan? The remnants of the Yin clan knew about it? Zhou Qing waited for Yin Hentian to find it. Zhou Qing was not worried that this group of people would snatch it and run away. At least they knew about the myriad ghost domain. Moreover, the Zhou clan had some people in the neighboring domain. If they could find the thing left behind by the heavens, it would not be difficult to take it back. Moreover, the Zhou clan had a strong backing. Yin Hentian stood on the altar and looked at the Heaven Human Palace. Mr. Gui Guzi, please help me. Yin Hentian said. Please guide the Tianfu, Tianliang, Tianji, Tiantong, Tianxiang, 7 Kill, and Southern Meteor to the Heaven Human Palace. Yin Hentian said. Astral power? Zhou Qing's expression changed. The Zhou clan had thought of many methods, but they had never thought of astral power. No, they might have thought of it, but they did not put it into action. After all, the stars were too far away. Moreover, they needed a few specific stars. How could they guess? Gui Guzi nodded. Astral power? In the past, when he was immortal, he could use astral power to increase his strength. However, there was no need for that now because the power of the path of heaven was many times greater than that of astral power. Gui Guzi was indeed a feng shui master. He reached out his hand and waved at the sky. The 6 stars in the starry sky that could be seen with the naked eye seemed to light up in an instant. Buzz. 6 beams of light shot straight down into the Deva Palace in an instant. The heaven-human palace turned from white to emerald green in an instant. Then the emerald green light rushed to the altar below Inhentian. Buzz. The altar also turned emerald green in an instant. Inhentian cast a spell in his hands. Suddenly, some of the runes on the altar started to move. In the green light, they floated upwards. About 100,000 runes floated in mid-air. They floated in the air and slowly rotated into a ball. They rotated slowly and densely. Everyone looked at this scene in surprise. This thing is not underground or in the heaven-human palace, but in the air? Zuoqing muttered to herself with a pale face. How could they find it if it was hidden in the air? Boom! Countless runes exploded with a loud bang. Then a crack seemed to appear in the void. From the crack, 13 colors of light shone out. It was extremely beautiful. Crack, 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 crack. The crack grew bigger and bigger. It was as if a cocoon was about to break open. Inhentian bowed at the crack and said, "Butterfly Queen, the firmament has told the Yin clan that if the firmament falls, the Yin clan will let you out. The Yin clan has declined and can only return here after 1,000,000 years. Butterfly Queen, you are about to come out." Butterfly Queen? Countless experts in the surroundings revealed confused looks. Desolation Hua and Lord Huatian looked at this scene in surprise. Zuoqing's face changed. Butterfly Queen? Crack, 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 crack. The crack in the void grew bigger and bigger. Just as the cocoon was about to break open. It smells so good. What is this smell? Yeah, what is this strange smell? A large number of cultivators were confused. At this moment, the butterflies in the firmament territory suddenly stopped. They stopped collecting honey, drinking water, flying and sleeping. Instead, they flew toward the heaven-human palace as if they had been summoned. Not only in the firmament territory, but in the entire outer east continent, as long as there were butterflies, whether they were living butterflies or hell butterflies, all of them were summoned. As time passed, the countless butterflies in the netherworld and the mortal realm began to tremble as they flew higher and higher into the air. They all flew into the people's sight. At this moment, it was as if all the butterflies in the world had appeared. It was as if there was a rain of butterflies in all directions, dancing endlessly in the air. Chapter 1188. Yang Realm, North Outer Continent. Tong Tian stepped out of the roaming jade palace and looked at the surroundings. Countless butterflies danced in the sky as if they were extremely happy. Some butterflies even flew in front of Tong Tian. Tong Tian stretched out his finger and allowed the butterflies to land. The butterfly race is enlightened and is responding to the heavens and earth? It seems like a powerful being has appeared in the butterfly race. Tong Tian looked at the countless butterflies and sighed. In the West Outer Continent, Wu Jiong looked at the countless butterflies flying into the imperial city with a serious expression. In the Northeast Outer Continent, Dongfang Bubi looked at the butterflies in confusion. Old Demon Baixia walked out of a hall and looked at the butterflies. Suddenly he raised his eyebrows. Butterfly Queen? She has appeared as well? Netherworld. Firmament territory. Under the Deva Palace. Countless cultivators were staring at the crack in the void as if a giant void cocoon was breaking open. Crack, crack, crack. Boom. The giant cocoon in the void exploded with a loud bang. Endless 13-colored light quickly lit up the heavens and earth. Everyone suddenly realized that the place they were standing on had undergone an earth-shattering change. Other than the altar and the Deva Palace, the original mountains and rivers had all disappeared and turned into a grassland. On the grassland, countless butterflies danced and a strange fragrance lingered. At the center there were 2 pairs of huge blue wings. Whoosh! The blue wings spread out, revealing a woman in a gorgeous blue silk robe. The woman's hair was tied up, revealing her beautiful white neck and exquisite face. It was as if all the beauty in the world had gathered into one. The woman was extremely beautiful. As she stepped on the void, she was incomparably holy. For a moment, many cultivators were mesmerized. The woman hugged the 2 pairs of huge blue butterfly wings behind her. At this moment, many cultivators were immersed in the woman's gentle beauty. Not only the male cultivators, but even the female cultivators were mesmerized. Many people were confused. There was such a perfect woman in the world? Many people were mesmerized, but some quickly sobered up. Yin Chuan's eyes narrowed. An illusion? Gigu Zi also nodded. Holy King, this butterfly queen's cultivation is not to be underestimated. The woman slowly opened her eyes. Her blue pupils were like a deep pool of water. For a moment, countless cultivators were attracted to her. Even Lord Huatian and Zhuqing were looking at the woman with infatuation and yearning. The current head of the Yin family, Yin Hentian, congratulates the butterfly empress on escaping. Yin Hentian said solemnly. The butterfly queen opened her eyes and looked around before looking at Yin Hentian. Yin family? The butterfly empress frowned slightly, but her voice was extremely soft. Many Xiozhou were mesmerized once again. Zhua family's Zhuqing greets the butterfly empress. Zhuqing immediately said. Hua clan's heaven-transforming monarch greets butterfly empress. Heaven-transforming monarch hurriedly said. The butterfly queen looked at the two of them but ignored them. Instead it looked at the sky. A blue light flashed in his eyes. Heaven and earth are incomplete? Where's the mystery? Butterfly queen asked calmly. The heavens are dead. They have been dead for 1,000,000 years. Yin Hentian smiled bitterly. The butterfly queen's emotions weren't greatly affected. Instead, she nodded gently. Raising its head, the butterfly queen continued to look at the sky. Countless butterflies flew over from all directions and surrounded the butterfly queen as if they were worshipping her. Boom. Suddenly, a white light descended from the sky. The white light rushed in and shattered half of the plain illusion, revealing countless mountains and rivers. The white light illuminated half of the world. The other half of the world was still under the butterfly queen's control. Wherever the white light shone on, countless intoxicated cultivators suddenly woke up with a start. Within the white light, there was a white-clothed man. The man's face was blurry, and his face couldn't be seen clearly. However, he emitted an aura that made people want to worship him. Old Ancestor. Hua Qiliang's face lit up with joy. Old Ancestor. Heaven-transforming monarch also woke up and bowed respectfully to the white-clothed figure. Zhuqing's previous intoxication also woke up. A trace of shock flashed across his eyes. He was an ancestral immortal. How could he be intoxicated? If he was like this in battle, he would have died countless times. Many thanks, Sage. Zhuqing said solemnly. Sage projection. Gui Guzi said. Supremacy transforming heaven? Yin Chuan's expression turned serious. The butterfly queen looked at the sky and sighed. Then she looked at the sage projection in front of her. I am supremacy transforming heaven. You are? Transforming heaven asked softly. Sage? Since heaven is dead, the sages of this world must have withered as well. How many sages are left in this world? The butterfly queen asked gently. Transforming heaven didn't put on the airs of a sage. Instead, he replied, including me, there are 6 people who hold the qi cultivation position. 4 sages and 2 celestial emperors. After the great calamity of the ancient times, there was nothing left. It took 1,000,000 years to reach today. This calamity is indeed huge. The heavenly Tao has collapsed so much. Heaven is broken like this. Mysterious, you have failed in your duty. The butterfly queen looked at the sky and sighed. When transforming heaven heard the butterfly queen's words, he fell silent. Scolding heaven? What was this woman's background? The butterfly queen suddenly stretched out her pure white right palm. Blue light gushed out from her eyes and entered her palm. Suddenly, countless blue rings of light danced in his palm. The rings of light spun rapidly as if they were following a certain pattern. Gradually they spun into 7 miniature pillars. Rumble. Wind and clouds suddenly surged in all directions. For a moment the world trembled. In the void in front of the butterfly queen, there were 7 blue pillars that connected heaven and earth. They were the heavenly Tao. The 7 heavenly Tao were extremely damaged, but they were constantly being repaired. Mending the heavens? Yin Chuan's expression froze. This was the same as Yin Chuan's heaven-devouring Tao scripture. Mending the heavens? And it was mending 7 heavenly Tao at the same time. The 7 heavenly Tao quickly recovered. Half an hour later. Rumble. Heaven and earth rumbled. Multicolored light shot in all directions. Everywhere in the world, auspicious clouds rushed into the sky and illuminated the earth. A grand aura spread out in all directions. The butterfly queen clenched her fist. She looked at the 7 heavenly Tao that connected heaven and earth. Rumble. Great merit of heaven and earth surged towards the butterfly queen. You have mended another 7 heavenly Tao. Your merit is immeasurable. You are a great benefactor to the world. Transforming Heaven exclaimed. These are the heavenly Tao that I originally had. Mending them is not difficult. However, I don't know when I will be able to complete the remaining 100 heavenly Tao. The Butterfly Queen shook her head. 7 heavenly Tao that are all great calamities? Transforming Heaven suddenly said in surprise. That's right. I believe that now you know who I am, right? The Butterfly Queen suddenly smiled. This smile was devastatingly beautiful. The countless cultivators who were originally awake were once again intoxicated by this smile. Misfortune Goddess? The ancient Misfortune Goddess? Transforming Heaven immediately said in surprise. My eyes are called ominous calamity eyes. The Butterfly Queen smiled slightly. With a smile, a dazzling blue light suddenly emitted from her eyes. Boom! The blue light instantly shone in all directions. The world was filled with blue light. When Transforming Heaven saw the blue light pouncing over, he immediately retracted the white light and his projection rushed into the starry sky. Misfortune Goddess, since you have come into being, I will not disturb you anymore. We will meet again if fate allows. Leaving behind a sentence, the saint's projection disappeared. It was as if he did not want to be tainted by this light. And the blue light shone on the surrounding people. When Yan Chuan saw the blue light rushing over, he seemed to have thought of something. With a wave of his hand, the heaven-burying coffin quickly grew larger. The heaven-burying coffin quickly covered the dragon carriage and the 4 of them. Countless cultivators were confused. Some blocked it, but the blue light seemed to be able to penetrate most of the defenses and entered everyone's body in the blink of an eye. Zuoqing's expression changed, but after checking her body, there was nothing wrong. I'm fine? It's just a ray of blue light, there's no reaction? Transforming Heaven Lord also touched his body. But there was no change at all. What was the use of this blue light? The Butterfly Queen looked around and stepped into the sky. With a flap of her wings, she disappeared in the blink of an eye. Countless butterflies fluttered in the air, feeling lost. Countless cultivators were at a loss. Many people were still in a state of shock. Saint King, the Butterfly Queen's personality is like a heavenly steed soaring across the sky, unpredictable. Our family has records that the Butterfly Queen does as she pleases and does many things without a specific reason. The ominous light just now, hee. Yin Hentian said with a bitter smile. That's too casual. Gui Guzi's face revealed a trace of strangeness. Ominous light? Does this ominous light harm the body? Transforming Desolation immediately asked. It doesn't harm the body, but it's more terrifying than harm. Yin Hentian said strangely. Oh. Those who are illuminated by the blue light will be unlucky for a year. Yin Hentian explained. Transforming Desolation was at a loss. Yan Chuan thought for a while and said, it's similar to ZZ but it's also different. ZZ has the yellow spring fate which is passive. But the ominous light just now is active, it can change a person's fate. It can destroy a person's fate similar to a curse. As long as the blue light enters the body, everything will go wrong. Everything will go wrong? Transforming Desolation asked with a trace of curiosity. Alright, Yan Chuan, the Butterfly Queen has left. Now hand over the Heaven Corpse coffin. Zuoqing suddenly shouted with a heavy expression. Yan Chuan smiled and said, Heaven Corpse coffin? Zuoqing, you really have the face to say that. Yin Hentian released the Butterfly Queen, but so what? What can it prove? My Zhuo family's actions are worthy of the heavens and earth, worthy of the heavens. Moving the surrounding mountains and rivers is a thing of the past. My Zhuo family only made the heaven's tomb more spacious, making it more convenient for cultivators to worship. Moreover, my Zhuo family has not moved the surrounding mountains and rivers for a long time. Zuoqing shouted. Just as Zuoqing finished speaking, a mountain not far away suddenly trembled. Rumble. The mountain trembled for a while, immediately attracting the attention of many cultivators. Suddenly, a voice came from within the mountain. Is there anyone from the Zhuo family? Quickly save me, I'm stuck. Jiaohu's voice came from within the mountain. Zuoqing? All the Zhuo family disciples' faces darkened. Zuoming, Zuogao, quickly find someone to save me, I'm stuck, there are 2 pangolins biting me, quickly. The voice continued to come from within the mountain. Zuoqing's face also darkened. Good, it's a thing of the past, ha. Yan Chuan laughed. Chapter 1189. South of the Heavenly Human Palace. Ah, little brats, let's see where you can run to. An arrogant voice rang out. Junior sister, let's go. Eldest senior brother, I'm not leaving. If everyone else isn't leaving, I'm not leaving either. Old demon, my master isn't here. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so arrogant. A series of angry roars rang out. A blood-red heavenly Tao connected the heavens and the earth. Below the heavenly Tao was a vast sea of blood. The sea of blood spun wildly around the heavenly Tao. It was similar to Yen Chuan's super divine ability. However, it did not have the vicious aura of Yen Chuan's sea of blood. It also did not have the blood god's sun churning in the sea. It was just a sea of blood. Even so, it was filled with vicious aura. The one standing in the middle of the heavenly Tao was the elder of the Gongyang family. The elder controlled the sea of blood. Waves of blood turned into ferocious beasts that pounced on the 5 men and women. The 5 men and women each held a long saber. Under the long sabers, the energy sabers were extremely ferocious. However, the difference in strength was too great. At this moment, they were like trapped beasts. The 5 of them were ruthlessly suppressed. Outside the sea of blood, Gongyang Benlei and the other Gongyang family members looked into the distance in shock. 2 great immortals and 3 ancient immortals? Are the Emperor's disciples all so terrifying? It's only been 4,000 years, 4,000 years. Gongyang Benlei exclaimed. Little brats, where's the Emperor? Where's that little girl? The elder controlled the sea of blood to attack the 5 of them. The leader of the group had a ruthless expression on his face. Old demon, you want to find my master? If my master wants to kill you, it'll be as easy as slaughtering a pig. The blood-robed elder narrowed his eyes. A bunch of reckless fools. It seems that if I don't kill 1 or 2 of you, you won't be obedient. As he spoke, the blood-robed elder was about to attack. Suddenly, a 13-colored light shot into the sky from the north. The blood-robed elder's expression changed. At this moment, countless butterflies suddenly flew around the sea of blood. What's going on? Gongyang Benlei was shocked. The elder also looked at the sky in shock. Elder. With the elder's eyesight, he could see countless butterflies even though they were far away. What happened to the celestial palace? The elder's face sank. In the distance, the direction of the Deva palace became hazy. A powerful aura was faintly discernible. This aura caused the heart of the blood-robed elder to tremble. Just as the blood-robed elder was in shock, boom. In the north, a beam of white light descended from the sky. A holy aura was emitted. Say, Huazun Tian also came. Did something big happen in the Deva palace? The blood-robed elder said solemnly. Just as the scarlet-robed elder turned extremely grave, 5 cultivators gathered above the scarlet sea. One of the men took out a jade talisman. Sealed within this talisman is a strand of Master's saber intent. I will release it and break through the sea of blood. Let's escape immediately. The man said in a deep voice. All right. The man clenched his fist and suddenly released it toward the heavenly Tao. Boom. Suddenly, a 10,000-meter-long astral blade broke through the sky. The 10,000-meter-long astral blade carried with it an unstoppable force. As soon as the astral blade appeared, an endless storm of saber chi condensed in the surroundings. Together with the astral blade, it shot straight towards the heavenly way. The elder's expression changed. Bastard. Boom. The astral blade collided with the heavenly way, and the void shook violently. As the void shook, a hole appeared in the sea of blood. Let's go. The leader shouted. Whoosh. The 5 of them quickly shot towards the north. The surroundings suddenly became quiet. Only the cracking sound of Zhuqing's fists could be heard. Obviously, things were not going well and he was in an extremely bad mood. Is there anyone from the Zhou family? I'm stuck. Someone come and save me. Not far away, cries for help continued to come from the mountain. It was like slapping Zhuqing's face again and again. Everything was not going well? Desolation suddenly understood what it meant to have everything not going well. For a moment he felt a lingering fear. How long had it been? It seemed that everything was not going well for a year? The scene became extremely strange. Zhuqing seemed to have realized the horror of the blue light just now. Many cultivators around also had ugly expressions. 1 year? There was still 1 more year? Yen Chuan smiled faintly. With a wave of his hand, the heaven-burying coffin shrank quickly. This was the 4th heaven-burying coffin that Yen Chuan obtained. Zhuqing glared. Even if everything was not going well for him, he could not give the heaven-burying coffin to Yen Chuan. Just as he was about to speak, a shout suddenly came from the south. Ha! Little brats, where are you running to? You can't escape. Stop struggling. A sinister voice rang out. Junior sister, run quickly. We'll block him. First senior brother, no. If we die together. A Jiaohu sound came from the south. Everyone looked over and saw a sea of blood surging over from the south. 5 men and women were fleeing at the edge of the sea of blood. However, the 5 were getting closer and closer to the sea of blood. The 5 felt anxious. They originally thought that there was a peerless expert who could take advantage of the chaos in the heavenly human palace. Who would have thought that the peerless expert had already left? The 5 despaired. Boom. The sea of blood pounced and immediately blocked in front of the 5. The sea of blood soared into the sky and turned into a blood dragon in front of the 5. Aha, let's see where you can run to now. The blood-robed elder laughed wildly. Oh, it's over. Junior sister will break through the sea of blood. Run quickly and go back to report to master so that he can avenge us. A man said sadly. No, we'll die together. The woman cried. You want to run into my sea of blood? I was just careless just now. You little brats, I'll kill 2 of you to feed my sea of blood. Then you'll be obedient. The elder shouted coldly. Then the sea of blood pounced toward the 5 of them. Just as it was about to kill the 5 of them, the woman from before suddenly showed a look of ecstasy on her face. Yendi, save us, Yendi. The woman shouted happily. In the distance, Yan Chuan also recognized the 5 of them at a glance. Weren't they the emperor's disciples? Yan Chuan had seen them when the emperor was transcending the tribulation. Seeing the 5 of them, Yan Chuan's expression changed, and he stretched out his palm into the distance. Whoosh! Yan Chuan's palm seemed to have traveled through time and space. It was extremely fast and arrived above the sea of blood in the blink of an eye. Boom! With a clench, he grabbed the 5 of them and pulled them back. Bang! The sea of blood missed. Who is it? The blood-robed elder was furious. The 5 of them arrived at the dragon carriage in the blink of an eye. They were on the verge of death just now, but they were suddenly saved? The 5 of them were extremely glad. Yendi, thank you, Yendi. The 5 of them said in surprise. Although they did not know the complicated relationship between Yan Chuan and their master, at least their master and Yan Chuan had some friendship back then. For a moment, the 5 of them felt as if they had caught a life-saving straw and were extremely glad. Who is he? Yan Chuan asked. The ancestral immortal of the Gongyang family. He wants to deal with my master. The first senior brother immediately said. Yan Chuan nodded. Yan Chuan was enough to distinguish between friend and foe. Then Yan Chuan shielded the 5 of them behind him and looked coldly at the sea of blood in the south. Above the sea of blood in the south, the blood-robed elder looked coldly in Yan Chuan's direction. The blood-robed elder's sudden appearance made the countless experts in the surroundings hesitate. Who are you? Why are you interfering in my private matters? The blood-robed elder asked coldly. The elder was rather cautious. He would not act rashly in a situation where he did not understand his opponent. At this moment, Gongyang Benlei chased over with a group of panting disciples from his family. Elder, it's him. He's Yan Chuan. Gongyang Benlei suddenly exclaimed. Yan Chuan? The blood-robed elder's face sank. The surrounding cultivators were also at a loss. Could it be that this Yan Chuan had enemies all over the world? Someone who suddenly appeared was also his enemy? Chapter 1190. Elder, he's the one who killed Gongyang Ben Tian. Gongyang Ben Lei shouted with bloodshot eyes. The blood-robed elder's eyes turned cold. Yan Chuan also sized up the blood-robed elder in front of him. His entire body was blood-red and even his face was blood-red. Blood essence demon? Yan Chuan raised his eyebrows. Gongyang Ben Lei, let me ask you, what is Yan Chuan's cultivation? The blood-robed elder asked in a deep voice. One had to know that Yan Chuan had just snatched someone from his blood sea. That method was extremely brilliant. Elder, I guarantee with my life that Yan Chuan is definitely a peak ancient immortal. He's definitely not an ancestral immortal. Although he has grasped the clear sky Tao, he's definitely not an ancestral immortal. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to escape from him back then. Gongyang Ben Lei said with absolute certainty. Ancient immortal? Many cultivators in the surroundings revealed a confused expression. Huatian Lord and Zhuqing were even more shocked. Especially Huatian Lord, he didn't believe it at all. That day Jin Deyu, today Gui Guzi, 2 ancestral immortals were his subordinates. How could Yan Chuan be an ancient immortal? An ancient immortal having 2 ancestral immortal subordinates? The 3 dragons also revealed a look of disdain. Ancient immortal? Was there something wrong with this kid's head? Especially the 7 fiends. They remembered zombie Yan Chuan's attack that day. That attack made them, a peak Ancient Immortal, look like a chicken in front of him. Ancient Immortal? Ancient Immortal, your sister. Of course, the three dragons couldn't say it out loud. Many of the cultivators here didn't know Yan Chuan's cultivation, so they didn't say anything. As for Huatian Lord and Zuoqing, they hadn't seen Yan Chuan attack before. However, they felt that Yan Chuan wasn't an Ancient Immortal, but they didn't have the obligation to tell the blood-robed elder. Everyone was silent. Are you sure? The blood-robed elder said seriously. After all, that attack didn't seem like an Ancient Immortal's attack at all. Elder, I'm sure. How many years has it been? Even if he broke through, his cultivation can't be too high. Gongyang Benlei said. I know. The blood-robed elder's heart calmed down. Once again he looked at Yan Chuan aggressively. Yan Chuan, come out and accept your death. You killed my disciple. Now is the time for you to pay. The blood-robed elder said coldly. Gui Guzi took a step forward. Yan Chuan grabbed Gui Guzi's shoulder. Don't waste the blood essence to transform into a demon. This emperor will do it. Yan Chuan said in a low voice. Understood. Gui Guzi nodded. When the emperor's 5 disciples heard Gongyang Benlei's words, they immediately became worried. At this moment, Zuoqing no longer forced Yan Chuan. Wouldn't it be great if there was someone to fight for him? Moreover, if necessary, he could assist from the side. Zuoqing gave Lord Huatian a meaningful glance. Lord Huatian's eyes lit up as he immediately understood the meaning. Lord Huatian came to find Zuoqing in order to find trouble for Yan Chuan. At this moment, after seeing Zuoqing's attitude, he immediately calmed down. Zuoqing's meaning was to wait for an opportunity to kill Yan Chuan and take the sky-burying coffin, while Lord Huatian was in charge of stopping Gui Guzi. Zuoqing coldly looked at him. Yan Chuan flipped his hand and put the shrunken sky-burying coffin into his sleeve. He took a step forward and stepped out of the dragon carriage, flying into the air. Countless cultivators in the surroundings did not have a good impression of Yan Chuan. For a moment, no one said anything. When the blood-robed elder saw Yan Chuan coming forward alone, he immediately became suspicious. Gongyang Benlei, is what you said true? The elder asked again. Elder, don't worry. I'm certain. I guarantee that Yan Chuan was an Ancient Immortal at that time. He is definitely not an ancestral immortal. Don't worry, he is seeking his own death. Gongyang Benlei swore. The blood-robed elder was relieved. Zuoqing waited for an opportunity not far away. Whoosh! Yan Chuan stepped into the blood sea. The blood-robed elder's eyes lit up. Aha, you are indeed seeking your own death. You have no chance of escaping in my blood sea. As he spoke, he waved his hand and countless waves of blood surged toward Yan Chuan. The waves of blood turned into 100 blood dragons, carrying vast power as they charged toward Yan Chuan. Boom! The blood dragon crashed into Yan Chuan's body. Blood splattered everywhere as the blood dragons shattered. Yan Chuan was unharmed, and he was still charging toward the blood-robed elder at an extremely fast speed. What? The blood-robed elder's expression changed. Each of his blood dragons had the power of a peak Ancient Immortal. Why was it that when they crashed into Yan Chuan, they were like splashing water? Dragons go. The blood-robed elder said somewhat anxiously. Another 1,000 blood dragons charged toward Yan Chuan. Boom. There was another strong collision. The 1,000 blood dragons were shattered once again, but Yan Chuan was unscathed. Blood splattered on his body, but it was instantly forced away by Yan Chuan's aura. Body? How can it be so tough? The blood-robed elder's expression changed. In the distance, Zuoqing, who was about to attack, paused slightly as she looked into the distance with a grim expression. Yan Chuan arrived in front of the blood-robed elder at a constant speed. His attack had no effect at all? The blood-robed elder's expression changed. With a step, the blood-colored heavenly Tao soared into the sky. Boom! The moment the heavenly Tao appeared, a powerful aura erupted in the surroundings. The blood-robed elder merged with the heavenly Tao. An ancestral immortal who cultivates the blood Tao? Zuoqing raised her brows slightly. However, Yan Chuan ignored the heavenly Tao and continued approaching. Yan Chuan, do you know who I am? The blood-robed elder said coldly. In the outside world, Gongyang Benlei watched as Yan Chuan approached the elder. For a moment he felt uneasy as if something was wrong. Yan Chuan had already arrived in front of the heavenly Tao. After today you will be gone. Why should I know who you are? With that said, Yan Chuan charged toward the heavenly Tao. If you are courting death. Blood sea karmic fire. The blood-robed elder roared. The heavenly Tao suddenly erupted with blood-red flames that swept toward Yan Chuan. Boom! Yen Chuan, who was wrapped in blood-red flames, sneered. His originally calm face suddenly revealed a hint of malevolence. Whoosh! Yen Chuan's speed suddenly increased by more than 1,000 times as he charged toward the heavenly Tao at an extremely terrifying speed. The blood-robed elder's pupils constricted as he was shocked. However, he quickly comforted himself that Yen Chuan could not break the heavenly Tao. How could his heavenly Tao be broken by an ancient immortal? Ah! In the next moment there was a miserable shriek. It was Yen Chuan's hand that pierced his chest. What? The Heaven Transformation Lord and Wuxia in the distance suddenly exclaimed. The heavenly Tao was still there. However, Yen Chuan had entered the heavenly Tao and arrived before the blood-robed elder. How did he enter? Impossible. That is the heavenly Tao. If he did not break it, how did he enter? Wuxia exclaimed. Gongyang Benlei also exclaimed in shock. Impossible. That is the elder's heavenly Tao. No one can enter. Countless cultivators in the surroundings looked at this scene in confusion. What is going on? Could it be that Yen Chuan grasped the same heavenly Tao? His grasp was even deeper than the blood-robed elders? Dragon Fifth and the barbarian dragon gaped in shock. However, the 7 fiends curled their lips. This was because they had enjoyed this scene back then. Zombie King? Yen Chuan, the Zombie King, had already jumped out of the heavenly Tao and was no longer within the 5 elements. Heavenly Tao. Before the zombie Yen Chuan, the heavenly Tao was nothing. If he faced a holy king in the Yang realm, he might be able to put up a fight. But in the netherworld? What's so great about being an ancestral immortal? The 7 fiends said disdainfully. Inside the blood-colored heavenly Tao, Yen Chuan thrust one palm into the blood-robed elder's chest and grabbed half of the blood-robed elder's body with the other. This caused the blood-robed elder to be stuck, unable to move. No. Impossible. How did you get in? The blood-robed elder roared in shock. Is that very difficult? Yen Chuan retorted disdainfully. After saying that, Yen Chuan's expression turned increasingly sinister. Suddenly, 2 blood-colored fangs appeared in Yen Chuan's mouth. Zombie King? The blood-robed elder exclaimed. Yen Chuan is a zombie? In the distance, Wuxia's expression changed as well. Wuxia recalled that the limit of a zombie king was indeed such a situation. Jumping out of the heavenly Tao, no longer within the 5 elements, ignoring the heavenly Tao. Bastard! Let go of me! The blood-robed elder roared in shock. Roar! Zombie King Yen Chuan's mouth slowly opened. The huge threat made the blood-robed elder feel the threat of death. You want to drink my blood? Gongyang Benlei, didn't you say he was an ancient immortal? The blood-robed elder roared in grief and hatred. In the outside world, Gongyang Benlei's legs had already gone soft from fear. Once, twice, thrice. Without hesitation, Gongyang Benlei turned around and ran. Roar! Zombie Yen Chuan suddenly sucked. A terrifying suction force came. The blood-robed elder seemed to be unable to resist as he was sucked into Yen Chuan's mouth. His body continued to shrink and gradually entered Yen Chuan's mouth. Gongyang Benlei, this old man was killed by you. I hate you. The blood-robed elder roared in grief and hatred. In the distance, the fleeing Gongyang Benlei turned his head to look. Just in time to see this scene, Yen Chuan swallowed the blood-robed elder in one mouth. After swallowing the elder, the suction force in Yen Chuan's mouth was unceasing. The sea of blood below was also rushing towards Yen Chuan's mouth. Ancestral immortal? Eaten by Yen Chuan? Gongyang Benlei was crying in his heart. It was the same thing again. He had rushed over and fled in a hurry. Every time he would lose a batch of experts from the Gongyang family. This time it was even more exaggerated. An elder was an ancestral immortal. He was actually eaten by Yen Chuan. Eaten? Gongyang Benlei turned around, not daring to look anymore. He instantly fled far away. He lamented in his heart. How was he going to explain this to the old ancestor? Yen Chuan swallowed a living person. This scene caused the hearts of countless cultivators to turn cold. Ancient immortal, your sister. Is this an ancient immortal? Can an ancient immortal swallow an ancestral immortal so easily? Wuxia, who was waiting for an opportunity to take action, stopped in his tracks. He opened his mouth and looked at Yen Chuan, who had just swallowed an ancestral immortal and swallowed the entire sea of blood. Wuxia's face twitched. He turned to look at Lord Huatian and said, Brother Huatian, is this the Yen Chuan you wanted me to find trouble with? Lord Huatian's face was also extremely ugly. I also didn't expect Yen Chuan to be so terrifying. Yes, if he wasn't a powerful ancestral immortal, how could he subdue Jin Dayu and Gue Guzi? What a powerful ancestral immortal. Many cultivators in the surroundings revealed a shocked expression. The 7 fiends had a face of relief. Dragon Fifth and Barbarian Dragon opened their eyes wide. The 3 dragons suddenly rejoiced. Pulling the carriage was really a great favor from Yan Chuan. What level of ancestral immortal was this terrifying? Just as the experts were exclaiming, Yan Chuan finally swallowed the entire sea of blood. His face was still ferocious, and his 2 fangs were extremely terrifying. Yan Chuan looked up at the sky. Rumble. Suddenly, countless tribulation clouds gathered high in the sky. Tribulation clouds? The faces of countless cultivators in the surroundings froze. How could there be tribulation clouds? Ancestral immortal tribulation? This is ancestral immortal tribulation? Yan Chuan, he's really an ancient immortal. Suddenly, someone shouted. This shout made the surrounding cultivators lose their voices. It was as if they had swallowed a dead fly. Their entire worldview was turned upside down. Even the heavenly Tao is useless to me. Ancestral immortal tribulation? Ah, roar. Zombie Yan Chuan roared. The suction force in his mouth was still there, and he opened his mouth to swallow the ancestral immortal tribulation. Chapter 1191. It was just like the human body of the Yang realm. No, the zombie body was even more domineering. When it opened its mouth to swallow the tribulation, a terrifying suction force locked all the lightning, making it impossible for the lightning to escape. The lightning clouds swarmed into the zombie's mouth. Rumble. It stood in the void and swallowed the heavenly tribulation. Moreover, it was the ancestral immortal tribulation. The surrounding cultivators widened their eyes. Even the 7 fiends, Dragon Fifth and Barbarian Dragon, were shocked. Is it really an ancient immortal? Why is it only an ancient immortal? The 7 fiends said in shock. The 7 fiends found it hard to understand how an ancient immortal could be so powerful. Could it be that the zombie king was so abnormal? Gui Guzi was used to it. Yin Hentian and Chiliang Hua's eyes flashed with surprise. Zuoqing and Lord Huayan's expressions turned ugly. Brother Huatan, is this what you meant when you told me that there was nothing to worry about? Zuoqing said with an ugly expression. Lord Huatian. Rumble. Under the powerful suction force, the tribulation cloud soon entered zombie Yan Chuan's stomach. Roar. After swallowing the tribulation clouds, Yan Chuan roared at the sky. The roar shook everyone's hearts. Countless cultivators suddenly felt their hearts tremble. After the roar, zombie Yan Chuan felt comfortable. His face slowly recovered and his fangs slowly retracted. Yan Chuan gradually returned to his original appearance. Yan Chuan walked toward the dragon carriage. In the blink of an eye, he was on top of the dragon carriage. At this moment, countless cultivators were still looking at Yan Chuan numbly. Yan Chuan's gaze swept across everyone's eyes. Many Xiozha shuddered in fear. Yin Hentian, is it over? Yan Chuan looked at Yin Hentian. Yes. I have released the butterfly queen and paid my respects to the heavens. It is over. Yin Hentian said. Since it is over, let's go. Yan Chuan said in a low voice. Yes. 3 dragons go south. Chiliang Hua immediately ordered. Roar. 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 The 3 dragons roared and pulled the carriage into the air. They slowly flew south. Anxiety immediately appeared on the faces of some Xiozha. They wanted to stop him but were forced to restrain themselves. Instead, they turned to look at Zuoqing, who was standing not too far off in the distance, as though they were hoping that the Zuo clan's ancestral immortal organization would stand up for them. Zuoqing was also speechless. The Zuo family did not have much faith in heaven, so how could they stop Yan Chuan now? Thinking back to how Yan Chuan had devoured the ancestral immortal earlier on, Zuoqing's heart skipped a beat. That's a man-eating monster. If I go and stop him, what if I get eaten too? Moreover, Zuoqing had also felt the terror of the butterfly queen's blue light. She was currently in bad luck, and the possibility of being eaten was very high. Off in the distance, the dragon carriage moved further and further away, but no one around the Deva Palace dared to stop it. On the dragon carriage, Yan Chuan looked at the 5 disciples of the emperor. Why are you all here? Where's the emperor? Yan Chuan asked in confusion. The 5 of them looked at each other as if they were in a difficult position. Finally, the eldest senior brother took a deep breath and said, Thank you for your help this time, Yan Di. Yan Di, Master is at the bottom of the sea between the firmament territory and the celestial territory. I heard from Master that the ancestor had left a stone inscription at the bottom of the sea. The eldest senior brother said. Yan Chuan nodded. Lead the way. The 5 of them nodded. Celestial Territory. Sage Huazuentian's dojo. Inside there was a huge merit cloud sea. Merit surged, illuminating the world. Thousands of rays of light shone, and immortal birds flew everywhere. It was a bustling scene. Below there were countless palaces. The largest palace was the Celestial Palace. Inside the Celestial Palace. At this moment, a man in white was sitting cross-legged. The man's face was blurry, and not a trace of his outline could be seen. The man took a deep breath and suddenly stood up. Goddess of misfortune, Butterfly Queen? And that unknown old demon by Xie from the Yang realm? Is there going to be a revolution in the world? The man was the sage Huazuentian. Huazuentian took 2 steps in the palace and took a deep breath. In the end, it turned into a slight sigh. Come in. Huazuentian suddenly shouted. Quang. The door of the palace opened. Outside the palace, a few guards said to the 3 figures at the door, "The sage invites you in." The 3 of them nodded. The 3 figures slowly stepped into the Celestial Palace. 2 of them and a gorilla. If Yan Chuan was here, he would recognize one of them at a glance. It was Demon King Kong from the Sealed World. However, the cracks on Demon King Kong's face had all disappeared. The gorilla was Kong Outyin, the Tao god who was changed to the beast Tao by ZZ using the Book of Life and Death. There was also a gray-robed elder. The elder closed his eyes and walked into the palace together. Greetings, sage. Demon King Kong and the gorilla bowed at the same time. Huazuentian nodded. He looked at the gray-robed elder. Blind Kong, what's the matter? The gray-robed elder, Blind Kong, smiled bitterly. Sage, I'm here on behalf of the family head. Please forgive me for not being able to greet you. Aha, I know the rules of the family head of the Kong family. Other than the heavens, you don't bow to anyone. Even when you faced the heavens, you didn't bow to them. The heavens even tacitly agreed to this rule. If the heavens didn't make you bow to them, why would I make things difficult for you? I just don't know what your Kong family is relying on to not bow to the heavens? Huazuentian asked with a trace of curiosity. Blind Kong smiled bitterly. Other than the family head, we don't know. Please forgive us. Forget it. One day you will tell us. Why did the family head of the Kong family send you here? Huazuentian asked in a deep voice. Kong Outyin. Blind Kong shouted. Yes. The gorilla immediately walked forward. Kong. Huazuentian revealed a trace of doubt. Sage, this gorilla was originally a member of the family. He was cursed to become a gorilla. We can't break the curse. Please help us. Blind Kong said solemnly. From a human to a gorilla? Huazuentian's eyes flashed with surprise. The family head said that if you can break Kong Outyin's curse, the Kong family will owe you a favor. Blind Kong said. Someone from the Kong family? Ah, there's no need for that. The family head of the Kong family and I are friends. Huazuentian shook his head and looked at Kong Outyin. Tao God? Isn't your Kong family unable to produce a Tao God? Huazuentian asked doubtfully. That's why it's so rare. Blind Kong smiled slightly. Huazuentian looked at Kong Outyin carefully. He stretched out his hand and a white light entered Kong Outyin's body. Buzz. The white light circulated for a while and overflowed again. What a strange curse. Huazuentian said in a deep voice. 2 hours later. Blind Kong, Demon King Kong and the gorilla walked out of the heavenly hall. Even the sage can't do anything? The gorilla said with a sad face. Shut up. Demon King Kong's face showed annoyance. Blind Kong walked slowly. He frowned deeply. Elder? What should we do now? Demon King Kong frowned. The one who tied the bell should untie it. Kong Outyin's curse must be broken. Blind Kong said in a deep voice. Yes, yes. The gorilla immediately shouted. Chapter 1192. Firmament Territory. Heavenly Human Palace. Yan Xuan left safely and countless cultivators looked at Zuoqing. Because just now, Zuoqing did not stop Yan Xuan at all. Yan Xuan was strong, but Zuoqing did not even speak. For a time, many people looked at Zuoqing with less admiration. They did not believe in the Zuo family's reverence for firmament. Zuoqing also felt the change in the surrounding gazes. She flung her sleeves and flew back to her original residence. The Zuo family disciples looked at each other and most of them followed. Only a few stayed behind to save the family members who were stuck in the mountain. In a hall. Zuoqing looked at Lord Huatian with a gloomy face. Lord Huatian, are you sure that Yan Xuan attended the sage's birthday? Zuoqing asked. Yes. Lord Huatian nodded. The sky-burying coffin is only an ancient immortal artifact, so it's fine. But that Inhentian and Maizwa family will not rest until one of us is dead. Zuoqing narrowed her eyes. What do you want? Lord Huatian smiled. Yen Chuan robbed the Heaven's tomb and stole the Heaven's corpse casket. This news is enough. Before the saint's birthday celebration, I want to spread this news to all the cultivators in the 4 territories. Zuoqing said solemnly. Oh. I want to kill Yen Chuan and Inhentian in the Sky Sovereign Territory. Zuoqing's eyes were cold. What? That's my ancestor's birthday. Lord Huatian glared. Zuoqing shook her head and said, many people die in this world every day. Yen Chuan and his group are not many, but Yen Chuan and his group are not many. Killing Yen Chuan is not a destruction, but a celebration. Don't worry, you can tell the sage. I think he won't stop us from killing Inhentian. West of Firmament Territory. Gongyang Benlei ran with a few disciples of the Gongyang family. Seeing that Yen Chuan did not chase after them, they stopped at the foot of a mountain with a bitter expression. Yen Chuan tricked me to death again. Gongyang Benlei wanted to cry but had no tears. How was he going to explain this to his ancestors when he returned? Tell them that the elder was eaten by Yen Chuan? Wouldn't he be sprayed to death by a mouthful of tea from the ancestors? Granduncle, what should we do now? Are we still going to attend the saint's birthday banquet? A disciple of the Gongyang family who had followed them asked with a bewildered expression. Yen Chuan's trip this time might be to celebrate the birthday. Who wants to go? Gongyang Benlei asked. All the disciples of the Gongyang family kept quiet out of fear. Let's go back and report to the patriarch. Gongyang Benlei said bitterly. Should we report it truthfully? Asked a disciple of the Gongyang family. Report truthfully? Gongyang Benlei's eyes suddenly flickered with uncertainty. That's right, when reporting he could leave me out? Gongyang Benlei's eyes flashed for a while. Suddenly he thought of something. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. Report the truth. This was not something that Gongyang Benlei could hide. Not to mention a few Gongyang family disciples, there were countless cultivators watching them. Yes. In the center of the Venerable Heaven Territory and the Firmament Territory, there was a vast sea. In the depths of the sea there was a huge sea valley. At the mouth of the sea valley, 5 men and women each held a saber and sat at the mouth of the valley as if they were guarding. Inside the sea valley, there were a large number of night pearls that illuminated the sea valley. There was also an array that isolated the sea water outside. In the sea valley, there were a large number of words carved on the walls of the valley. There were some simple tables and chairs around. At this moment, on a stone bed, there was a short-haired woman sitting cross-legged. She was the daughter of the saber demon in the sealed world, the Empress. With a long saber on her knees, the Empress sat cross-legged and closed her eyes to comprehend. At the same time, above the sea, Yen Chuan's 3 dragons carriage also stopped above the sea. On the dragon carriage terrace, Yen Chuan looked at the vast sea. Yendi, Master is below. Does Yendi want to go down? Or should we go and inform Master? One of the senior brothers asked. Yen Chuan stood at the edge of the terrace, looking at the sparkling sea and frowning slightly. There was a moment of silence. The sea breeze blew Yen Chuan's long hair. Yen Chuan did not speak. In the sea valley, the Empress was originally comprehending with her eyes closed. Suddenly she sensed something. She slowly stood up, put down her long saber and looked up. A trace of excitement flashed in the Empress's eyes, but in the next moment, this trace of excitement was extinguished by some kind of emotion. A trace of pain flashed in the Empress's eyes. Biting her lips, the Empress's eyes revealed a complicated look. The Empress did not go out but stood in the sea valley. On the surface of the sea, Yen Chuan did not go into the sea but looked at the sea like this. Gigazi and the others stood not far away and no one spoke. The 5 brothers and sisters looked at each other, and a flash of curiosity flashed in their eyes. Yen Chuan and the Empress, separated by the sea, could not see each other, but felt that each other was on the other side of the sea. They quietly stared at each other for a while. In the end, Yen Chuan sighed slightly. You guys go down, I won't see her. Yen Chuan shook his head and said. The 5 brothers and sisters looked at each other, their eyes full of confusion. The 5 of them could see that Yen Chuan wanted to see their master, and he had already arrived here. But if they met, they were only 1 step away, but they stopped. 1 step away, but it seemed to be the furthest distance. Yes. The 5 of them nodded. The 5 of them admitted that they were not qualified to interrupt the matter between their master and Yen Chuan, and they did not dare to say much. Leaving the 5 of them behind, the dragon carriage continued to head towards the southern revered heaven territory. In the depths of the sea valley, the Empress seemed to have sensed the departure of the dragon carriage, and a flash of disappointment appeared in her eyes. Sigh. She sighed slightly. The Empress sat cross-legged again. The long saber was placed on her knees, but it was difficult for her to meditate again. She revealed a bitter smile. A few days later, the dragon carriage stepped into the revered heaven territory. The birthday of the sage Huazun attracted countless cultivators to celebrate. At least, the experts of most territories in the underworld's eastern continent came one after another. Even though there was still some time before the birthday, countless experts would rather come early than be late. Sage King, there are more people now for my old ancestor's birthday. Why don't you stay at my place first and wait for me to report to the old ancestor? Desolation Flower said respectfully. All right. Yin Chuan nodded. The dragon carriage pulled everyone straight to the center, entering a place with extremely dense heaven-earth essence chi. When they got close, a large number of cultivators flew over. Desolation Flower stood in front, and the cultivators flying over immediately recognized her. Greetings, young master. The cultivators said respectfully. Desolation Flower nodded. The dragon carriage was unobstructed all the way, and it went straight into a huge palace complex. At the entrance of the palace complex, there was a huge stele erected. Sin Death Villa. Gui Guzi read the inscription on the stele strangely. Desolation Flower smiled bitterly. This is the name given by the old ancestor. I have asked many times, but the old ancestor has never said. Sin Death? Yin Chuan also read it strangely. Everyone quickly arrived at a huge palace. Immediately many servants came up. Sage King, how about you stay in Sin Death Hall for the time being? Desolation Flower asked. After all, the biggest palace in Sin Death Villa was Sin Death Hall. Although the name was a little unpleasant, it was the best here. Yin Chuan nodded, not being picky. At this point, Yin Chuan and the others stayed. Chapter 1193. Yin Chuan and his group settled down in Sin and Death Hall. Their originally peaceful life was no longer peaceful because of a rumor. Robbing the Sky Corpse coffin? Yin Chuan of the Holy Court of Great Perfection had gone against the law of the world. He had disrespected the world and challenged the bottom line of morality. He had destroyed the Sky Tomb and robbed the Sky Corpse coffin. He was full of evil. This time, he had come to venerated heaven territory to wish the sage a happy birthday. The moment the rumor spread, venerated heaven territory boiled over. In a tea house. Why did the sage invite the old devil? You don't know. The sage didn't know about Yin Chuan's demonic nature and had already sent out an invitation. It's too late to regret now. Old Devil Yin is living in Sin and Death Hall. The sage is too embarrassed to chase Old Devil Yin away? Let's go. Yes, make him hand over the Sky Corpse coffin. For a time, many cultivators in venerated heaven territory were agitated. Although heaven territory had been dead for 1,000,000 years, there were still many people who remembered it. Many people quickly headed to Sin and Death Hall. Countless cultivators headed to Sin and Death Hall. On the peak of a mountain, Lord Huatian and Zhuqing watched coldly. In the end, they're just weak cultivators. Lord Huatian frowned. Zhuqing sneered. Some old fellows saw through it and didn't join in the fun. However, it doesn't matter. As long as these people die, more and more experts will be attracted. Lord Huatian nodded. Outside Sin and Death Hall. Hand over Old Devil Yen and the Sky Corpse coffin. Old Devil Yen, you're inhumane. How can the Sky Corpse coffin be something you can touch? Sin and Death Hall was in an uproar. With the formation set up, the cultivators in Sin and Death Hall were all agitated. In front of Sin and Death Hall, Desolation Hua looked outside with a cold face. Yin Hentian and Gigu Zi stood beside him. Looks like it was the Zhua family who spread the news. How did it spread so quickly? Gui Guzi sneered. They're coming for me? Yin Hentian frowned. The two looked at Desolation Hua. Desolation Hua narrowed his eyes as he looked outside. Prince Desolation Flower, you are the descendant of a saint. You should eliminate evil and defend the Tao. Yin Chuan, you bastard, must be executed immediately. Desolation Flower Prince, the saints are righteous. Don't disgrace the saints and associate yourself with old demon Yin. Voices of advice came from the outside world. Desolation Transformation said coldly, everyone listen up. Hua Desolation shouted, and the noise in the outside world came to a halt. This is the territory of exalted heaven, not a place for you to behave atrociously. Furthermore, this is my condemned Death Mountain manor. If anyone dares to insult my sage monarch again, they'll be making an enemy out of desolation. Now retreat immediately. Otherwise kill without mercy. Mournful transformation shouted coldly. Hua Wuji's desolate words confused countless cultivators in the outside world. Prince Desolation, you've been deceived by Yen Xuan. You're the descendant of a saint. Make old demon Yen hand over the corpse coffin. The outside world was still noisy. Sin Death Guard. Desolation transformation shouted. Here. 1,000 blood-robed cultivators appeared in the surroundings. Anyone who doesn't retreat more than 100 miles will be killed. Desolation transformation said solemnly. Yes. The 1,000 Sin Death Guards shouted. Boom. 1,000 people flew out of the array and immediately raised their blood blades to kill in all directions. Desolation transformation, you're so stubborn. A cultivator roared. Boom. That cultivator was slashed into a bloody mist. Ah, really killed? Desolation transformation is crazy. These are the Sin Death Guards? The strongest guards trained by the saints actually listen to Desolation transformation. Does the saints know about this? The reputation of the saints is going to be ruined by Desolation transformation. Kill. Outside the condemned Death Mountain manor, there was an uproar. The Sin Death Guards wantonly slaughtered the noisy cultivators. For a time, the sky outside the condemned Death Mountain manor was dyed in blood. Desolation transformation was merciless. In the outside world, Lord Huatian and Zhuqing narrowed their eyes. Desolation transformation? Is he determined to stand on Yen Xuan's side? Zhuqing said coldly. Sin Death Guards? The old ancestor transferred them to protect that little bitch. Desolation transformation. Who would have thought that this little bitch would be so arrogant and use the Sin Death Guards to deal with these people? Isn't it said that the saints are protecting Yen Xuan? Lord Huatian said with an ugly expression. Indeed. I think you should go and talk to the saints and ask him to stop Desolation transformation from continuing to mess around, Zhuqing said in a deep voice. Lord Huatian nodded. Lord Huatian quickly flew to the revered heaven hall. Before he saw revered heaven, a blue-robed man walked out of the hall. The man's face was cold, and there was a majestic look in his eyes. Ice transformation, Grand Ancestor? Lord Huatian's eyes lit up. Lord Huatian? Why are you in such a hurry? Ice transformation said in a deep voice. I'm here to find the old ancestor and ask him to withdraw the Sin Death Guards. Lord Huatian said truthfully. Oh. Then Lord Huatian told him about the rumors and how the Sin Death Guards massacred those who came to congratulate him. Ice transformation, Grand Ancestor, you are the #1 person in the revered heaven sect except for the old ancestor. You are the most qualified to say that we can't lose face for Desolation transformation. Ice transformation, Grand Ancestor, you should also persuade the old ancestor. Lord Huatian said. Nonsense. Ice transformation glared. Ah. Does the old ancestor need you to teach him how to do things? Ice transformation said coldly. I just got the news about the firmament territory and reported it to the old ancestor. Lord Huatian, you are the descendant of the saints. Don't lose face for the saints for no reason. Ice transformation said coldly. Ice transformation, Grand Ancestor, what did I do wrong? Lord Huatian said in surprise. What did you do wrong? Go back and think about it. Ask the old ancestor to withdraw the Sin Death Guards? Are you a saint or is the old ancestor a saint? Ice transformation said coldly. Lord Huatian suddenly quivered. Yes. Lord Huatian knows his mistake. Outside the Sin Death Villa, the Sin Death Guards massacred the noisy cultivators, and the effect was extremely obvious. Soon, many cultivators were forced to stay 100 miles away. One by one, they could only stand 100 miles away and keep scolding. No one dared to scold the saints. They could only say that Yen Xuan had bewitched Desolation. Just like that, a few more days passed. Outside the Sin Death Villa, 3 figures came. One was a gorilla and the other 2 were men. They were Blind Kong, Demon King Kong and Kong Outyen. Yen Xuan actually came to the Netherworld? Demon King Kong said with a solemn expression. He still remembered that in the sealed world, Demon King Kong and Yen Xuan fought once. At that time, Yen Xuan used the power of the world to tear off Demon King Kong's arm, and Kong Outyen was turned into a gorilla. More than 5,000 years had passed and Demon King Kong was still brooding. Although he was seriously injured at that time, he was still defeated in the end. Although he was unwilling, the result could not be changed. Blind Kong couldn't see with his eyes, so he stood in the distance and sensed with his heart for a while. Demon King Kong, are you sure that Yin Xuan has half of the Kong family's bloodline? Blind Kong said in a deep voice. Yes, I can't be wrong, but unfortunately. Demon King Kong's expression turned ugly. Elder, not only did Yin Xuan's wife cause me to become like this, but it seems that the heaven-seeking token is also in Yin Xuan's hands, the gorilla said anxiously. Blind Kong took a deep breath. The Kong family has produced an extraordinary person, but unfortunately he's a distant relative. Elder, the family head said that this matter not only requires Kong Outyen to return to his human body, but also the heaven-seeking token. What is the use of this heaven-seeking token? Demon King Kong asked curiously. Heaven-seeking token? Its most basic use is to ask the heavens and hold the heavens accountable. Blind Kong said in a deep voice. Although the Kong family has declined a lot in the ancient times, our Kong family did not lose to anyone. At that time, the Yin family was the representative of the heavens and ruled the world. Although our Kong family did not have much to do with the heavens, as long as we saw something wrong with the heavens, we could hold the heavens accountable with the heaven-seeking token. Blind Kong said in a deep voice. Hold the heavens accountable? Does the heavens really listen? The gorilla said in surprise. Yes, although I don't know why. Perhaps only the family head knows this secret, but the heavens did listen to the Kong family's opinions in the past. Blind Kong said. The gorilla and Demon King Kong were shocked and confused. Then what other uses are there? Demon King Kong asked curiously. Other uses? That is what we need to do. First, we need a male descendant to give birth to a Tao god, and then use the heaven-seeking token, Blind Kong said in a deep voice. Use? Oh. What can it do? The gorilla was curious because he was that Tao god. Only the family head knows the specifics. I only know that it can push the family to the peak and restore the glory of the ancient times. No, it can even exceed the glory of the ancient times. The heaven-seeking token is the root of the Kong family. Last time, I calculated the possibility of a Tao god being born in the family, and that was why the family head allowed you to leave the family with the heaven-seeking token. You succeeded, Blind Kong said in a deep voice. Why didn't you take it in these 5,000 years? Demon King Kong asked in confusion. I calculated that the heaven-seeking token is in Yin Xuan's hands. It can't be lost. Moreover, the family had other matters to attend to at that time. But now, the other matters of the family are almost settled. Now it's time to ask about the heavenly order and the Tao god. Whoever started the trouble should end it. Let's go. Take me to see Yin Xuan. Yes. Demon King Kong nodded. The two men and the gorilla walked inside. Stop. Suddenly, a condemned death guard shouted. Inform Mournful Flower. Tell him that I am Demon King Kong. I am here to see Yin Xuan. Demon King Kong shouted. Not far away, the condemned death guard raised his eyebrows. After all, the two men and the gorilla were different from the others. Wait. The condemned death guard immediately went back to report. In the condemned death hall. Demon King Kong? There is also a blind man. Blind Kong? Gorilla? Kong Outyen? Yin Xuan's expression changed slightly. Sage King, the Yin family has records. Although the Kong family was not the strongest family in the ancient times, it was the most special one. That was because the Kong family was qualified to blame the heavens. The Yin family does not know the specific reason, Yin Hentian said. Blame the heavens? Heaven-seeking token? Heaven-seeking token? Yin Xuan looked pensive. Sage King, do you want to summon them? Mournful Flower asked. Let them in. Yin Xuan nodded. Chapter 1194. Sin and Death Hall. Yin Xuan sat on a throne while Gui Guzi and Yin Hentian stood beside him. Hua Desolation stood at the door. Please enter, Hua Desolation said with a smile. Thank you. Blind Kong nodded. Demon King Kong frowned. Kong Outyen, on the other hand, rushed into the main hall. The three of them entered in the blink of an eye. As soon as they entered the hall, they saw Yin Xuan sitting there. He did not stand up to greet them. Yin Xuan. Kong Outyen shouted as he looked at Yin Xuan. Anger flashed in his eyes. Although the curse was cast by ZZ without Yin Xuan, none of this would have happened. Demon King Kong also looked at Yin Xuan coldly. He still remembered the grudge of losing his arm. Only the blind Kong had a calm expression on his face. Demon King Kong? It's been 5,000 years. We meet again. Yin Xuan smiled faintly. Umph. Demon King Kong snorted coldly. Yin Di. Blind Kong suddenly said. When Blind Kong spoke, Demon King Kong and Kong Outyin immediately fell silent. You're blind, Kong? Yin Chuan asked with a trace of doubt. I'm blind. I came from afar. May I have a seat? Blind Kong said with a smile. Yin Chuan looked at Blind Kong curiously. Was Blind Kong trying to talk to them on equal terms? Take a seat, Yin Chuan said. Hua Desolation nodded immediately. He reached out and brought over a chair. Demon King Kong raised his eyebrows. Anger flashed in his eyes. Kong Outyin screamed on the spot. Only one chair? Yin Chuan, what is the meaning of this? Kong Outyin said angrily. You're a guest from afar. I welcome you. As for you too? Haha, you're no match for Blind Kong. Yin Chuan smiled. You. Demon King Kong glared. Gui Guzi laughed. Demon King Kong? If the Holy King says you don't have the right to sit, then you don't have the right to sit. Here even I am standing, let alone you. It wasn't that Yin Chuan was deliberately making things difficult for them. It was just that Yin Chuan wanted to see their attitudes. Although this was the first time Blind Kong had met him, he had heard of him over the years. He was a fate usurper and a cultivator of fate. He was the brains of the Kong family. Yin Chuan naturally treated it seriously. Many thanks, Yen Di. Blind Kong nodded. He touched the chair and slowly sat down. Haha, Yin Chuan, do you think it's still 5,000 years ago? 5,000 years ago I was heavily injured. 5,000 years ago you mobilized the power of a nation. You were lucky enough to beat me once. Do you think you can be lucky again? Demon King Kong coldly shouted. Zhuqing spread unfavorable rumors about Yin Chuan. Of course, she wouldn't say that Yin Chuan had eaten an ancestral immortal in firmament territory. Otherwise, the number of Xiozha who came to condemn Yin Chuan would be much less. Because of this, Demon King Kong didn't know Yin Chuan's background. Yin Chuan looked at Demon King Kong and suddenly smiled. Do you still remember what I said to you 5,000 years ago? What? Demon King Kong said in a low voice. I said, how can a defeated general speak of bravery? If I can defeat you once, I can defeat you forever. Yin Chuan said in a low voice. Aha, defeat me forever? Demon King Kong sneered. You don't believe me? Yin Chuan smiled. As he spoke, Yin Chuan suddenly stretched out his right index finger and pointed at Demon King Kong. Whoosh! It was like a sharp blade cutting through the air with an unstoppable force. Demon King Kong's expression changed. It was too fast. Demon King Kong didn't expect Yin Chuan to suddenly attack. Instinctively, Demon King Kong reached out and pulled out a long sword. The long sword stabbed at Yin Chuan's finger. A sword energy stabbed at Yin Chuan's index finger. Bang! The sword energy shattered. Demon King Kong's expression changed. He exerted more force in his hand and rushed forward. Clang! The tip of Demon King Kong's long sword collided with Yin Chuan's index finger. Yin Chuan's right index finger was unharmed. Demon King Kong exerted as much force as he could in his hand. He looked down at the long sword in his hand and then at Yin Chuan's index finger. This is impossible. This long sword had been with Demon King Kong for many years. Demon King Kong knew how terrifying it was. Even an ancestral immortal artifact would have a mark on it. However, Yin Chuan's index finger blocked it. Moreover, Yin Chuan didn't use any magic power at all. Was it just his body? Was he from the Boulder tribe? No, even the Boulder tribe couldn't have such a sturdy body. That's what I said. Yin Chuan smiled. He exerted force with his fingertip. Bang! Demon King Kong's long sword exploded into countless fragments that shot out in all directions. Demon King Kong, who had suffered the most, was forced back by Yin Chuan's finger. Thud, thud, thud. He took 7 or 8 steps back before he could stabilize himself. Impossible. How can this be? Demon King Kong exclaimed. The gorilla Kong Outyin's mouth was agape as well. One finger? One finger? Peak ancient immortal? He's just an ancient immortal after all. I've never gone back on my word. Yin Chuan said indifferently. Impossible. It's only been 5,000 years. Demon King Kong exclaimed. Demon King back down? Blind Kong said in a low voice. Elder? Demon King Kong was still a little shocked. You're no match for Yen Di. He's already an ancestral immortal. Also, if I'm not wrong, the minister beside him should be an ancestral immortal as well. Blind Kong said indifferently. What? The gorilla exclaimed. Demon King Kong was even more shocked. Ancestral immortal? How many years had it been? An ancestral immortal? Although Demon King Kong did not believe it, he did not dare to refute the elder's words. Yindi, good luck. Blind Kong laughed. Blind Kong? Hey, you have good eyesight. Yin Chuan smiled faintly. Since Demon King Kong didn't know about the firmament territory, Blind Kong definitely didn't know either. However, Blind Kong could sense that he and Gigazi were ancestral immortals. This wasn't something an ordinary person could do. Yindi, you flatter us. Demon King and Out Yin are not sensible. Please don't take offense. Blind Kong smiled. Demon King Kong was speechless. In fact, Yin Chuan was his junior. It was as if he was a junior. Yin Chuan looked at the gorilla and Demon King Kong and nodded. After all, we're connected by blood. I'm not that petty. May I know why you've come to me today? Yindi, you're a straightforward person. Since that's the case, I won't beat around the bush. I hope you can lift the curse on Kong Out Yin for the sake of our connection by blood. Blind Kong said honestly. Yin Chuan narrowed his eyes and looked at the gorilla. The gorilla and Demon King Kong still did not understand why the elder did not ask about the heavenly order. Blind Kong waited patiently. Yin Chuan shook his head and said, "You've done something wrong. Naturally, you have to be punished. Forgive me for being powerless." Powerless? What? You cursed him. Lifting the curse is just a matter of a word from you. The gorilla said anxiously. Yin, shut up. Blind Kong said in a low voice. Elder Yin Chuan, he. The gorilla did not understand. I told you to shut up. Blind Kong said in a low voice. Yes. The gorilla did not dare to say more. Blind Kong faced Yin Chuan again and said, Yindi's words are reasonable. However, humans are not saints. How can they not make mistakes? Besides, even saints make mistakes. Yin made a mistake. Yindi, on account of our connection by blood, can you give him a chance to change? Yin Chuan looked at the gorilla curiously. The gorilla was angry, but he did not dare to interrupt. Yin Chuan looked at Blind Kong strangely. What was Blind Kong's cultivation level? Yin Chuan did not know, but he could guess that someone who could see his cultivation level was definitely an ancestral immortal. And this ancestral immortal was an expert among ancestral immortals. He was not someone ordinary ancestral immortals could compare to. But such a person was going to deal with Kong Out Yin again and again? Blind Kong, it seems like you care a lot about Kong Out Yin? Yin Chuan asked in a low voice. Blind Kong smiled and said, I can't help it. The Kong family has a big matter that requires a Tao god. Kong Out Yin is currently imprisoned by the curse. Although he is still a Tao god, he is not perfect. Elder. Demon King Kong exclaimed. Could he tell them about this matter? Moreover, it was Yin Chuan. Big matter? Yin Chuan was slightly curious. Not only was he curious about this matter, but he was also curious about Blind Kong's attitude. It is a big matter. A hope for the Kong family to rise again. Not only does it require a Tao god, but it also requires the heaven-seeking token. Blind Kong said very honestly. The gorilla and Demon King Kong looked at Blind Kong blankly. Could they tell him? If they did, wouldn't Yin Chuan be even more unwilling to break the curse? Yin Chuan was Yin Chuan. Demon King Kong and Kong Out Yin could not understand him. Moreover, from Blind Kong's attitude, Yin Chuan could not only hear a hint of pleading, but also a sense of determination. He would not give up until he achieved his goal. This was a kind of burning one's boats but also a kind of honesty. Yin Chuan looked at Blind Kong. As expected of the Kong family's think tank. Shaking his head, Yin Chuan smiled and said, Kong Out Yin, you have only yourself to blame. You want to change? How to change? I haven't thought about it yet. Why don't you help me think about it? Blind Kong nodded and said calmly, Yindi's words are reasonable. It is indeed difficult to think about it in a short time. However, I have an idea. Yin Chuan asked curiously. Rumor has it that Yindi took the Zhou family's sky-burying coffin. Clearly Yindi likes this thing. Coincidentally, I also know the location of a sky-burying coffin. Let Out Yin go and take it to atone for his past sins. What do you think? Blind Kong said with a smile. Yin Chuan's expression changed slightly. In the end he smiled and said, a blind man's eyes are blind but his heart is not blind. Alright, let's take it as atonement. When you find the sky-burying coffin, you will send it to the Jinlong territory. Yindi is straightforward. This blind man thanks you. Blind Kong stood up and bowed. Yin Chuan also stood up and nodded. Although Blind Kong's words were very gentle, Yin Chuan could hear that this blind man was not ordinary. Yin Chuan naturally respected someone who could be recognized by Yin Chuan. Today's conversation with Yindi made me very emotional. Unfortunately, Yindi is only a distant relative of the Kong family. This blind man will not disturb you any longer. I will leave revered heaven territory immediately and find the sky-burying coffin for Yen Di. Blind Kong said immediately. Alright, if you have the chance in the future, you can find me in Xianyang. Yen Chuan nodded. Right, Yen Di, be careful. The Zhuo family is making a big move today. The storm is coming. Be careful. Blind Kong said before leaving. Alright. Yen Chuan nodded. Blind Kong also nodded and walked out of the hall with Demon King Kong and Kong Out Yen. Thank you for taking care of him. Hua Bing said politely. Yen Chuan looked at Hua Bing. Sage King, this is great ancestor Hua Bing. Apart from the old ancestor, he's the strongest person in the Hua clan. Hua Wuling explained. Yen Chuan shook his head and said, Hua Wuling is in great shape. He relied on his own ability. I didn't take care of him at all. Everything that he has obtained is what he deserves. Hua Bing's eyes flashed with curiosity. Yen Di, let's leave the dragon carriage here for now. The old ancestor has already arranged a seat of honor. Please. Hua Bing smiled. Yen Chuan nodded. They got off the dragon carriage. Yen Chuan followed Hua Bing in front. Gui Guzi, Yin Hentian, and Hua Wuling followed behind. As the group walked through the square, the originally noisy square suddenly became quiet. They opened up a path for Yen Chuan and his group to walk through. Countless cultivators looked at Yen Chuan with complicated expressions. Because Yen Chuan and his group were actually seated in the guest area? Was it just because he was an ancestral immortal? Many cultivators looked unconvinced, but no one dared to be impudent on the sage's birthday. Yen Chuan and his group stepped into the guest area. The experts in the guest area also looked over curiously. The guest area was divided into a total of 18 districts. In the Zhuo family district, the 16 people's expressions flickered. Some sneered, some mocked, some were solemn and some were worried. Zhuo Qing's eyes flashed with resentment. In the Benevolence Dao Lord district, Fu Su's eyes flickered. At this moment, he was holding a folding fan and gently pinching it with his right hand, as if he was hiding the agitation in his heart. Yen Chuan stepped into the guest area and looked around the 18 districts. When he saw Fu Su, he didn't show much of an expression. It flashed past as if he didn't care about Fu Su at all. Slowly he was led to his own small district. With a wave of his black robe, Yen Chuan sat down. On the table there was delicious wine and delicacies. There was everything, and there were servants beside him in charge of serving him. Gui Guzi sat at the side and said, Sage King, a quarter of the territory lords of the outer east continent are here. There is also the Zhuo family from the inner south continent. It seems that the Zhuo family is the strongest force on this trip. They have come with ill intentions. Yen Chuan nodded. Yin Hentian looked in the direction of the Zhuo family, hatred flashing in his eyes. Sage King, I will go and see the old ancestor. Mournful Transformation said respectfully. Go, it's Venerable Transformation's birthday. You are also his descendant. Don't worry about us today. Also, since you are here to congratulate, this is a gift. Yen Chuan handed over a scroll. Yes. Mournful Transformation replied. Yen Chuan of the Great Perfection Celestial Court gives Yen Chuan a handwritten scroll to congratulate the sage. Mournful Transformation raised the scroll and walked to the gift area. His own handwritten scroll? Countless cultivators looked at Yen Chuan with disdain. Isn't this gift too stingy? Not far away, Badian Territory Lord laughed at Fu Su. Ha, brother Fu Su, you and I have known each other for many years. I have seen many stingy people, but today I have seen something new. His own handwritten scroll? Aha, does he think it is the same as your sage's will? Fu Su adjusted the folding fan in his hand and shook his head slightly. Brother Qin, you are underestimating that scroll. The sage's will that I gave you is worthless compared to it. Qin Badian was slightly stunned. If you can get this scroll from the sage, I can guarantee you that it will not be long before more than half of the ancestral immortal artifacts in the world will be willing to exchange for it. Fu Su laughed. What? It's just a scroll. Qin Badian was in disbelief. Fu Su smiled and did not explain further. Gradually, the heavenly revered hall square was filled with people. There were also many who came uninvited and waited outside the heavenly revered hall square. Rumble. The door of heavenly revered hall slowly opened. In an instant, the noisy square of heavenly revered hall quieted down. Everyone looked over. The door gradually opened, and a pure white light shot out from the main hall towards everyone. For a moment, everyone who was enveloped by the white light felt a sense of comfort, as if their cultivation that had not been able to break through for many years was beginning to stir again. A white figure walked out from the white light. It was a white-robed man. He walked out slowly with a group of disciples and descendants behind him. The man's face was blurry and no one could see him clearly. However, he had a subduing aura that made everyone worship him. Greetings, sage. Countless cultivators stood up and bowed respectfully. Only a few people did not stand up. The man with the blurry face was the sage Hua Zuentian. Everyone, please take a seat, Hua Zuentian said softly. His voice was not loud, but it reached everyone's ears. Thank you, sage. Everyone sat down. This time, I am indebted to all of you for coming to my 1.5 million birthday banquet. I am eternally grateful. Hua Zuentian said gently. You are too kind, sage. We are honored. Countless polite voices came from all around. Hua Zuentian nodded his head and said, the ancient gods rushed about for the world. With the heavens above, they even benefited the common people. It's a pity that in the end, they still welcomed the great calamity of the ancient times. The heavens have already died, the heavenly Tao has collapsed, the world is in great sorrow, the world is in great suffering. When Hua Zuentian opened his mouth, the emotions of everyone around were stirred up. Before the ancient times, under the guidance of the heavens, all the heroes of the world fought for immortality, for transcendence, for everyone to be dragons. Unfortunately, when the great calamity arrived, no one could stop it. Even the heavens fell in the great calamity. The common people suffered. We only hope that when the great calamity comes again, the common people can survive. Hua Zuentian sighed slightly. Countless cultivators in the surroundings frowned. Clearly, what Hua Zuentian said now was somewhat different from the birthday celebration. It was as if he saw through everyone's doubts. Hua Zuentian took a deep breath and said, it's been 1,000,000 years. It's been a long time. Perhaps the great calamity will come again. Once it comes, none of the common people of our world will be spared. What? Countless cultivators in the surroundings revealed blank expressions. Everyone knows that I, Hua Zuentian, do not pay attention to the occasion. In the past, I have never held such a feast. This time, I have invited the heroes of the underworld's eastern continent. Of course, more than half of them were unable to come. However, to be able to come, I am already satisfied. Hua Zuentian said. Countless cultivators in the surroundings were at a loss. Could it be that it was not for the birthday celebration? Not long ago, I came into contact with the other 3 saints. I am willing to use the knowledge of us 4 saints to strengthen the world. Starting from me, we will each preach the Tao. I hope that everyone will not make this trip in vain. Hua Zuentian said solemnly. Preach the Tao? Whoa. The square of the heavenly hall suddenly exploded like a pot. Saint preaching the Tao? Saint preaching the Tao? Today? Countless cultivators revealed excited expressions. They rejoiced that they could come to the birthday celebration. One had to know that the saints were now the pinnacle existences of the world. When the saints preached the Tao, every word would be perfect. That was the cultivation experience of the saints. Saints' kindness. Saints' kindness. Excited cheers came from all directions. Chapter 1196. A Sage's Sermon? In the square of revered Heaven Hall, countless cultivators were jubilant. The cultivation experience of a sage could be immensely useful with just a few words. The guest area was jubilant. In the guest area, the 18 forces had different expressions. Some were happy while others were thoughtful. Among them, Yan Chuan revealed a thoughtful smile. Birthday? Sermon? Yan Chuan had the memories of his first life, so he naturally knew how rare a sage was. In a complete world, the number of sages was fixed. There were 9 in the world of the living and 6 in the world of the netherworld. There could only be a few. If one wanted to become a sage, one had to die to give up the position of a sage. Now that the world was damaged, there were only 4 sages in both the world of the living and the netherworld. It would be even more difficult to become a sage. And one way to become a sage was to kill a sage. Sermon, strengthen other cultivators and then kill them? Hua Zuentian was obviously not so selfless. Therefore, he used the birthday banquet as an excuse to invite the cultivators of the eastern continent. Those who could come were not evil with the sage. They were not evil and had more or less received his favor. These people would only admire him more in the future. Hua Zuentian waved his hand. All the jubilant cultivators suddenly quieted down and looked at the northernmost Hua Zuentian. In the distance, there were countless uninvited cultivators. At this moment they were also looking forward to it. Among them there were two forces who did not show any joy. One of them was a mountain forest. The emperor was standing in a secluded place with his 12 disciples. The emperor had a complicated expression as he looked at Yan Chuan in the distance. The emperor was originally comprehending the Tao at the bottom of the sea, but since Yan Chuan passed by that day, the emperor had been unable to calm down. The emperor kept reminding himself that Yan Chuan was the descendant of the enemy who killed his father and should be killed. However, for some reason he could not help but come to revered heaven territory. The 12 disciples did not know why, but they stood behind respectfully. The emperor watched quietly. In another valley there was a group of men in black. Each of them carried a long sword on their back. The leader let out a sneer. Sermon? Ha, ridiculous. In front of revered heaven hall, Hua Bing had already prepared a large praying mat for the sage. They were waiting for the sage to sit down and start the sermon. The surroundings were quiet. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Hua Zun Tian. Sage. Sage Hua Zun Tian's voice suddenly. In the Zhou clan's area, Zhu Qing stood up. Everyone raised their eyebrows. The sage is about to preach, why are you interrupting? Taoist Zhu Qing? Hua Zuntian asked doubtfully. Zhu Qing smiled and said, the purpose of the sage's preaching is to make all the cultivators in the world stronger, for the sake of all the people in the world. However, not all of the cultivators here can understand the sage's intention. Why don't the sage let everyone understand why? Hua Zuntian asked doubtfully. Zhu Qing has overstepped. Zhu Qing bowed towards Hua Zuntian. Hua Zuntian nodded. Zhu Qing walked to the center of the square. Everyone, why did the heavenly Tao of our world collapse? Why did heaven die? Do you all know where the disasters come from? Zhu Qinglang shouted. Many cultivators in the surroundings frowned and felt puzzled. Some knew but even more did not. However, where Yan Chuan was, Yin Henshin's pupils shrank. Everyone knows about the great calamity of the ancient times, Zhu Qing said. Everyone knows about that battle. Our world was turned upside down by a transcender called the Lotus God. Heroes perished, the heavenly Tao collapsed, and the high heavens died. Do you know the details? What exactly happened? Someone shouted. What happened? Let me tell everyone. First, everyone must understand one thing. Where did heaven and earth come from? Where did it come from? The surroundings were silent. Infinity gave birth to Taiji and Taiji gave birth to Yin and Yang. Taiji is our world. Our world was born from infinity. Infinity is nothingness. It is nothingness. From nothingness our current being was born. And this being was born in a total of 4 worlds. Our world is one of them. Zhu Qing explained. What? 4 worlds? For. Suddenly there was an uproar below. Many people were surprised. They thought that heaven and earth were the greatest existence. Now, there were actually 3 worlds of the same level? Everyone looked at Hua Zuntian, but Hua Zuntian nodded. The sage nodded. Obviously there was no more falsehood. The 4 worlds are also called the 4 worlds with 4 worlds. The 4 worlds with 4 worlds with 1 being the strongest and 3 being the weakest. The strongest world is always trying to annex our 3 worlds. Oh. Instead of occupying, we're going to crush the world and integrate it into the strongest world. It's like using our world as fertilizer for the strongest world to nourish their world, while crushing my world and all the living creatures and dead souls in our world to become fertilizer for the strongest world. Are you willing to do that? Zhu Qinglang shouted. Fertilizer? Living creatures and the entire world as fertilizer? Suddenly, countless cultivators felt their scalps go numb. They looked at Hua Zuntian but only nodded. It was too terrifying. 3 weak worlds formed an alliance to fight against the strongest world. Our world is also called the weakest world. We have a long way to go. In order to strengthen our world, countless ancient experts sacrificed themselves so that our world could exist forever. They were willing to sacrifice themselves for the world. They kept fighting against the demons of the strongest world. They are the heroes of our world. Zhu Qing took a deep breath and said. The surroundings were silent. Everyone clenched their fists. The heroes were outside, resisting the demons, and the heavens were responsible for protecting the world. This world is the last pure land for all of us. We can't lose it. All the heroes risked their lives to protect our home. At that time, there was the Yin family who represented the heavens to protect the world. The Yin family's power was unparalleled. No one dared to disobey the orders of the Yin family, because he represented the heavens. Zhu Qing shouted. When Zhu Qing shouted, many people recalled such a vague legend. Some people even stared at Yin Hentian, who was beside Yen Chuan. Yin Hentian's eyes were cold as he stared at Zuoqing. Haha, but no one would have thought that the Yin family would betray the heavens, betray our world, and collude with the demons of the strongest world. Yes, the Yin family colluded with the Lotus God, which caused the fall of the heavens, the collapse of the heavens, and the fall of countless experts. Even the moon in the nether world was destroyed by the Lotus God. The Yin family is a traitor to this world, a traitor to everyone. Zuoqing shouted firmly and looked at Yin Hentian. Hua Qiliang was anxious. He looked at Hua Zuonqian, wondering why the old ancestor would tolerate Zuoqing to steal the limelight on his birthday. Zuoqing looked at Yin Hentian. Everyone looked at Yin Hentian as well. The Yin family caused the fall of the heavens, the collapse of the heavens, and the loss of our world's dreams. They colluded with the Lotus God and betrayed our world. In the end, the Lotus God retreated and the Yin family was hunted down by thousands of sections. Should we kill the Yin family? Zuoqing looked at everyone. We should kill them. Suddenly many cultivators shouted. If we don't kill them, we won't be able to appease public anger. If we don't kill them, we won't be able to appease the heavens. If we don't kill them, we will be letting down all the experts who fell in the great ancient calamity. Moreover, during that battle, the Lotus God had not yet transcended. It was because of the bloody massacre of our world that the Lotus God had the opportunity to transcend. Finally, he transcended and became immortal. Zuoqing said, killing the world to prove immortality? Many people know that the Zuo family and the Yin family have a great enmity. The Zuo family hates that we can't eat their flesh, drink their blood, break their bones, and sleep on their skin. It is because of them that our world is so bleak. The Yin family has suffered countless casualties, but there is one right in front of us. Yin Hentian, how long do you want to hide? Traitor, are you worthy of the heavens' trust? Just a few months ago, you colluded with Yen Chuan to rob the heavenly corpse coffin. Yin Hentian, do you know your crime? Zuoqing shouted. The shout seemed to have aroused everyone's anger. They all stared at Yin Hentian. Today, I will kill you in front of everyone in the world to appease the heavens. To comfort the world. Zuoqing shouted. At this moment, after a long reprimand, the killing of Yin Hentian was inevitable. Ha, Zuoqing, what a shameless Zuo family. Yin Hentian laughed angrily. The surrounding cultivators fell silent. Yin Hentian stood up and bowed to Yen Chuan. Yen Chuan nodded. Yin Hentian also stepped forward. Sage, I don't know how your relationship with the Zuo clan has reached this stage after 1,000,000 years. You actually allowed the Zuo clan to seek revenge on your birthday. Yin Hentian questioned. Hua Zuonqian did not answer. This time, when we came to celebrate the birthday, we wanted to wait until the end to ask the sage to make the decision to clear the Yin family's name. But now, it seems that the sage can't distinguish between right and wrong. Even if we announce our innocence to the world, we won't be able to get justice? Yin Hentian said in a deep voice. Haha, innocence? It's been 1,000,000 years. Your Yin family didn't say anything 1,000,000 years ago. Now you're saying you're innocent? Zuoqing sneered. The sage looked at Yin Hentian and said, innocent? Can you prove the Yin family's innocence? If I say we're innocent, I naturally have evidence. 1,000,000 years? That's because I didn't get the chance. Sage, before you became a sage, you went through an ancient calamity. You were one of the 360 overgods of the heavens and resisted the attack of the strongest demons. Do you still remember the tragedy of that year? Do you want to give justice to the heavens? Don't you want to talk nonsense now? Yin Hentian said solemnly. I have received countless favors from the heavens. Today, if you have evidence, you can take it out. If you can really prove the Yin family's innocence, I will give you justice. The sage said solemnly. Zuoqing sneered. Back then, thousands of sects forced the Yin family. At that time, the Yin family head did not have evidence to prove their innocence. Now, 1,000,000 years had passed. What evidence could he have? Chapter 1197. Countless cultivators looked at the three people at the front of the square. They were the sage, Zuoqing, and Yin Hentian. It was time for Yin Hentian to take out the evidence to prove the Yin clan's innocence. Yin Hentian stared at Zuoqing and said, since you have mentioned the great ancient calamity, why don't you make it clear? Zuoqing raised an eyebrow. Yin Hentian looked at all the cultivators around him and took a deep breath. Everyone, I, Yin Hentian, have stepped forward today. I will not run away from what happened in the past. Please be my Yin clan's witness. If my Yin clan is really innocent, please spread the word of mouth and tell the world about the injustice that my Yin clan has suffered for 1,000,000 years. As he spoke, Yin Hentian bowed to everyone. This bow calmed the anger of the countless cultivators in the surroundings. Ah, why don't you say it? Zuoqing sneered. Yin Hentian looked at Hua Zuanqian. Heaven is dead. You 4 sages and 2 heavenly emperors should take responsibility for the world. Please correct me. Yin Hentian took a deep breath and said. But the sage nodded. 4 worlds. 3 weak worlds fought against the strongest world. Where did they fight back? It was at a place called Heavens Beyond. There were many heroes of our world there. They threw away their lives and fought for our world, for our home. No, if they went to Heavens Beyond, they would die. It was just a matter of time. However, they did not hesitate. They could have enjoyed everything in this world, but they still went to Heavens Beyond. Am I right? Yin Hentian said solemnly. That's right. The battlefield of the 4 worlds is at Heavens Beyond. The sage nodded. Countless cultivators around were confused. Heavens Beyond? Originally, our world had an entrance to the Heavens Beyond battlefield. Am I right? Yin Hentian said. That's right. There are only 2 ways for the Lotus God to enter our world. The first way is to enter the Heavens Beyond battlefield. The second way is to pass through Wuxia and enter our world from the void. However, the void is not a place for humans to live. After a long time, one would be turned into nothingness and disappear. However, at that time, our heroes were guarding the entrance to Heavens Beyond. Hence, the Lotus God came through Wuxia and paid a huge price. The Lotus God's body was turned into nothingness. Yin Hentian explained. Countless cultivators around listened attentively. That's right. The sage nodded. When she first entered our world, the Lotus God was extremely weak. The power of our world is different from that of the Lotus God's cultivation. The Lotus God managed to recover some of her strength, but it was impossible for her to overturn the entire world. To overturn the world, the Lotus God needed the power of the strongest world. But who would have thought that the Lotus God had a spatial gate that could cross space and connect to the strongest world? In the strongest world, the Lotus God had prepared an endless amount of power. Once it reached our world, it would cross space to obtain it. Yin Hentian said. Worry appeared on the faces of countless cultivators in the surroundings. Spatial power? Perhaps other cultivators might not be able to sense it, but the heavens are mysterious. She understands the power of space and instantly sensed that something was wrong. At that time, she quickly asked my Yin family to gather 360 top experts in the world to set up a skylock array to seal the void and cut off the space door of the Lotus God. This made it so that the Lotus God's power could not enter this world, said Yin Hentian. That's right. The heavens did it back then. The sage nodded. They did it? The Lotus God might have been killed by the heavens in this world. My Yin family was responsible for passing down the orders of the heavens. Everything was done in an orderly manner. However, something happened when the 360 top experts set up the array. The sealing of space and time failed. Yin Hentian said hatefully. Ah, that's right. It failed. Your Yin family colluded with the Lotus God. This skylock array did not follow the instructions of the heavens at all. Zuoqing interrupted. The surrounding cultivators raised their eyebrows. However, Yin Hentian revealed a cold smile and said, Zuoqing, I have not finished speaking. Why are you in such a hurry? The skylock array was passed down by the heavens. It would definitely be able to block the Lotus God before she transcended. If your Yin family did not set up the array wrongly, would such a thing have happened? Zuoqing sneered. The truth is not something you can slander. Yin Hentian shook his head. Let's see how you explain this. Zuoqing said coldly. Yin Hentian looked around and then at the sage. Sage, you know that of the 360 top experts, my Yin family had 36. In the end, more than half of the 360 experts were killed by the Lotus God. My Yin family's 36 people all died. How could my Yin family allow one of our own to be killed? Ha! The sage's tone turned grave. The surrounding cultivators also revealed confused expressions. Who told you to believe the Lotus God? The Lotus God went back on her words. All your efforts were for naught. Zuoqing said viciously. Ah! Yin Hentian sneered. Someone did collude with the Lotus God. However, it was not my Yin family. Back then, everything was fine in the skylock array. However, something happened at one of the nodes. Someone must have colluded with the Lotus God because the 360 experts under the skylock array were all protected by the heavens. No one could hurt them. Even the weak Lotus God back then could not do it. However, something happened. Someone colluded with the Lotus God. Who was it? Who was it? It has been 1 million years. My Yin family has been investigating for too long. Countless disciples died, but we could not find anything. Yin Hentian said with a bitter smile. Keep making things up. Zhuoqing sneered. The sky lock array collapsed, and the Lotus God's evil plan succeeded. Surging evil energy surged, and the Lotus God regained her strength. She destroyed the world, killed countless experts, and destroyed the sun of the netherworld. It could be said that the Lotus God was the only one who collapsed. When the heroes of outer heaven received the news and rushed back, the heavenly Tao had already collapsed. The world's essence energy was greatly damaged, and the Lotus God was forced away. However, the heavens were not dead at that time. Yin Hentian said. What? Wasn't the Lotus God the one who killed the heavens? Countless cultivators looked at the sage in shock. The sage nodded and said, That's right. At that time the heavens were not dead. After the heavenly Tao collapsed, the heavens fell into a weakened state. They survived for hundreds of years before falling completely. The surrounding cultivators looked at the sage in shock. Since the sage spoke naturally, it would not be false. It turned out that there was such a secret behind this. Perhaps everyone does not know this, but the heavenly human palace in the firmament territory used to be where the corpse of the heavens was placed. Yin Hentian said with a bitter smile. The heavens? Back then, cultivators were mysterious. They advanced to the heavens and controlled the heavens. However, they were not controlled by their physical bodies but by their primordial spirits. The primordial spirits became the heavens, and when the primordial spirits left the body, they left behind the corpse. The corpse remained in the heavenly human palace. The surrounding territories are called Reverence Heaven Territory, Reverence Heaven Territory, Rights Heaven Territory, and Reverence Heaven Territory. They were all believers of the heavens back then. Sage, your name was also changed because you feared the heavens back then, right? Yin Hentian asked with a smile. Reverence Heaven? Reverence Heaven? Countless cultivators in the surroundings immediately revealed shocked expressions. Really? Before the sage could speak, Qin Badian, who was sitting beside Fu Su in the guest area, suddenly said, That's right. I can testify that my ancestor once told me that the surrounding territories used to be the most loyal believers of the heavens. My ancestor also requested that if anyone from the Qin family became the new ruler of the Reverence Heaven Territory, he would change his name to Qin Badian. He would forever believe in the heavens and worship the heavens. As Qin Badian spoke, everyone looked at the sage. That's right. I am indebted to the heavens for taking care of me back then. The sage nodded. Back then the heavenly Tao collapsed, and the heaven's vitality was greatly damaged. No, its foundation was damaged. It bitterly held on for a few hundred years, sometimes in a coma, sometimes awake. During these few hundred years, the Zhuo family appeared and provoked the world to kill the Yin family. They said that the Yin family colluded with the Lotus God and betrayed the heavens. They invited the world to kill the Yin family. Is that right? Yin Hentian looked at Zhuoqing. Colluding with the Lotus God? You should have expected this outcome. Zhuoqing said coldly. Yin Hentian looked at Hua Zuanqian and bowed respectfully to him. Thanks to Saint's righteousness back then, thousands of sects hunted us down. The believers of heaven were the craziest group of people. Only you, Saint, did not kill them all. The Yin family thanks you. I was also injured back then. There was nothing I could do. The sage shook his head. But in the end you did not pursue my Yin family. Otherwise I might not be standing here now. Yin Hentian smiled bitterly. Yin Hentian turned to look at Zhuoqing and said, Zhuo family? You were just a servant of my Yin family back then, but you betrayed your master. What a vicious heart. My Yin family has treated the Zhuo family well for so many years, but who would have thought that we raised an ingrate bastard colluding with the Lotus God? Everyone has the right to kill you. You still expect my Zhuo family to wallow in the mire with you? Zhuoqing said coldly. Yin Hentian did not look at Zhuoqing. Instead, he looked at the surrounding cultivators and said, Too many things happened in those few hundred years. The heavens were sometimes awake and sometimes unconscious. My Yin family did not participate in many things, so we are not clear about it. I only learned some news recently, and it was sealed by the large sects and families. Now I will announce it to everyone. I believe that this news is more important than countless cultivation secret techniques. Blood curse. Many of the surrounding cultivators were confused. As for the ancestral immortals, their expressions changed. They looked at the sage. The sage did not stop him. When the heavens woke up, it gathered all the ancestral immortals and placed a huge curse. The number of ancestral immortals in the world was fixed. Everyone's fate was cursed. Only by killing the ancestral immortals could the curse be lifted and one could advance to the ancestral immortal realm. Inhentian said. What? The surrounding cultivators were shocked. Only by killing the ancestral immortals can one advance to the ancestral immortal realm. There is no secret technique. There is only one way, kill. Sage, am I right? Inhentian looked at the sage. The surrounding ancient immortals were excited as they stared at the sage. Countless ancient immortals had been searching for a way to advance to the ancestral immortal realm. Some of them were even willing to join the big families as slaves just to find a way to advance to the ancestral immortal realm. It was actually this? The sage was in a difficult position. Sage, the will of the heavens is for the world to become stronger. However, if the tyrants seal off the news, how can they face the will of the heavens? You are the heavens. Please respect the will of the heavens. Inhentian said solemnly. After a moment of silence, the sage finally nodded. That's right. Wow. On the square, the ancient immortals were in an uproar. There were even some ancient immortals who were crying tears of joy. Killing the ancestral immortals was difficult. It was indeed difficult. However, there was always hope. It was better than no hope at all. Instantly, the countless ancient immortals looked at Inhentian. At least they did not hate him as much as before. Zhuoqing's face turned ugly. Inhentian was challenging the bottom line of the wealthy families in the world. If this news were to spread, the world would definitely be in an uproar. Was he crazy? Yes, he was a lunatic. It was good that only he knew this. Why did he have to say it out loud? Didn't he see that none of the ancestral immortals in the world were willing to tell him? Everyone. Inhentian shouted again. The excited ancient immortals stopped talking. At least, they continued to listen to the hope that Inhentian had brought to them. In those few hundred years, the heavens were dying. My Yin family was being hunted down endlessly. However, Zhuo family, do you think that the Zhuo family can replace my Yin family? Did the heavens trust you? Inhentian looked at Zhuoqing. Zhuoqing's face darkened. Around them, countless cultivators were deep in thought. At that time, the heavens were so weak that they often fainted. They could not make arrangements for the world. When the Zhuo family launched the war to destroy the Yin family, the heavens did not trust the Zhuo family. They were buried by goddess Ji-Chen in 9 heaven-burying coffins. This is not the heaven's corpse coffin, but the corpse coffin of a peerless expert. The Zhuo family used this as an excuse to put it in the heavenly human palace. It was to confuse the public and achieve their hidden goal. There must be someone there at that time. I have already exposed them on the spot. Inhentian said. After he finished speaking, the surrounding cultivators looked at Yan Chuan again. Their original anger suddenly faded. At least, this was not the heaven's corpse coffin. Yan Chuan's guilt immediately lessened. Zhuoqing's eyes flickered. It did not matter whether they succeeded in convicting Yan Chuan or not. The key was Inhentian. He was too good at talking. He had not even taken out evidence to prove his innocence, but the surrounding cultivators no longer hated him. In the past, the world was in a bleak state. 9 peerless experts perished. However, there were still demons that constantly entered our world through the entrance of the sky beyond heaven. Goddess Ji-Chen was kind. She sacrificed herself and used her own primordial spirit to mend the entrance of the sky beyond heaven. She used her body to mend the sky beyond heaven. Goddess Ji-Chen sacrificed herself for the sake of the people of the world and isolated the sky beyond heaven. She was revered by the people of the world. However, did you know that there were many heroes in the sky beyond heaven who were isolated and without help? Countless cultivators clenched their fists. For a moment, Inhentian seemed to have stolen the limelight. This made countless cultivators think of the ancient experts. Everyone, you said that I, the Holy King, stole the heaven's corpse coffin. However, this is no longer the heaven's corpse coffin. On the contrary, it was used by evil people. You are helping evil people. Inhentian said. Immediately, some of the surrounding cultivators lowered their heads. However, even more people insisted on their own thoughts. Some people do not believe it. Some people have forgotten their roots. If anyone goes to the Yang world, they will know that not long ago, many people went to the Yang world to destroy Goddess Ji-Chen's tomb. Goddess Ji-Chen's corpse was found there. It was the Holy King, the old demon Yen you all speak of. It was he who protected Goddess Ji-Chen's corpse and reburied it. For the world to remember. Is such a person the old demon you all speak of? I feel that he is more noble than some people. Inhentian shouted. What? The surrounding cultivators immediately discussed. I also testify. Desolation Hua suddenly said. The Holy King looked at Desolation Hua and did not refute. For a moment, countless cultivators no longer looked at Yan Chuan with the same hatred as before. Chapter 1198. After talking for so long, where's your evidence? You were the one who picked the 360 top experts to set up the array. Do you want to frame them? 1,000,000 years ago you didn't even succeed. Now you want to frame them? Zuoqing sneered. Frame them? Haha, if my Yin family didn't do anything for the world, how could we be authorized by the heavens? Yin Hentian laughed. Yin Hentian suddenly looked at the sage. Sage, do you still remember Yin Jiqing, the family head who set up the array? Yin Hentian asked solemnly. Yes, before the ancient calamity, Yin Jiqing and I drank and chatted many times. Unfortunately. The sage sighed. Unfortunately, haha, my ancestor met with such a calamity and was spurned by the world. My ancestor was able to rule the world in the past and was naturally very powerful. Although he wasn't a sage, he had few opponents below the sage level. He was chased by thousands of sects but did not fight back once. Do you know why? Yin Henshin's eyes were slightly red. Why? The sage was puzzled. My ancestor, Yin Jiqing, had a heart of sincerity to the heavens and earth. He was selfless, doing everything for the sake of the heavens and earth. Back then he was spurned by the heavens and earth, yet he wasn't willing to harm any of the sections. He wanted to preserve the seeds of hope for the world. But in the end, my ancestor died of depression. Some people who believed in Yin Hentian were affected by his words. An ancestor could die of depression. How much faith did he have in the world? How much affection did he have for the world? Sigh. The sage sighed as if he felt sorry for Yin Jiqing. Humph, Yin Hentian, don't be hypocritical. I don't care how Yin Jiqing died, but he colluded with the Lotus God and was despised by the world. He deserved it. Zuoqing said in a low voice. Deserved it? Your ancestor was just a beggar picked up by my ancestor from a mass grave. It was my ancestor who gave your Zuo family hope to survive. It was also my ancestor who created your Zuo family. In the end, you betrayed me and now you say that my ancestor deserved it? Yin Hentian said with hatred in his eyes. Back to the topic, where's the evidence? Zuoqing shouted irritably. Yin Hentian stretched out his hand. Quang. A huge block of ice suddenly fell on the square. No, it was an ice coffin. Sealed within the ice coffin was a corpse in green. The corpse's face was filled with pity. He opened his arms and was sealed in the ice coffin. The saint took a deep breath and subconsciously took a step back. Most people didn't see this step because almost everyone's eyes were fixed on the male corpse in the ice coffin. Only a few people saw this subtle scene. Among them, there was Yan Chuan who had been sitting at the side the entire time. When Yan Chuan saw Huazun Tian suddenly take a small step back, his pupils suddenly shrank. Who is this? Zuoqing asked in a low voice. Sage, can you please tell everyone here who the male corpse in the coffin is? Yin Hentian took a step forward and asked. Yin Jiqing? Yin Jiqing's corpse? It has been close to 1,000,000 years, and it has actually been carried by your Yin clan's people all this while? The saint said in a deep voice. Yin Jiqing? Instantly the crowd was in an uproar. Was this the legendary Yin Jiqing who had colluded with the Lotus Goddess? Countless cultivators immediately widened their eyes. At this moment, Zuoqing was also shocked. Zuoqing had never seen Yin Jiqing before, but she had heard of his name. In that generation he was a figure who commanded the world. With one command all sects had to listen to him. Even the saints and heavenly emperors responded to Yin Jiqing's words. Zuoqing's body swayed, but she forced herself to calm down. Humph, Yin Jiqing couldn't even prove his innocence when he was alive. How can a corpse prove his innocence? Zuoqing pretended to be calm. Yin Hentian, why did you take Yin Jiqing's corpse? The saint became anxious for the first time. Yin Hentian revealed a bitter smile. He shook his head and said, my ancestor has been sincere all his life. I didn't expect that he would die of depression in the end. As he spoke, Yin Hentian looked at all the cultivators around him. He bowed solemnly to all the cultivators. Everyone, next I will prove my Yin clan's innocence. Please watch carefully and bear witness for me. Please promote my Yin clan's innocence. Yin Hentian said solemnly. If the Yin clan is innocent, I will promote it. I will repay the favor of you telling me about the bloodbath curse. Someone in the crowd immediately shouted. That person's shout was both abrupt and not abrupt at the same time. Many people here felt the same way because of that person's gaze. Although the bloodbath curse was worthless, none of the ancestral immortals in the world were willing to tell him about it. None of the noble clans were willing to tell him about it. This was a glimmer of hope, the hope of all the ancient immortals in the world. No matter what the result was, all the ancient immortals owed Hentian a favor. Hentian felt somewhat moved as he bowed to the crowd again. Following that, Hentian erected the ice coffin. Ancestor, I Hentian will fulfill your final wish. I am named Hentian, not because I hate the heavens but because I hate all the ungrateful people in the world. Hentian said solemnly. Boom. Hentian threw a palm strike at the ice coffin. The ice coffin suddenly shattered, revealing Zicheng's corpse. Hentian, what are you doing? The sage asked in a low voice. Back then, my ancestor died of depression. He instructed us to prove his innocence in front of the world. He couldn't defend himself even if he wanted to. Everything he said was groundless and there was no evidence. However, nothing is absolute in this world. My ancestor placed a curse on fate, a curse on one's heart. Hentian said. Art-seeking curse? Zicheng raised an eyebrow. Art-seeking curse? You know about it? The heart-seeking curse is to let fate judge one's merits and demerits. At the cost of destroying one's soul, one's merits and demerits will appear in one's heart. Someone shouted. What? Countless people looked at Zicheng in shock. Did he not even want the chance to reincarnate? Was his heart dead? At this moment, the sage's body trembled slightly. My ancestor served justice his whole life. In the end, even when he was being hunted down, he was unwilling to harm the world. He was unwilling to do anything. In the end, his soul was destroyed. As a descendant, the only thing I can do today is to prove my ancestor's innocence. Hentian smiled bitterly. Hentian stretched out his finger and drew a line across Zicheng's chest. His clothes were torn apart, revealing his inner chest. Hentian, you want to destroy your ancestor's corpse? The heart-seeking curse will shatter the heart and dissipate it after 2 hours. What an unfilial descendant. Zicheng sneered. Corpse. My ancestor had a clear conscience, but he was framed and died of depression. His greatest wish was to prove his innocence. Today, if my ancestor was still alive, he would definitely agree with me to dig out his heart to prove his innocence. Hentian said. With that, in front of everyone, he drew a line across Zicheng's chest with his index finger. A wound appeared. Perhaps because Zicheng had been dead for millions of years, his blood had frozen and no blood flowed out. His chest melted and suddenly, a white light emerged from his chest. Everyone's eyes widened. Why was there light in his chest? Hentian stretched out his hand and slowly pulled out the glowing object. It was Zicheng's heart. The weak blood vessels were quickly broken. Zicheng's heart was dug out by Hentian. It wasn't bright red but white and transparent. Within the transparency there was white light. Moreover, there were 7 holes in the heart. Heart of 7 orifices? Someone exclaimed. This is the heart of 7 orifices? Those with the heart of 7 orifices were upright and plain-spoken throughout their lives. All of them were honest gentlemen. They are virtuous. Someone shouted. This is a transparent heart of 7 orifices? This is even more flawless than the heart of 7 orifices. Another person shouted. Zicheng's face turned ugly. Yan Chuan noticed that the sage's right pinky was trembling slightly. Ancestor, there is no need for the heart-seeking curse. With just the heart of 7 orifices, who would dare to say anything about you? Hentian looked at the transparent heart in his palm and cried. Who knows if it's true or not? Zicheng suddenly interrupted. Suddenly Hentian's eyes were filled with hatred. In the surroundings, many cultivators already believed in Hentian. The heart of 7 orifices was already sufficient. Now there was even the heart-seeking curse. Under this curse, the purer one's heart was, the fewer blemishes they would have. Could it be that Zicheng's entire life was without blemishes? Was the clan really wrong back then? Wronged? What a great injustice. Discussions continued in the surroundings. Who knows if it's true? A transparent heart? How can there be such a saint in the world? A flawless life? This must be fake. Zicheng shouted. At this moment, Zicheng was getting more and more irritated. Many of the cultivators in the surroundings had changed their attitudes. Looking at Zicheng, they were also annoyed. Hentian sneered and said, This time I will naturally convince you wholeheartedly. Under the curse of my ancestor, all his memories have been sealed in his heart. Sage, my ancestor was your best friend when he was alive. Come and read his memories and prove my family's innocence. The sage paused and hesitated. Zuoqing's eyes were filled with uncertainty. Suddenly she looked at the sage. The sage took a deep breath and was about to agree. Wait. Yan Chuan suddenly shouted. Many cultivators in the surroundings were puzzled. Yan Chuan looked at the sage and smiled. Then he looked at the Zuo clan and sneered. Prove the sage? I don't think we need to trouble the sage. Yan Chuan smiled. What? Many people in the surroundings were puzzled. Since Yin Jiqing's memories are sealed in this heart, there must be a lot of cultivation experiences inside. How about this? Let's hang this heart in the air and let everyone use their consciousness to read the memories at the same time. How about that? Yan Chuan said. What? Zuoqing was shocked. The sage also looked at Yan Chuan in shock. The eyes of the surrounding cultivators lit up. The memories of an ancient expert? Read. Everyone was looking forward to it. Under the heart-seeking curse, the heart of 7 orifices is flawless. It seems that Yin Jiqing is indeed a virtuous person. There is nothing that he can't tell others. Since that's the case, let's let everyone see Yin Jiqing's past to prove his innocence. Everyone, no matter what you get, please spread the news to hundreds of cultivators of the same level. Yan Chuan shouted. Countless cultivators naturally agreed. Yin Hentian thought about it. Although many of the Yin clan's secrets might be exposed, so what if they were secrets now? He was the only one left in the Yin clan. Alright. Apart from the Zuo clan, everyone can use their consciousness to check the memories. Everyone, please help my Yin clan. Yin Hentian threw the heart into the air. Whoosh. Countless cultivators quickly used their consciousness to check the transparent heart of 7 orifices. Boom. Memories quickly filled everyone's mind. There were too many memories, so it was impossible for them to remember everything. It was like a fast-forwarded camera that played continuously. There were many cultivation techniques and experiences that couldn't be seen completely. But even so, many cultivators still gained a lot. Yin Jiqing's life was gradually revealed in front of everyone. Everyone was reading the memories. Many people's faces turned solemn. This was a selfless act for the world. This was an incomprehensible noble sentiment. Many cultivators even felt like worshipping him at this moment. How could there be such a virtuous person in the world? What are you doing? Not far away, Zuoqing suddenly shouted angrily. The Zuo clan looked at Yan Chuan angrily. I've already said that everyone can see it except for the Zuo clan. If I show you Yin Jiqing's life, it will be a stain on Yin Jiqing. Yan Chuan said coldly. Countless cultivators in the surroundings closed their eyes and recalled this memory. For a moment, the evil aura on some cultivators' bodies seemed to have lessened. There were also Xiozha who suddenly had a breakthrough in their cultivation as their realms increased. Many people suddenly became pious, as if they were touched by Yin Jiqing's moral integrity. After a while, finally someone opened his eyes. A cultivator bowed solemnly to Yin Hentian and said, Mr. Yin, I am sure that Yin Jiqing was wronged in the past. Such a virtuous person with a lifetime of merits and demerits was actually slandered to the point of death. How sad. I have received such a great favor and will do my best to clear the name of the Yin clan. Thank you. Yin Hentian knelt down with tears in his eyes. Mr. Yin, I have wronged you previously. I will testify for the Yin clan in the future. The Zuo clan is a despicable person. How dare you talk nonsense here? The Zuo clan is a despicable person. Suddenly many people shouted. Sage, that heart of 7 orifices is fake. Yin Hentian deliberately faked it to deceive everyone. Am I right? Tell everyone that this is fake. This heart of 7 orifices is also fake. Zuoqing shouted anxiously. Fake. Many people naturally did not believe that it was fake. However, there were a few people who suddenly suspected that Yin Jiqing's moral integrity was too perfect. Was there really such a person? Was it intentional? The sage was silent for a while. It's fake, right? Zuoqing revealed an undetectable sinister smile. It was as if the sage's words were the final word. Around them, many people already believed that it was real. If the sage were to say that it was fake, not only would he not be able to convince the crowd, he might even cause the cultivators who were on good terms with the sage to lose their confidence in him. It's true. Yin Jiqing was wronged. The sage finally spoke. Wow. The crowd burst into an uproar again. Old ancestor, did you hear that? Your innocence has been proven. The sage has personally testified to it. Yin Hentian suddenly cried out in grief. Zuoqing looked at the sage in surprise. It was as if he could not believe that the sage was not on his side. Ka. In the distance, the heart of 7 orifices that was suspended in the air suddenly cracked. It was as if he had heard the result and felt gratified that his innocence had been proven. However, he could not escape the death of the curse in the end. The noise suddenly stopped as everyone looked quietly at the heart of 7 orifices that was about to disappear. Chapter 1199. Crack, 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 crack. More and more cracks appeared on the transparent heart of 7 orifices. White mist emerged from the cracks as the heart of 7 orifices slowly dissipated. The white mist scattered in all directions. All the cultivators who came into contact with it were shocked. My hidden injuries? My hidden injuries are healed? Someone exclaimed. Mine too. How can a wound to the primordial spirit be healed? We will never forget the kindness of the Yin clan. Countless cultivators looked at the dissipating heart of 7 orifices with gratitude. Ancestor, although the Yin clan has been annihilated, we are proud of you. We have no regrets. Yin Hentian knelt before the dissipating heart of 7 orifices and wept. Countless people started to mourn for Yin Jiqing. No one could stop the dissipation of the heart of 7 orifices. Even the sages sighed. The heart of 7 orifices became smaller and smaller. Gradually, it turned into white mist and dissipated. Just as it was about to dissipate, a sorrowful sigh came from the white mist. There is no hope for transcendence. I only hope that everyone in the world can live. The voice was hoarse, but it was filled with endless hope. Even in death, Yin Jiqing did not forget about the world. In an instant, many emotional female cultivators' eyes turned red. Senior, don't worry. I will help you spread the news and prove the Yin clan's innocence. Many people said sorrowfully. Zuoqing clenched her fists. Her eyes were filled with uncertainty. The sage's words stirred the emotions of many people. Although Zuoqing was angry, she could only suppress it. Yin Hentian stood up and took out a coffin. He placed Yin Jiqing's corpse into the coffin slowly. Looking at Zuoqing, Yin Hentian said to Yin Jiqing's corpse in the coffin, Ancestor, don't worry. We will take back what our Yin clan has lost. Your grandson is unfilial and can only bring you along temporarily. One day, I will bury you in the Yin clan's ancestral grave. Zuoqing snorted coldly. When Zuoqing returned to her district, several experts of the Zhuo clan were discussing among themselves. If Yin Hentian doesn't die, our Zhuo clan will never have peace. That's right. Most people would not care about what happened a million years ago. Who cares about who is right and who is wrong? At most, they were just a group of people who had received a favor. As long as Yin Hentian is dead, everything will return to normal. Yes, as long as Yin Hentian doesn't die, he will definitely continue to stir up trouble. In fact, he might even cause some of the ancient sects to reconsider the matters of the past. However, if Yin Hentian dies, no one will care about what happened in the past. Yin Hentian must die. The group of Yin family's experts continued to discuss in low voices, their eyes filled with determination. The sage looked at Yin Hentian and finally sighed. Yendi. The sage looked at Yen Chuan. Yen Chuan looked at the sage. As soon as the sage spoke, the discussions in the surroundings stopped abruptly. Yendi, Yin Jiqing is indeed innocent, but what you did a few months ago was indeed a little too much. The sage said in a deep voice. Yen Chuan raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, Past? May I know what the sage is talking about? Gui Guzi and Yin Henshin's faces suddenly darkened. Not far away, Zuoqing revealed a gloating expression. The sage pointed at the sky-burying coffin that Yen Chuan had taken out earlier and said, No matter what, the sky-burying coffin was placed in the heavenly human palace that day. This coffin already symbolizes the sky corpse coffin. You should not have taken it out. The surrounding cultivators raised their eyebrows. Should not have taken it out? Previously, Yin Hentian had already proven that this was not the sky corpse coffin. However, if the sage said that it was, no one could refute it. After all, the sage was right. Although it was not the sky corpse coffin, since it was placed in the heavenly human palace, it symbolized the sky corpse coffin. That's right. Hand over the sky corpse coffin. Zuoqing sneered. However, Yen Chuan narrowed his eyes and stared at the sage. From the start, Yen Chuan felt that something was wrong with the sage. He seemed to be biased toward the Zhuo family. If not for Yin Henshin's irrefutable evidence, which caused the surrounding cultivators to side with Yin Hentian, the sage might not have proven Yin Jiqing's innocence. Now the sage was targeting Shaoqin? Ha! What a symbolic meaning. Could it be that placing a corpse in the heavenly human palace can represent the sky corpse coffin? Yen Chuan's expression suddenly sank as he rebutted. The sage? So what? Yen Chuan still did not compromise. Hua Qiliang and Yin Henshin's expressions tensed, showing worry. However, the surrounding cultivators looked at Yen Chuan in surprise. Is this person crazy? Is he talking to the sage like this? Gue Guzi stood beside Yen Chuan, determination flashing in his eyes. So what if he is a sage? In his first life, Gue Guzi had followed the Sage King to the Great Thousand Realms. He had also been a sage. The Sage King's will would never change because of others. The Sky Corpse coffin will not tolerate blasphemy. Yen Di, please conduct yourself with dignity, the sage said. Zhuqing, who was at the side, revealed an excited smile. Zhuqing understood that the sage was trying to make up for his earlier denial. Those who value others should conduct themselves with dignity. Sage, you should not interfere in my matters. Today, I am here to celebrate your birthday. Please do not make everyone unhappy. Yen Chuan said sullenly. The sage was about to say something when a voice suddenly interrupted. Ha! Those who value others should conduct themselves with dignity. Well said, venerated Hua, did you hear that? Those who value others should conduct themselves with dignity. Not everyone can see your intentions. The Zhuo clan? Rumor has it that you did not care about the Zhuo clan in the past. Unexpectedly, you are working so hard for the Zhuo clan's personal grudge. You are the sage of the world. When did you become the Zhuo clan sage? Ah! Loud laughter rang out. If Yen Chuan's earlier words were rebutting the sage, then this voice was slapping the sage's face. Who was so bold? Nearly everyone turned their heads to look. They saw a group of black-robed men standing in a valley outside the heavenly venerate palace's plaza. All of them carried swords on their backs. Whoosh! The group of people lifted their black robes, revealing their faces. There was a surge of sword chi between their eyebrows. The leader was even more so. His two green eyebrows looked like two bronze longswords and the sword chi rushed out. The one who spoke was the leader. The man was dressed in a green robe, and his eyes flashed with a surge of battle intent. He took a step forward and suddenly, stone swords emerged from the ground around his feet. Rumble. With this step, the stone swords emerged from the man's feet all the way to the heavenly venerate palace's plaza. Who is it? Who is this? What a powerful sword chi. My sword is shaking uncontrollably. Suddenly, countless cultivators clutched their long swords with a look of surprise. Dugupadian? The sage said in a deep voice. The Dugu clan of the southern continent? Patriarch? The world's #1 sword. Dugupadian? Astonishment filled the air. Duguposhan's face was cold and he sneered. That's right, Huazun Tian. It has been many years since we last met. Compared to back then, you have disappointed me. Disappointed? Ah, if you are, then why did you come to my training ground? The sage said in a deep voice. Dugupadian said arrogantly, I'm here to borrow your position as a saint. In other words, I'm here to borrow your karmic position of heaven and earth. Countless cultivators in the surroundings were speechless. Sage position? How dare you? The sage was finally angry. It's not that easy to be a sage, especially the sage of the Zhuo clan. Ah, Huazun Tian, do you still remember the promise? No one has ever broken their promise to me, Dugupadian. Those who have broken their promises have all died under my sword. Sage? Dugupadian sneered. As he spoke, the long sword in his hand suddenly pierced forward. Whoosh! The tip of the sword tore a crack in the void. A sword-shaped crack in the void pierced toward the sage. The sage immediately struck out with his palm. Boom! A huge explosion rang out. A storm suddenly appeared in Heaven Exalt Palace's plaza, and a large amount of space shattered. For a time, the surrounding cultivators were knocked around by the shockwaves. Only the ancestral immortals were unscathed. Dugupadian, follow me. The sage shouted angrily. Whoosh! The sage flew into the sky. Dugupadian sneered and chased after him. The sage versus the #1 sword under the heavens. Quick, let's go take a look. A large number of cultivators chased after them. After all, this was a sage's training ground. The sage did not want to destroy his training ground and injure his disciples. That was why he moved the battlefield. However, a battle between sages represented a future goal. Who would be willing to miss it? The #1 sword under the heavens? A sage? The battle would definitely be earth-shattering. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the cultivators in Heaven Exalt Palace's plaza had left. As for the other Dugu clan disciples that Dugupadian had brought with him, They looked at Heaven Exalt Palace with gloomy expressions and said, "Clan Master, kill the sage. We will work together and destroy the sage's training ground." Understood. Boom. Immediately, 10 vast energy swords charged over. Bastard. Hua Bing's expression changed. He quickly activated the formation. At the same time, he merged with the Heavenly Tao and led a group of Hua clan disciples toward the Dugu clan disciples in the distance. Boom. The square of Heaven Exalt Palace was instantly thrown into chaos. For a time, Heavenly Tao, Sword Chi, Saber Chi, and storms wreaked havoc everywhere. Yin Hentian and Hua Chiliang looked at the sudden change in shock. Chaos in the blink of an eye? Meanwhile, in the Zhua clan district, this opportunity will not come again. Extreme Yin Heavenly Toad Shield. Zhuaqing shouted. Brr. Together with Zhuaqing, 10 Zhua clan experts suddenly activated a shield-shaped Dharma treasure with a toad swallowing the moon at the top. It descended from the sky and enveloped Yen Chuan and the others. Rumble. Within the shield, Yin Qi surged. A wisp of piercing coldness appeared and instantly froze the surrounding ground. The surroundings instantly turned into an ice field. Boom. Yen Chuan, Giguzi, and Yin Hentian were instantly enveloped. Haha, it's covered. Brothers, take advantage of the chaos and refine the 3 of them here. Zhuaqing shouted coldly. Yes. The Zhua clan disciples shouted in response. In the distance, when the emperor saw Yen Chuan being enveloped by the shield, his expression changed. The long saber in his hand trembled unconsciously and he quickly rushed toward the chaotic square of Heaven Exalt Palace. Chapter 1200. Heaven Revered Hall Square was in chaos. Rumble. Heavenly Tao, Sword Chi, Storm, Shattered Stones, Formation. Heaven Revered Hall Square was in chaos. Most of the cultivators had already chased after the saints' battle. At this moment, most of the cultivators in the square were the saints' descendants and disciples, as well as the Dugu clan and Zhua clan. In the guest area, the 16 Zhua clan disciples all rushed out. Not only here, more and more Zhua clan disciples rushed over to prevent any accidents. Refine. Zhuaqing shouted. The Zhua clan disciples quickly activated the Great Yin Heaven Toad cover. The toad statue above released a dark blue light, and the Great Yin Heaven Toad cover released rolling Yin Qi. Not far away, Desolation Hua's expression changed. On one side was his old ancestor, on the other side was the Saint King. For a moment, Desolation Hua did not know where to run. Looking at the direction Hua Zun Tian left in, Desolation Hua quickly analyzed that he could not catch up to the old ancestor's speed, let alone help. He could only help the Saint King in front of him. Zhuaqing, stop. Desolation Hua rushed over. Boom. Heaven Transformation Lord instantly stopped Desolation Hua. Desolation Hua, haha, this is a matter between Yin clan and Zhua clan, the old ancestor is not willing to interfere, you should not interfere. Heaven Transformation Lord sneered. Scram. Desolation Hua shouted. Humph, stop Desolation Hua. Heaven Transformation Lord shouted coldly. Immediately, a group of Hua clan disciples quickly blocked in front of Desolation Hua. Boom. Desolation Hua attacked without hesitation. However, Desolation Hua was only an ancient immortal after all, he could not break through. Not far away at the dragon carriage. The Saint King was tricked quickly. 7 fiends shouted. Ong. Dragon Fifth replied. Ong. Torvosaurus was somewhat unwilling. Old barbarian, the Saint King is not alone, if you want to die you can stay here. 7 fiends said. When 7 fiends said this, Torvosaurus suddenly quivered. That's right, the Saint King still had a body in the world of the living. Ong. The 3 dragons rushed into the chaotic battlefield. Inside the Great Yin Heaven Toad cover. Yen Chuan, Gue Guzi, and Yin Hentian were instantly covered. The inside was like a small space. Goo 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 goo. Toad calls came from all directions. The trio could clearly see that there were 9 toads, each of them 10 zhang tall, each one 10 zhang tall, blue chi towards Yen. Boom. Gue Guzi raised his hand. Dragon Chi shield was on the verge of hell. Shield. Not good, it's the extreme Yin Heaven Toad shield, a treasure of a sage in the past. Yin Henshin's expression changed as he cried out. Treasure? Hentian great treasure. That's right, Yang Qi said. In ancient times, a sage perished. Originally, it was supposed to be in the hands of the Yin clan, but now it's in the hands of the Zhua clan. The Zhua clan really paid a huge price this time. This is a magical treasure of a sage. Ancestor. God. Hentian. Ancestor. The Holy King is indeed the essence of the moon, just like the cold essence of the moon in the depths of the moon. With my current young body, I'm afraid that I won't be able to withstand it for long. Gigu Z smiled bitterly. Moonlight essence, cold moon essence? We originally wanted to make a trip to the moon, but this saves us the trouble. Yen Chuan revealed a smile. He waved his hand. Hua! An opening suddenly appeared in front of him. The great Yin Heaven Toad cover was broken? Yin Hentian looked at the hole in front of him in astonishment. This was a sage's magic treasure. Just how strong was the Sage King? Go out. This emperor will refine this treasure and protect Yin Hentian well. Yen Chuan said solemnly. Understood. Gue Guzi replied. He took a step forward and brought Yin Hentian out of the extreme Yin Heaven Toad shield. Boom. The opening that Yen Chuan had opened suddenly closed again. Boom. When the 9 Yin Toads opened their mouths, the surging blue energy rushed towards Yen Chuan. Yen Chuan didn't even use a protective shield. He opened his arms and allowed the blue energy to rush into his body. Boom. In the blink of an eye, Yen Chuan seemed to have been hit by 9 torrents. Roar. As Yen Chuan roared, his face became ferocious. His eyes were red and 2 blood-red fangs slowly appeared in his mouth. On his back, a pair of huge black dragon bone wings rushed out. Roar. As he roared, the surging blue energy rushed towards Yen Chuan's mouth. Rumble. It was like the Milky Way had fallen and rushed straight into Yen Chuan's stomach. In the outside world, Zuoqing led the Zuo family disciples to control the extreme Yin Heaven Toad shield. Haha, since you have entered the extreme Yin Heaven Toad shield, don't ever think of coming out. A sage's magic treasure can be refined by you. Yin Hentian Yen Chuan, only death awaits you. Zuoqing said excitedly. In the distance, the dragon carriage was rushing over. In another direction, a woman holding a saber was killing her way over. Under the blade of her saber, corpses exploded instantly. What's going on? Yen Chuan's dragon carriage? Why is the 3-headed dragon so strong? Who is that woman? Why is she killing my Zuo family people? Everyone was anxious. 3rd brother, go deal with those beasts. 5th brother, go stop that woman. Zuoqing said anxiously. Swoosh. The 2 figures shot off in 2 different directions. Boom. The battle between the 2 sides did not end immediately. Instead, it seemed to be getting more and more difficult. 3rd brother and 5th brother are both ancestral immortals. How can this be? Zuoqing's expression changed. Zuoqing, the extreme Yin Heaven Toad shield hasn't refined them yet. A Zuo family disciple said anxiously. Not yet? Then let's wait a little longer. None of them will live. Zuoqing said coldly. No, Zuoqing, it seems that you have been having bad luck recently. Just now, you scolded Yin Hentian and lost. The sage was supposed to cooperate with us, but because of your question he stopped. Now. The Zuo family disciple frowned. Speaking of bad luck, Zuoqing became even more depressed. Bad luck is only temporary. There will definitely be no problem this time. Zuoqing said angrily. Who knows? Didn't these 2 variables come? I'm more worried that because of your bad luck, Yin Hentian might escape. That person still grumbled. Impossible. A sage treasure. How can they escape? With just them? If they escape, I'll eat this sage treasure alive. Zuoqing said angrily. Just as Zuoqing finished speaking, a crack suddenly appeared on the extreme Yin Heaven Toad shield. Whoosh. Gue Guzi and Yin Hentian stepped out. Zuoqing. The Zuo family disciples. The Zuo family disciples suddenly looked at Zuoqing. The disciple from before grumbled, I told you that you have bad luck, but you just had to come. Zuoqing was even more exasperated. Kill him. Follow me and kill him. Zuoqing shouted. Yen Chuan is still inside. That person said again. That's right. The extreme Yin Heaven Toad shield still needs an ancestral immortal to guard it. Old 6, stay here. Don't let Yen Chuan come out and ruin our plan. 2nd brother, Old 7, follow me to kill Yin Hentian. He must die. Zuoqing shouted anxiously. Gue Guzi waved his sleeve and flew toward the dragon carriage with Yin Hentian. Mr. Gue Guzi, where's the Sage King? The 7 fiends shouted. Don't worry, Sage King. Follow me. Gue Guzi shouted. The 3 dragons answered. They followed Gue Guzi and flew outside. Zuoqing and the 3 ancestral immortals chased after them. On the other side, a group of Zuo family disciples blocked the Emperor's saber. Ancient immortal? She's just an ancient immortal? An ancestral immortal who was one with the heavenly Tao exclaimed. The emperor was an ancient immortal, but this ancient immortal was too fierce. The Zhou family disciples rushed forward. Boom. The moment the saber appeared, 10 Zhou family disciples were instantly cut in half and thrown into the air. The ancestral immortal slashed with his sword. The emperor's face suddenly turned sinister. Supreme saber intent. The emperor shouted. Boom. The emperor used the power of an ancient immortal to block the ancestral immortal's sword. Boom. The ancestral immortal's heavenly Tao shook, and the ancestral immortal was sent flying by the emperor's sword. Sent flying? An ancestral immortal was sent flying by an ancient immortal? No, this isn't realistic. This isn't real. The ancestral immortal who was sent flying was extremely shocked and furious. Immediately, nearly 1,000 Zhou family disciples rushed toward the emperor in the center. The emperor looked at the great Yin sky toad barrier in the distance and his eyes were filled with anxiety. Those who stand in my way die. The emperor roared. Screech. Wherever the saber passed, the Zhou family disciples were all cut into pieces and sent flying. The emperor's combat strength was shocking. Other than the ancestral immortal from before, no one else was a match for his saber. He killed his way toward the great Yin sky toad barrier. The Zhou family disciples who were in charge of the great Yin sky toad barrier were confused. My Zhou family sent 6 ancestral immortals and 300 ancient immortals. Why is it so difficult to kill Yin Hentian outside of Dezhen? The Zhou family ancestral immortal who was in charge of the great Yin sky toad barrier was confused. On the other side, Hua Qiliang was fighting with the Hua family. Hua Qiliang, stop. The Zhou family wants to kill Yin Hentian. The old ancestor has agreed. The Hua family disciples shouted. Shut up and scram. Hua Qiliang said anxiously. On the other side, the sky-burying coffin was still in the chaotic plaza. Lord Hua Tian suddenly appeared where the sky-burying coffin was. Sky-burying coffin? Yan Chuan cares so much about it that he didn't hesitate to offend everyone. Could there be some secret? Lord Hua Tian's eyes were filled with excitement. Lord Hua Tian reached out and grabbed the sky-burying coffin. Just as he was about to pick up the sky-burying coffin, a palm pressed down on the sky-burying coffin. Lord Hua Tian's expression changed as he looked over. It was the scholarly Fu Su, who was pressing down on the sky-burying coffin with one hand. This thing doesn't belong to you. Fu Su smiled. Lord Hua Tian's face twitched. In such a chaotic environment where blades flashed everywhere, Fu Su's calm smile was too out of place. It was too strange. Humph, in my revered heaven territory it's mine. Lord Hua Tian shouted coldly. As he spoke, a powerful ancestral immortal aura pressed down on Fu Su. However, Fu Su didn't react at all. He was still smiling. Wang. Lord Hua Tian felt a huge vibration coming from the sky-burying coffin. The vibration was so strong that even Lord Hua Tian, who had the strength of an ancestral immortal, couldn't resist it at all. Boom. Lord Hua Tian was forced back 10 steps before stabilizing himself. Standing 10 steps away, Lord Hua Tian looked at Fu Su with a face full of shock. Fu Su was also an ancestral immortal? And much stronger than him? Fu Su waved his sleeve and put away the sky-burying coffin. He turned around and smiled at Lord Hua Tian before leaving. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared in front of everyone. Who is this Fu Su? Lord Hua Tian's expression was extremely ugly. Chapter 1201. The heavenly Tao around the heavenly revered palace was a mess. In the distance, in a place surrounded by mountains. Boom. 4 heavenly Tao were erected in a square formation, with one person standing in each formation. They were Zhuqing and the 4 Zhou clan ancestral immortals. Gui Guzi Yin Hentian, and the 3 dragons were trapped in the center. Run? Let's see where you can run to. Zhuqing sneered arrogantly. At this moment, Gui Guzi smiled. Who said we're running? Lord Yin, I've never seen you in action after entering great perfection for so many years. Can you hold off one of these ancestral immortals? Gui Guzi asked. Yin Hentian took a deep breath. Everything about the Zhou clan was taught by my Yin clan. I might need some time to prepare for other ancestral immortals, but I can hold off one of them. Alright, too long, hold off one. Gui Guzi ordered. Hold off? But there are 4 of them. Too long said worriedly. You just have to hold him back. Gui Guzi said in a low voice. Yes. Mr. Gui Guzi, Dragon 5th and I will hold off one of them. But you have to be quick. We're just ancient immortals. We can't hold them off for long. The 7 fiends volunteered. Gue Guzi smiled at the 7 fiends and nodded. All right. 7 fiends, I'll report this to the Sage King. Roar. The 7 fiends felt energized. They had been waiting for this sentence. Ha ha, a bunch of ignorant fools. Brothers, don't be polite to them. Inhentian must die. Zhuqing shouted. All right. The other 3 ancestral immortals shouted. Rumble. More than 10 heavenly Tao appeared behind each of the 4 ancestral immortals. The void around them trembled as the heavenly Tao's power crushed inward. Do you know why I brought you here? Gue Guzi sneered. He waved his hand. Brr. Roar. Countless dragon roars could be heard from the ground. Boom. Countless dragon veins shot into the sky and surrounded the area. For a moment, endless fog filled the area. In the blink of an eye, the sky was covered in golden light. Derivative world? You've already set up a derivative world? Zhuqing's expression changed. A derivative world of feng shui? Give birth to a similar world? Not good. Quick attack. Another Jiaohu said. I still have to thank Desolation Hua for lending Huazun Tian this saint sword. Gue Guzi smiled. Suddenly Gigu Zi stabbed a glowing longsword into the ground. Boom. The surrounding fog suddenly spread outwards. In the blink of an eye, the surroundings turned from illusion to reality, and a huge palace appeared out of thin air. Heaven-revered palace? Zhuqing's expression changed. A palace that looked exactly the same as the heavenly revered hall suddenly appeared. Moreover, a large number of transparent palaces appeared around it. As they slowly solidified, it was as if an illusion had turned into reality. It was like a replica of the heavenly revered palace in the distance. At the entrance of the revered heaven palace, Gigazi's body suddenly glowed with white light as he lowered his head slightly. Slowly Gigazi raised his head. At that moment, everyone realized that Gigazi's clothes had become exactly the same as the saints. Even Gue Guzi's face was blurred. There seemed to be a layer of mist covering Gue Guzi's face, making it impossible to see his face clearly. Only one kind of person would have such a form, and that was a saint. A saint was formless and formless. The heavenly Tao bestowed them with power, and they were the great duke of the world. At that moment, Gigazi's face was also blurred. His body glowing with white light, Gigazi suddenly shouted, in front of the heavenly revered palace, I am the Saint Huazun Tian. Hum. A powerful aura erupted from Gigazi's body and spread in all directions. A saint has created a world. He actually created a saint's dojo? Zhuqing exclaimed. Kill. An ancestral immortal's 10 heavenly Tao came crushing down. Gigazi snorted coldly and waved his sleeve. Boom. The 10 heavenly Tao immediately collapsed and scattered. Gigazi took a step forward and grabbed at the ancestral immortal with his palm. Bastard, bastard. The ancestral immortal roared in shock and struck with his palm. How dare you be so impudent in front of a saint? Gigazi shouted angrily. Boom. The 2 palms collided and the ancestral immortal was sent flying. The heavenly Tao that he had fused with shook as if it would collapse at any moment. Impersonating a saint? Impossible. There are less than 5 feng shui masters in the world who can impersonate a saint. And how can you impersonate one so well? The ancestral immortal exclaimed. Gigazi swung his sleeve and shouted, I am a saint. I will destroy the heavens and destroy the earth. I will honor the merits of the heavenly revered domain. Follow my command. Rumble. For a moment, the entire heavenly revered domain began to tremble. The earth trembled as waves of energy gathered toward Gigazi. Gigazi's aura became more and more divine. Everyone felt that his aura was becoming more and more similar to that of Huazun Tian. A feng shui master? How can there be such a powerful feng shui master in Dezhen? The ancestral immortal exclaimed. Unparalleled sovereign heaven, great might shatters the Tao. Gigazi waved his hand again. Boom. The ancestral immortal's body fused with the heavenly Tao and exploded. The ancestral immortal was slapped to the ground by the saint that Gigazi had impersonated. The ancestral immortal spat out a mouthful of blood. Impossible, impossible. The ancestral immortal cried out in shock. As for Zhuqing and the other 3 ancestral immortals, their mouths were agape as they stared at this scene. I've seen geomancers use derivative worlds to simulate ancestral immortals, but this is the first time I've seen a simulated sage. Moreover, it was a saint that he was not familiar with? How can there be such a powerful feng shui master? Zhuqing exclaimed. The other 2 ancestral immortals grew anxious as well, and they wanted to attack Giguzi as well. Boom. Inhentian and the three dragons attacked at the same time. Gui Guzi had already finished his work. At this moment, everyone naturally understood what it meant to drag things out. Rumble. In the derivative world, a raging battle broke out. In front of the revered Heaven Hall. The sovereign's saber was like a meat grinder. Apart from ancestral immortals, anyone who touched it would be sliced into two. Kill, 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 kill. Along the way, the Zhou clan's ancient immortals were no match for him. Wherever the blade passed, it was all quiet. Ah. Ancestors save me. Granduncle save me. Countless sounds of Jiaohu could not change the killing intent of the emperor at this moment. The ancestral immortal blocking the emperor was also very anxious at this moment. Heavenly Might Sword. A sword pierced over with a vast sword energy. The emperor's face was ferocious as he twisted his saber. Roar. The mountain-like saber energy went up against the heavens and collided with the heavenly Tao. Boom. A huge gap was slashed open in the heavenly Tao, and the saber energy directly cut through the left hand of the ancestral immortal inside. Ah! The ancestral immortal screamed. The heavenly Tao that was the heavenly Tao was cut open by the emperor's saber. Not far away, the Zhou clan's disciple who was controlling the great In-Heaven Toad shield had an ugly expression. How could this be? The ancestral immortal Jiaohu who was controlling the great In-Heaven Toad shield said. Quick, old six, come and help me. The ancestral immortal Jiaohu whose hand was cut off said. Me? Then what about the great In-Heaven Toad shield? Yan Chuan is still inside. He's not dead yet. Old Six said anxiously. As he spoke, Old Six suddenly saw Lord Huatian not far away. Lord Huatian, go and help him deal with that woman. Old Six said anxiously. Deal with the emperor? Lord Huatian looked at the emperor who was fighting in the distance. She was just an ancient immortal, but when he saw her strength, Lord Huatian suddenly trembled. No, I'm not going. How about I help you control the great In-Heaven Toad shield? Lord Huatian immediately shook his head and refused. Fine. You come and control it with my Zhou clan's disciples. Old Six had no other choice. Okay. Lord Huatian immediately charged towards the great In-Heaven Toad shield. Lord Huatian, do you want to die? Far away, the Jiaohu who was blocked by Desolation Transformation said. Lord Huatian ignored Desolation Transformation and reached out to take over Old Six's job. Rumble. Lord Huatian activated the great In-Heaven Toad shield. Desolation Transformation anxiously looked at the disciples blocking him. Bastards, get out of the way. Desolation Transformation, Lord Huatian is right. The old ancestor has already acknowledged the Zhou clan. Don't keep making mistakes. A Zhou clan disciple shouted. The ones who keep making mistakes are you guys. Lord Huatian, that idiot, it's fine if he wants to die, but he wants to take you guys with him? Desolation Transformation said anxiously. You? Desolation Transformation, quickly wake up. The ones who aren't awake are you guys. Desolation Transformation shouted anxiously. In the distance, the two ancestral immortals were fighting the emperor at the same time. The emperor's eyes were cold, his short hair slightly swaying. Those who block me die. The emperor's fighting strength seemed to increase explosively again. Rumble. The fierce battle made the two ancestral immortals tremble in fear even though they were standing within the heavenly Tao. Because every slash of the emperor's was able to cut a hole in the heavenly Tao. This was the heavenly Tao. Ancient immortals couldn't shake it at all. But in front of the emperor it was full of holes. The two ancestral immortals immediately felt depressed. Quick, have you refined Yan Chuan yet? Old Six Jiaohu asked. No, old ancestor hasn't refined him yet, but... A Zhou clan ancient immortal said anxiously. But what? Old Six shouted. There seems to be a problem with the great In-Heaven Toad shield. Something's not right. The ancient immortal said anxiously. Isn't it just refining Yan Chuan? What's wrong? Could he have eaten the great In-Heaven Toad shield? Old Six said gloomily. He had just left for a while and something had happened over there? Inside the great In-Heaven Toad shield. Zombie Yan Chuan opened his mouth and devoured the moonlight essence crazily. Rolling blue energy rushed into Yan Chuan's mouth. The 9 giant toads didn't even have time to spit it out and felt weak. That's it? Roar. Yan Chuan's fangs grew a bit longer, and his devouring power rose again. Gugugugu. The 9 giant toads trembled as if they couldn't resist at all. Bam. Yan Chuan's huge dragon bone wings flapped violently. Roar. The 9 giant toads were all pulled into Yanchuan's mouth by Yanchuan's great strength. Yanchuan swallowed them together with the space inside. Rumble. To the outside world, the great in heaven toad shield trembled violently. As it trembled, Lord Huatian and the others were at a loss. Roar. Suddenly, everyone heard a soul-shaking roar. Boom. Everyone who used the great in heaven toad shield was sent flying by a huge force. Even Lord Huatian took a few steps back at this moment. As he retreated, he saw the surrounding space distort. He vaguely saw a huge monster with huge wings on its back and fangs in its mouth. It opened its mouth and swallowed the great in heaven toad shield. Buzz. Everyone was shocked to see that the great in heaven toad shield disappeared. The square was originally a mess, and at the center stood a huge zombie. Boom. The huge wings on the zombie's back slowly retracted. Yanchuan, Yanchuan? Lord Huatian exclaimed. His face was filled with endless fear. Lord Huatian knew that Yanchuan was powerful. That day he swallowed an ancestral immortal alive. Today he even swallowed a saint's dharma treasure? That was a saint's dharma treasure. Ancestor. The Zhou family's ancient immortal roared in shock. The 2 ancestral immortals who were fighting the emperor in the distance were also in danger. What's wrong now? 6th brother shouted anxiously. Yanchuan really ate it. The Zhou family's ancient immortal shouted in panic. What? The 2 ancestral immortals were slightly stunned. They turned their heads. They saw that the great in heaven toad shield had disappeared. Only Yanchuan was standing in the center, bearing his fangs. What? The 2 ancestral immortals cried out in shock again. While they were distracted. Die. The emperor roared. A vast saber energy descended from the sky and slashed down vertically at a heavenly Tao. Boom. The emperor's saber split the entire heavenly Tao vertically. The ancestral immortal in the center was split in half on the spot. A huge sound rang out, shaking the heavens and the earth. Instantly the surrounding battle stopped. Even the battle between Hua Bing and the experts of the Dugu family suddenly stopped. Almost everyone looked at the heavenly Tao that was split in half in confusion. Then they looked at the person who wielded the saber. An ancient immortal? Hua Bing exclaimed. The experts of the Dugu family also looked at the emperor in confusion. After being struck by the emperor's blade, he was also gasping for breath. However, his gasping for breath sounded like the ringing of a great bell in the ears of many people. The other ancestral immortal who was fighting the emperor was dumbfounded. The emperor also saw Yanchuan in the distance. You're fine? The emperor was slightly stunned, but a flash of joy flashed in his eyes. I'm fine. Thank you so much this time. Yanchuan nodded. Even if Yanchuan was not a romantic, he could understand why the emperor rushed over. An ancient immortal was willing to fight 2 ancestral immortals for him? How could Yanchuan not be touched? The emperor's expression was complicated. No need to thank me. It has nothing to do with you. I only wanted to kill the ancestral immortal and remove the bloodbathing curse. The emperor's face turned cold again. Turning his head, the emperor no longer looked at Yanchuan and flew into the distance. The ancestral immortal Lao Lu did not dare to stop him. Congratulations, Master. Master is mighty. The 12th disciple shouted excitedly. The emperor waved his sleeve and flew away with the 12th disciple. Almost everyone in the heavenly revered hall watched the emperor leave. Whether it was the Dugu family or the Hua family, they all remembered this woman. Yanchuan came out. Lord Huatian naturally fled in panic. Yanchuan snorted coldly. He reached out and grabbed. A huge hand grabbed Lord Huatian. Bastard, what are you doing? I'm the descendant of a sage. This is the heavenly revered hall. Jiaohu shouted. On the other side, the remaining ancestral immortal of the Zhou family did not want to fight and fled into the distance. Where do you think you're going? Yanchuan snorted coldly. The other hand turned into a huge hand and grabbed the ancestral immortal from behind. Let go. The ancestral immortal's face changed. But Yanchuan was faster. The 2 hands joined together and Lord Huatian and Lao Lu were pulled face to face. Boom. The 2 ancestral immortals collided face to face and were instantly smashed into pieces. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.